I actually signed up for the 2003 NBA draft. Looking at this unfamiliar foreigner before him, Li Long simply could not believe that something like time travel could happen to him. Ding, the super basketball system has been activated. Host, please check it yourself. Damn. And a system too. This is awesome. Originally, Li Long had been thinking that he was just an ordinary guy signing up for the NBA draft was nothing but a joke. He never expected that along with the time travel there would also be a system. Opening the system, the first thing that appeared in Li Long's mind was a status panel. Li Long. Age 18 years, 166 days. Height 199 centimeters. Weight 108 kilograms. Wingspan 216 centimeters. Max vertical leap 102 centimeters. Seeing this, Li Long was shocked. Was he holding LeBron James' script? Could this be a parallel universe? While Li Long was thinking, once he became the No. 1 pick, he would first train for 4 years with the Cavaliers, then directly recruit Wade and Bosh. That way no one would call him Li Run Run. If anyone said he was peak team hopping, he could just use Garnett as a shield. Why could the Wolf King do it while he, the Emperor, could not? By then he would first achieve a 5-peat, then trade the 2 for draft picks. With his knowledge of the future, he could lay low for at most 1 year, then get another 5-peat no problem. Then NBA would be a direct finale. Michael the Ring King would all be trampled under his feet. At that point he would retire at the peak, find a secluded place to avoid the big flu, and leave behind an undefeated legend. Thinking of this, he was amused by the plan himself. But when he saw the following stats, he was stunned. Rebounding 74. Passing 49. Shooting 47. Driving 65. Was rookie season LeBron this week? That couldn't be right, could it? If the shooting was about the same, then the passing and driving were way too different. Lee, don't worry. With the Chinese market, you will definitely be drafted. Burroughs spoke earnestly, trying to fool the young man in front of him. Because last year Yao Ming's joining had skyrocketed the Rockets' market value, many agents looking for shortcuts came to test the waters in China. The Burroughs before him was one of them. He was unknown in the US and didn't even have a single NBA player under his management. But the moment he first saw Li Long in China, he was deeply attracted by him. At around 2 meters tall with fierce muscles, long arms, and huge hands, everything indicated this guy had terrifying physical gifts. Drafted? Li Long was just wondering if he really got LeBron's script when he heard the foreigner's words. Was he kidding? With his physique, just being drafted? Was the physical standard in this world generally higher than in the original world? Who do you think will be the No. 1 pick? To verify, Li Long cautiously asked. Of course LeBron. Although Carmelo is also excellent, I dare. Burroughs said something after that, but Li Long didn't listen anymore. Having confirmed that this was still the original timeline, he just wanted to sort things out. All right, let me rest for a while. You go out first. Without further ado, he pushed Burroughs out and began to search through his memories. So that's it. It turned out that in this life Li Long was a member of the S Province youth basketball team. But because of family issues, he couldn't afford the fine for a fight within the team and was expelled. Later he met Burroughs, who said he could help him enter the NBA. Li Long thought it was a scam and wanted to see how the guy would be slapped in the face, so he let him handle the draft registration. And he agreed that once drafted, all agency business would be handed over to him. Seeing this, Li Long understood the whole story. Suddenly Li Long froze because he saw at the very bottom of the system there was an item for resentment value. Resentment value 0. From his years of reading novels, he knew this thing was definitely the key to defying fate. System, what does this resentment value mean? The host can collect the opponent's resentment from all active players through any means. Every 1,000 resentment points grant 1 free attribute point. Hearing this, Li Long smiled. Sure enough, he had guessed right. As long as he could add points, he still had a chance to snatch LeBron's script. System, everyone else has a newbie gift pack. You don't have one, do you? Then Li Long remembered that in the novels he used to read, systems always had newbie gift packs. Why didn't his? Ding, the newbie gift pack has been sent. Host, please check it yourself. Haha, sure enough, the one who asks gets fed. Looking at his own status panel, there was an extra skill slot. Skill Mad Dog Bite. Mad Dog Bite, a perimeter defense skill that uses relentless close guarding to make the opposing player impatient and commit mistakes. The next day, accompanied by Burroughs, Li Long watched the 2003 draft in the hotel. Because his visa hadn't come through yet, he could only stay in the hotel and watch the draft. Unexpectedly, Li Long went undrafted. Damn, was there a mistake? With his physique, even if not the No. 1 pick, how could he not be drafted at all? Li Long didn't know that his body had been modified by the system. According to his previous test data, going undrafted was the most normal thing. Li, don't lose heart. We'll go to America, and I will definitely get you into the NBA. Seeing Li Long, dazed Burroughs, fearing he would back out, thumped his chest and said boldly. In fact, he had no connections at all in the NBA. On July 1st, as soon as Li Long's visa came through, Burroughs immediately took him to the United States. In the past few days, Li Long had also gotten used to this body. He had to say the new body was truly amazing. His basketball skills might not be much, but the Jeet Kune Do he had cultivated in his previous life had fully recovered. With his current body, he could beat 3 of his past selves. Long, you must seize this opportunity. You must seize this opportunity, you know. Go out there and perform well, score as many points as possible, you know. It was now July 4th. Through Burrow's efforts, he had finally found Li Long a chance to play in the Summer League. Orlando was willing to give this compatriot of Yao a try. If possible, they also wanted to replicate what Houston had done. At this moment, the game on the court was between the Magic and the Cavaliers. This Orlando Summer League attracted over 10,000 spectators. Of course, 99% of them had come to see the young King James. Lee ready to go in. Just when the Magic's head coach was watching James barrel around on the court, he remembered that his own team also had a strongman. Hearing the head coach's words, Li Long immediately stood up. Young LeBron, having grown used to the bald veteran, seeing such a green James really gave him a sense of a different world. Then during a dead ball, the Magic coach sent Li Long in. At the same time, an ESPN reporter was watching the game and writing his article. LeBron, is he the next Magic? Or Jordan? Li Long stepped onto the court and walked directly in front of James. Hey LeBron, your show ends here today. James looked at the yellow-skinned youth in front of him, utterly speechless. Who does this nobody think he is? He was just starting to enjoy his performance. However, he didn't bother to respond. An insignificant rookie wasn't worth his attention. It was the Cavaliers' turn to attack. The point guard brought the ball up the court and immediately passed to James. Everyone knew who the star of this show was. If he didn't follow the script, there were plenty ready to take his place. The moment James caught the ball, Li Long lunged in front of him. James was startled. Damn, this guy's like a mad dog. Li Long's physique was surprisingly strong, and no matter how hard James pushed, he couldn't create space. Helpless James had to dribble back a step. Li Long wasn't about to let him go. He pressed even closer. Watching James' awkward crab-like dribbling, Li Long couldn't help but smile, knowing that in a few years such a sight would be gone. James had by now shed his contempt. He didn't expect this yellow-skinned kid to hold his ground. He had to drive, or the shot clock would expire. But just as James prepared to take another step back, Li Long swiped down and knocked the ball away. Did you learn to dribble from a crab? Staring at the ball now in Li Long's possession, James' face darkened even darker than its usual black. Ding. Congratulations, host, you have obtained 200 resentment points from James. The sudden voice made Li Long pause. So this was how to get resentment points. Meanwhile, the scene caught the audience's attention. Who is that yellow-skinned kid? He actually stole from James. Yeah, I haven't heard of this rookie this year. Could he be an undrafted free agent? While the audience buzzed, Li Long made a decision that defied his lineage. He held the ball with both hands and extended it directly in front of James. Ding. Congratulations, host, you have obtained 500 resentment points from James. Wow, jackpot. Li Long didn't expect the usually media-savvy James to have such a temper. Staring at the ball offered back, James' face turned even darker. As a pragmatist, James snatched the ball back. He slammed it hard against the floor and swore to crush this damn yellow-skinned punk. Li Long wouldn't give him room to start, and no matter how James moved, he stayed tight. Carlos Boozer saw James' predicament and hurried over to set a pick. Bam! Seeing James drive left, Li Long collided hard with a solid body as he tried to move right. Without checking who blocked him, Li Long spun around and chased after James. He was fast. Just as James started his steps, Li Long caught up. But James wasn't one to back down. Once he got going, he bulldozed through Li Long toward the basket. Li Long calculated the steps. As James took his second step, he planted his feet solidly like roots, raised both hands, and stood his ground. And then, he watched James take another step, leap over him, and slam the ball home with a monster dunk. Great LeBron, awesome dunk. That yellow-skinned kid can't stop LeBron's drive. The audience erupted with excitement over James' dunk. Daddy, did LeBron take an extra step just now? Only a little boy asked his father, confused. Li Long looked at his own feet. His step count was correct, wasn't it? He looked up at the referee, who was signaling a 2-point basket valid. Hey referee, that was a travel. Li Long hurried over to the official. But the referee gave him a cold glare and ignored him completely. From the referee's eyes, Li Long knew he'd get burned if he persisted. Hey LeBron, aren't you the traveling king? Since the referee won't listen, it'll get even from you. Hearing Li Long's words, James froze again. Ding. Congratulations, host, you have obtained 500 resentment points from James. Not bad, not bad. Even though the travel was missed, the extra resentment points made up for it. When the Magic began their offense, Li Long had nothing to do. Typical summer league, whoever gets the ball shoots. Luckily, the Magic made the basket. After that basket, James asked to be subbed out. Li Long ran a few more suicides. The Magic head coach watched and saw no contribution, so he pulled Li Long from the game. Li, what were you thinking? Don't you know the audience came to see LeBron? As soon as Li Long sat down, Belosi complained in his ear. Clearly, Belosi believed Li Long's actions were why they got benched so early. Damn, just because he's the king, everyone has to kiss his ass. Li Long ignored Belosi's complaints. He knew James had traveled. But he was also punished. He only had one steal, then gave the ball back and got a turnover. The Magic head coach thought Li Long was just another athletic kid. There were plenty like him in the league. Before the game ended, Li Long received the coach's notice he wouldn't be playing the next game. See, I told you. LeBron is America's pride. What you did only ruins your own future. After receiving the news, Li Long didn't stay for the rest of the game. He and Belosi left the arena needing to find new opportunities. Hey kid, come here. As they exited the arena, a voice called out. Are you? Barkley. Li Long hesitated as he looked at the fat man before him. He couldn't believe he'd meet Barkley at a summer league game. As it turned out, Barkley was also there to watch James' performance. As a TNT commentator and ESPN's rival, he was furious with ESPN's hype of James. What? The next Jordan? I don't even dare to claim I could catch MJ. And a rookie dares to aspire to that. That was why he noticed Li Long, especially the move where Li Long stole the ball and then gave it back. Barkley felt he had to meet this interesting kid. Barkley saw that Li Long's match was not yet finished, and as he prepared to leave, a thought crossed his mind, and he realized what had happened. Yes, I am the great Charles Barkley. Kid, you are Yao's compatriot Warren. Seeing Li Long's excitement upon seeing him, Barkley felt a sense of pride and replied, look, I am indeed a superstar. Even Warren know me. So what does a donkey's butt taste like? Li Long looked at the proud Barkley with a mischievous smile and asked. After saying this, he turned and ran. What donkey's butt? In an instant, Barkley recalled his bet. All right, you damn kid, stand still. Saying this, he chased after him. Kid, so you're an undrafted player. Why don't you properly curry favor with Sir Charles and dare to make jokes about me? That evening, Li Long and Boros brought Barkley back to the hotel together. Originally, Barkley had no plans for this trip, but he was shocked by Li Long's lunge punch. It turned out that Li Long saw Barkley chasing after him and wanted to scare him a bit, so he threw him a lunge punch. Of course, the punch stopped an inch from his face, otherwise Barkley would have had to go to the hospital. This did scare Barkley quite a bit, but it didn't scare him away. Instead, it made him cling to Li Long. Boros was very pleased with all of this. Barkley was far more connected in the NBA than he was. If he could help, then Li Long wouldn't have to worry about opportunities. With my skills, I don't need to curry favor with you. Didn't you see the first pick being taken down by me? Hearing Li Long say this, Barkley also chuckled. He didn't know why he used to look down on Yao Ming so much, but now he liked Li Long just as much. Kid, let's go. Let Uncle Barkley see if you're just boasting. If you really have the skills, I wouldn't mind recommending you. Upon hearing this, Li Long's eyes lit up. Although he was confident about establishing himself in the NBA, he currently lacked a stepping stone. Barkley understood that Li Long's physical abilities were indeed real and his defense was above average, but in terms of offense, he was just an ordinary player. However, he couldn't understand how such great physicality could lead to being undrafted. Were the general managers in the league blind? Kid, give me your phone number. Wait for my news. With a sense of certainty, Barkley didn't waste time and directly asked for Li Long's number. The 76ers general manager's office, Billy King, was furious. The boss had asked him to look at last year's Rockets earnings. How could he not know? Who in the league didn't know that old Alexander had struck gold? Who knew that such a backward country could have such great potential? Iverson was also in need of help, but there weren't that many good players in the league, and besides, would good players choose to play for you? This year, he had finally managed to gather 3 first picks, and the salary cap was already exhausted. Even if he wanted to sign players, he was powerless. Moreover, with the new season fast approaching, where would he find good players without contracts? However, he also knew that the 1990 first pick Coleman was just coasting, and the 1994 first pick Big Dog Robinson was already past his prime. This year, achieving results would likely be difficult again. But he couldn't ignore Iverson's words, otherwise it would definitely be himself who would face the consequences with the boss. After all, in the boss' eyes, Iverson was a box office guarantee. Ding ding ding. At this moment, the office phone rang. Hello, what? A flying pig recommended someone. What, it's a Warren. Let him come for a tryout. Originally, upon hearing it was someone recommended by Barkley, Billy King's first reaction was to tell the other party to get lost. A fat pig knows nothing about team operations, but when he heard it was a Warren, Billy King was stunned. Warren wasn't Alexander relying on Warren. It seemed Barkley was indeed loyal to his original team. He made up his mind that as long as Li Long wasn't too bad, he would definitely sign him. On October 27th, Li Long, accompanied by Boros, arrived at the 76ers. For the past 3 months, he had been practicing basketball and finally looked somewhat like a basketball player. Moreover, he had exchanged 1,000 resentment points for an attribute point, boosting his defense from 90 to 91. He understood that to stand firm in the NBA, he needed his own unique skills, and his unique skill was defense. However, he also discovered that no matter how much he practiced, the numbers on the attribute panel wouldn't change. We hit the jackpot, GM. We just got a bonus lottery pick. Chris Ford exclaimed excitedly to Billy King while holding Li Long's physical report. Basic skills no 6. Billy King had just seen Li Long's physical stats and knew the data must be good. However, he still pretended to be nonchalant, waved his hand, and took the report to read it. Li Long, age 18 years and 286 days, height 200 centimeters, weight 109 kilograms, wingspan 217 centimeters, body fat 6.4, hand width 31 centimeter, standing reach 280 centimeters, maximum vertical jump 62 centimeters. The more Billy King looked, the more shocked he became. Chris Ford was indeed not exaggerating. Just looking at the static data, he was definitely not inferior to some lottery players. However, looking at the dynamic talents, they were quite average, even ranking at the bottom among this year's rookies. What puzzled him was how he hadn't noticed such good static data back then. He didn't know that Li Long hadn't taken the dynamic test seriously, he had just casually muddled through. Otherwise, his dynamic data wouldn't be inferior to James. As for why he did this, it was because he once overheard Boros mention that he had been feeling much stronger recently. He finally understood that his body was modified by the system after crossing over. When he saw his original physical test data, he immediately started making up lies, saying he had thought of him as a fraud and had fooled him during the test. Fortunately, he was only 18 years old, the prime age for development, otherwise he wouldn't have known how to cover up his lies. After seeing the final results, Billy King understood why he was undrafted. Li Long was just a pure rookie with exceptional physical qualities. Even so, he still offered Li Long a one-year non-guaranteed contract. After all, even if he couldn't perform, it would still fulfill the owner's task of making more money. Even if they couldn't attract the attention of Wagwaran media, it wouldn't matter. They could just cut him later since it was a non-guaranteed contract. Li, fantastic. I knew you would succeed. After signing the contract, Li Long left the 76ers facility with Burroughs. Throughout the journey, Burroughs was ecstatic. He never imagined that his desperate trip to China would indeed uncover the second Chinese player to enter the NBA after Yao Ming of the Rockets. China. Just thinking about that enormous market makes me feel a cascade of dollars heading my way. All right, Burroughs, I think we should find a place to rent now. What do you think? Watching the exhilarated Burroughs, Li Long shook his head with a smile. He harbored no worries about entering the NBA, as the chosen one of the system, if he couldn't achieve this, his reincarnation would have been in vain. October 29th marked the opening day of the regular season. Li Long arrived early at the locker room, gazing at his jersey numbered 58, silently vowing that the legend of 58 would commence from this very day. He had specifically chosen this number because no one in NBA history had ever worn it. Hey, are you new here too? Just then the locker room door opened, revealing a handsome young white man. Hello, I'm Li Long from China, an undrafted rookie this year. Li Long recognized the newcomer as the future all-star shooter Kyle Korver. Knowing the other was also a rookie, Li Long introduced himself proactively. I'm Kyle Korver, a second-round pick. Let's look out for each other. Seeing another rookie, Korver was delighted, thinking he wouldn't be the sole target of hazing anymore. Li, you can't sit there. Just as Korver finished speaking, a group of people entered the room. Oh, a new face. Eric Snow remarked, puzzled upon seeing Li Long. However, noticing where Li Long was seated, he quickly fell silent. Allen Iverson, standing in the middle of the group, darkened his expression, for Li Long had taken his designated seat. Kid, are you the new rookie? Iverson strode slowly up to Li Long, staring coldly at him. Initially thrilled to see Iverson, Li Long's excitement waned at the icy interrogation, stirring his displeasure. I may be a rookie, but did I eat your rice? What boss AI planning a onion on? Basketball or a fight? Li Long rose to his feet, looking down at Iverson. Hearing this, Iverson smirked. Basketball. That would be a walk in the park. In Philadelphia, with one word from me, you could end up dead on the street. Pretty cocky, huh? Don't you know I can have you kicked out tomorrow? With that, Iverson pushed Li Long aside and settled into his seat. Realization dawned on Li Long about why Iverson targeted him. Yet caught in the moment, he refused to lose face. TCH, without the 76ers, I can't play in the NBA. Sensing Li Long's bluster, Iverson shook his head and dropped the matter. A minor figure wasn't worth his attention. Kid, fetch my shoes. Just then a burly black man commanded Li Long. Li Long knew that hazing rookies was a tradition in the NBA. Even Kobe had carried bags as a rookie. But at this moment it felt like outright bullying. Li, it's normal. Korver tugged gently at Li Long, whispering in consolation. Hearing this, Li Long conceived a new plan. Which locker is yours? The others, hearing his apparent submission, breathed a sigh of relief. At least there wouldn't be another conflict delaying the game. Little rookie doesn't even know me. Number 22, Big Dog Robinson, that's me. Irritated that Li Long didn't recognize him, Robinson fumed, inwardly plotting future retribution. As Robinson schemed, a thunderous crash echoed through the room. The wooden door of Robinson's locker marked 22 shattered into pieces under Li Long's punch. Sorry, I didn't have the key. Li Long feigned innocence, scratching his head, then handed the shoes to Robinson. You. Robinson trembled, pointing at Li Long, words failing him. Their lockers were made of solid wood, and without any visible buildup, Li Long had unleashed such devastating force. If that punch had landed on his head, an early retirement might have been inevitable. Even Iverson was startled, now understanding why the kid had dared to challenge him. Bruce Lee. Lee, it's Bruce's kung fu, right? And your name is Lee. Are you Bruce's secret son? Greg Buckner exclaimed excitedly. The rest of the 76ers suddenly saw the light. No wonder a rookie was so audacious. He must be Bruce Lee's secret son. Li Long, however, was dumbfounded. He hadn't expected a Bruce Lee fan in the 76ers. A single-inch punch had given him away. But Bruce Lee's secret son. Even idol worship had its limits. No, Bruce is my idol. I merely studied his Jeet Kune Do. To avoid any misunderstanding, Li Long quickly clarified. Oh, Jeet Kune Do. I love it too. Can you teach me? Greg Buckner asked eagerly. The other 76ers' eyes lit up. Kung Fu was something everyone wanted to learn. Sure, I'll teach you when I have time. Seeing someone extending friendship, Li Long responded with a broad smile. Hey Lee, I want to learn too. Yelly, we're all teammates, don't play favorites. Hearing this, others joined the bandwagon. Only Iverson looked on with mild surprise. This young man had some skills. Lee, do all Chinese people know Kung Fu? Greg Buckner suddenly asked after they had mingled for a while. Well, absolutely. There are plenty like me in China. Li Long replied modestly. In truth, with his current physique, few could openly defeat him except for specialized individuals. Oh my God, the Chinese are terrifying. So Yao from Houston knows Kung Fu too. Good thing I never challenged him. Kenny Thomas mused inwardly. Nonsense, I was teammates with Yao Ming, and I never knew he had Kung Fu. But he didn't call Li Long out. Unlike Yao Ming, Li Long not only knew Kung Fu, but had also stood up to Iverson right from the start. Hey, why aren't you warming up? What's everyone doing in the locker room? Chris Ford entered with the coaching staff. Hello, coach. On our way, just about to go. Seeing the coach, everyone quickly changed into their jerseys and headed for the court. Lee, you're new here. Has anyone been bothering you? Chris Ford, noticing Li Long lagging behind, asked with concern, as if addressing a freshman on his college team. No, coach. The teammates have been very friendly. Corver, walking ahead and wondering why the head coach hadn't asked about him, nearly stumbled. Friendly. Could the Chinese have a different interpretation of the word? Perform well, and he'll give you opportunities. Lee, what are you saying? By now the game had progressed to the second quarter. Watching Wade go toe-a-toe with Iverson on the court, Li Long grumbled inwardly. That old man promised he'd give me a chance, but even during the substitute minutes in the second quarter, he never called my name. Nothing, I was just talking about the Heat's number 3. With that speed driving to the basket without slowing down, doesn't he worry about turning an ankle? Li Long certainly wasn't about to tell Corver that he was complaining about the head coach. Of course that's Wade. He was the 5th pick in this year's draft. His signature move is driving without losing speed. And what's more, he had his meniscus removed in college after an injury. Otherwise, he'd be even more terrifying. Thinking Li Long didn't know who Wade was, Corver patiently explained. Li Long thought to himself, I know better than you. These things have been talked about endlessly in later years. Sometimes Li Long even wondered if the line about giving up a meniscus to the entire league was a PR piece Wade had bought himself. After all, Wade's flair for showing off was etched into his DNA. Still, one had to admit Wade's driving move was truly formidable. Indeed, it was Big Dog Robinson defending Wade. Due to height considerations, Chris Ford had Iverson guard the opposing point guard. But Snow couldn't keep up with Wade's speed at all, and his physical attributes were far inferior. As a result, this tough task fell upon Big Dog. Yet even after Big Dog was knocked out of the game, Chris Ford only sent in John Salmons. Lee, stop pacing in front of me. They'll put you in when it's time. After halftime, Li Long saw that Chris Ford still had no intention of letting him play, so he occasionally walked back and forth in front of him. In truth, Chris Ford was extremely nervous himself. After all, this was his first game coaching in the NBA. To ensure victory, how could he dare to send in a rookie like Li Long? It wasn't until the final 2 minutes that the 76ers led by 12 points. Lee, Corver, get ready to go in. Seeing that the game was decided, Chris Ford finally called for Li Long and Corver. Hearing the voice he had been waiting for all game, Li Long quickly stood up. Hey buddy, you need to call for the ball. After stepping onto the court, Li Long looked speechlessly at the Heat's number 52, who was guarding him. It was already garbage time, and his forte was defense. But after 2 possessions, the number 52 guarding him hadn't even touched the ball. How was he supposed to show off? Samaki Walker looked at Li Long with disdain. Did you think I didn't want the ball? Don't you know garbage time is just for casual play? Besides, you haven't gotten the ball either, and you have the nerve to laugh at me. He thought Li Long was mocking him. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 20 resentment points from Samaki Walker. Damn, the sudden voice in his head startled Li Long. Samaki Walker. Who's that? Realizing he had only spoken to the Heat's number 52, he understood his name was Samaki Walker. But the thing is, I didn't anger him, did I? And this resentment value is so low it's not even worth one of the King's legs. Samaki Walker. To confirm his thoughts, Li Long deliberately tested it. Yo, what's your name? Samaki Walker was equally bewildered. What's going on? Am I really that famous? Out of politeness, he asked Li Long's name in return. Bro, I'm not mocking you. You need to get the ball. If you don't show your skills, how can you stay in the NBA? Seeing time was running out, Li Long still tried to coax him into asking for the ball. Don't you want to stay in the league too? Why haven't I seen you call for the ball? Samaki Walker didn't understand why Li Long kept urging him to get the ball. Couldn't he see both sides had stopped playing? Li Long was puzzled. Who said all black guys were simpletons with no brains? Had he encountered an exception? Just then the referee blew the final whistle. Li Long's NBA debut ended with a goose egg across the board. No worries, Yao Ming's debut was also scoreless. Even the hottest superstars now, Kobe T-Mac, had 0 points in their first games. Kid, weren't you asking for a onion? Don't leave just yet. Just as Li Long was comforting himself with Yao Ming's example, he suddenly heard Iverson's voice. Onion. Li Long was taken aback. Was he talking about basketball or a fight? Probably basketball. If it were a fight, Iverson would have called his crew first. After everyone left, Li Long practiced dunking alone in the training gym. Honestly, ever since he transmigrated, his favorite thing was dunking. In his past life, he didn't have this physique. Although he practiced Jeet Kune Do, his height was too much of a disadvantage. Just as Li Long finished a standing two-handed jam in tribute to Curry, Iverson suddenly appeared in the gym and shouted at him, "Kid, is that your warm-up?" Warm-up? Li Long wished he could play laid-back basketball and average 18 points a game. That would be awesome. Then he could tell people he was the 76ers' second-in-command. But unfortunately, he wasn't even qualified for that. Borrowing a famous saying from his past life, he simply didn't have the ability. All right, cut the crap. Basketball or a fight? Li Long tossed the basketball aside and said to Iverson, "A fight." Hearing Li Long ask such a shameless question, Iverson felt like spitting in his face. After witnessing Li Long punch through a locker door, he'd be a fool to choose a fight with him. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 resentment points from Iverson. Oh, he could get resentment points this way too. Li Long felt like he had made a new discovery. This meant, suddenly a basketball slammed into him. A basketball player fights with basketball. 11 points. You attack first, Iverson said and walked to the free throw line. Li Long looked at the ball in his hands, then at Iverson. You're shorter, so you attack first. Li Long wasn't unaware of Iverson's offensive prowess, but he himself had no offensive skills at all. So he pretended to be cool and tossed the ball back to Iverson. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 resentment points from Iverson. Iverson was fuming. What did he mean by you're shorter? If he could grow to 6'6", there'd be no Jordan. This arrogant kid, they'll make him cry today. Thinking this, Iverson said nothing more and started dribbling beyond the three-point line. Watching Iverson's low center of gravity dribble, Li Long kept telling himself, guard the left, guard the left. Then he watched helplessly as Iverson drove right and broke past him to the basket. Kid, your defense isn't bad, but do you really think I got the scoring title for nothing? After winning the Onion against Li Long, Iverson looked at him with a hint of pride. Having said that, he turned and left. On the other side, Li Long was utterly frustrated. He now finally understood what it meant to know your opponent would cut to the right, yet still be powerless to stop him. Initially, he thought that with his height and long arms plus a defensive rating of 91 points, he could at least hold him to half. Unfortunately, dreams are rich, but reality is harsh. He only managed to stop 2 shots and Iverson quickly stole the ball back from him. Meanwhile, after leaving the training facility, Iverson began gasping for air. In truth, he had been going all out in those final few plays, yet Li Long still managed to disrupt 2 of them. This made Iverson, who had initially planned to thoroughly dominate Li Long, wisely back off. He feared that if they continued, he might end up embarrassing himself. I didn't expect this kid's defense to be quite good. Ding, congratulations to the host for earning 100 resentment points from Iverson. Just as Li Long was about to ask the system if his defensive rating of 91 points was a sham, he suddenly heard the system's voice. Damn, so he was just faking it. This realization made Li Long understand that Iverson wasn't as relaxed as he seemed. Otherwise, why would he generate resentment points? He was self-aware enough to know he couldn't completely shut down Iverson from the start. He just wanted to show he wasn't a pushover. Now it seemed he had achieved his goal. Meanwhile, back in China. Teacher Zhang, did you hear? In today's Sixers game, did a Chinese player get on the court at the very end? What? Really? Zhang Heli was startled by this, a mix of shock and joy in his voice. That's why I'm asking you, I'm not sure myself. All right, hold on. Let me make a few calls to find out. After hanging up, Zhang Heli quickly called Yang Yi, who was in the United States. What? You don't know? Then go find out immediately. This is huge. If you have to, ask Yao Ming to help inquire with the Sixers players. After ending the call, Zhang Heli opened the NBA website and found the Sixers roster. Hey, there he is. Longley. Li Long. Meanwhile, Yang Yi was also searching online for news about the Sixers and watched a replay of the game. In the end, he confirmed it. He was indeed Chinese. Because he heard Li Long's clear Chinese curse at the end of the game. Damn it, idiot. Actually, back during the Summer League, he had heard rumors of a yellow-skinned player stealing the ball from LeBron James, and that there was even a video. But the video never surfaced, so he dismissed it as fake news and didn't think much of it. Now out of the blue, Li Long had pulled off such a big surprise. One must admit China's efficiency is remarkable. By the next day, Li Long's background was fully uncovered. A recently expelled member of a provincial youth team. Most importantly, he was expelled. Even though he was kicked out, shouldn't he still pay the training fees? As major media outlets rushed to report the second Chinese player in the NBA Basketball Association, officials were also trying to contact Li Long. Did you hear? Another Chinese player has joined the NBA. How could I not know? I heard he joined the Sixers playing alongside Iverson. What's there to be happy about? The latest news is that he only played 2 minutes in garbage time last game with 0 stats across the board. Exactly. He's just a water boy. Why get so excited? Amidst the buzz in China, Billy King was having a great day. Early that morning, he had received several interview requests from Chinese media. See, here they come. Humming a tune, Billy King approved all the interview requests. Now that Chinese media had arrived, Chinese corporations couldn't be far behind, right? Lee, I just got a scam call from your country. But the guy must have a screw loose asking me for your training fees right off the bat. The next day, Burroughs found Li Long, who was playing on the court. He must be crazy. I'm dirt poor right now. Li Long didn't think much of it, assuming it was just a scam call. Lee, great performance in the last game. I can't believe you got to play in your first game. Keep up the hard work. Hearing this from Burroughs, Li Long was speechless. If he didn't know his personality, he'd have punched him. You call playing garbage time and scoring 0 points a great performance? Meanwhile, in an office in China, a young clerk looked at his boss with a hurt expression. Sir, he called you crazy and told you to get lost. Since the boss didn't speak English, he didn't know what Burroughs had said. He had to find a clerk who could translate. But he never expected this outcome. Arrogant, presumptuous. Does he really think he could play in the NBA without the country's training? Ignorant, despicable. The boss fumed angrily. In front of the entire office, if he didn't say something, how could he maintain his authority? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He grabbed his phone and returned to his office. The next day, major Chinese media outlets began reporting. Chinese young star, actually an undrafted player, non-guaranteed contract equivalent to a temp job. Li Long willing to be a temp worker purely for attention. 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists. Sixers put Li Long in during garbage time just to scam Chinese corporations for big contracts. Upon seeing these news, fans on the NBA forum went into an uproar. Damn, so he's just a temp worker. I was so happy for nothing yesterday. Yeah, why not just focus on improving your skills back home instead of going to the US to embarrass yourself with these shady tactics? What else? He's desperate for fame. People like him don't deserve our support. Maybe he's jealous of how much money Yao Ming is making over there. Can he even compare to Yao Ming? Yao was a #1 draft pick. What is he? An undrafted player. You know what that means. Nobody wanted him, huh? Haha, he's a total clown, a disgrace. Hey, don't be so harsh. He's Chinese too. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Besides, didn't Yao Ming score 0 points in his first game too? At this point, a fan with the username LovePJellyNoodles from Mayobe Mountain posted this comment. Hey, what do you mean by that? Do you even watch basketball? Exactly, you're a fake fan. After that, all news about Li Long disappeared. Li Long didn't know that the call he thought was a scam had made him infamous in China. In the media's portrayal, he was a vain, petty man being used by Americans to swindle Chinese money. On November 1st, the 76ers faced the Kings on the road. With Coleman and Big Dog 2 of the 3 #1 picks sidelined due to injuries, Li Long felt a glimmer of hope for today's game. At the time, the Kings were still a powerhouse in the Western Conference. Chris Webber, though in the twilight of his prime, led the team under head coach Rick Adelman, playing the most dazzling basketball in the league. 2 days earlier, they had trounced LeBron James' Cavaliers 106-92 at home. Although James recorded 25.6 rebounds and 9 assists, it marked the first time he experienced a loss where he personally didn't underperform. LeBron might have thought, I still have a veteran leader. How can you say I'm leading the team? In this game, Chris Webber was absent due to injury, but that didn't diminish the Kings' strength. Indeed, from the tip-off, the 76ers were overwhelmed by the Kings. Despite Iverson's relentless drives and perimeter shooting, he couldn't stem the tide of the Kings' ferocious offense. By halftime, the score stood at 5,343, leaving the 76ers trailing by 10 points after 2 quarters. Watching Iverson gasping for breath, Chris Ford had no effective solution. The college tactics he employed seemed utterly incapable of cracking the Kings' attack. As the third quarter commenced, Iverson refused to rest. Seizing the moment when the Kings substituted their starters, he launched a frantic scoring spree to close the gap. Unfortunately, midway through the third quarter, the Kings gradually brought their starters back, and the 76ers' offensive momentum was swiftly suppressed once more. Watching the Kings' seamless teamwork on the court, Li Long couldn't help but feel envious. This wasn't even the peak Kings. The teams from 200,001 or 200,102 were the ones that truly inspired despair. The Kings had already taken a 14-point lead. Chris Ford knew that in all likelihood this game was lost. In the fourth quarter, Iverson was still striving to close the gap, but the 10-point deficit loomed like an unbridgeable chasm impossible to surmount. With 3 minutes left in the game, Chris Ford called a timeout, pulled all his starters, and prepared to concede defeat. Li, get ready to go in. Hearing the assistant coach call his name, Li Long quickly shed his warm-up jacket. He had been waiting for this moment, and now it had finally arrived. The resentment points in his system were still frozen at 520. It wasn't that he didn't want to collect from his teammates, it was simply that he had just joined the team and wasn't familiar with them yet. What if he said something wrong and disrupted team unity? Otherwise, he would have sung Sunshine Rainbow White Pony right in the 76ers locker room. He might get beaten up. So collecting resentment points from opponents on the court was the perfect plan. Trash talk was a form of psychological attack after all. People are born of people, and all people have names. Some are called LeBron, some are called Carmelo. What's your name? Stepping onto the court, Li Long looked at the number 3 player guarding him and asked. At the same time, he secretly thanked his lucky stars that he had chosen jersey number 58, otherwise look how easy it would be to clash numbers. Gerald Wallace didn't quite grasp the meaning of the long speech, but he understood the question about his name at the end. My name is Gerald Wallace. What's yours? What? Gerald Wallace. Li Long was taken aback. Was he mistaken? Was the cat still coming off the bench for the Kings? And he was in such a sorry state, only playing in garbage time. So are you planning to switch teams? Hearing this, Gerald Wallace was also startled. Damn, how did this guy know what he was thinking? He hadn't mentioned it to anyone except his agent. What nonsense. I'm perfectly fine with the Kings. No way. Still, he quickly retorted. This couldn't get back to the Kings front office. If they traded him midway, that would be a real problem. Seeing the other's expression, Li Long knew his guess was correct. He hadn't realized the cat could be so green. Then you need to demand the ball. If you don't showcase yourself, how will any team want you? Li Long, seeing that he had no chance to shine, while just chatting, started to coax the other into demanding the ball. I told you I have no plans to switch teams. What are you talking about? Hearing Li Long's words, Gerald Wallace felt a flicker of temptation. Just then the Kings point guard was stuck with the ball. Gerald Wallace quickly moved to support. Seeing Gerald Wallace get the ball, Li Long's eyes lit up. No need to say more. It was time for your Uncle Li to shine. Then he watched Gerald Wallace whip a pass straight to the inside. Pass. Li Long nearly threw his back out. Was he dealing with a fake cat? Hey, you should take me on Onion. You've got to step up. Li Long said, his voice dripping with anguish as he looked at Gerald Wallace. Am I crazy? Didn't you see the lane was wide open? Li Long was utterly shut down by that one remark. The game ended with the Kings winning 10,089, securing their second straight victory. As for Li Long, he once again posted 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 0 assists. Worst of all, he hadn't collected a single resentment point. Not only did he fail to gather any, but he also ended up thoroughly frustrated himself. Meanwhile, back in China, on the fan hub known as the NBA Tieba, numerous fans were cheering for Yao Ming's performance from the previous day. Yesterday, the Rockets had their season opener. Yao Ming played only 20 minutes, but still scored 19 points, grabbed 3 rebounds, and dished out 2 assists. The Rockets should build around Yao. With that scoring efficiency, if he played 40 minutes, he'd get 38 points. Exactly. That Kato is clearly not up to par. All he does is rebound, and in 37 minutes, he only scored 10 points. That's right. Yao is getting better and better, and he has a good relationship with Stevie franchise. They can be the inside-outside core, another Shaquan-Kobe combo. Exactly, and they won't have the internal strife the Lakers had. Hey, the 76ers game is over. Do you guys know how many points that Li Long guy scored? Really? That Li Long guy scored? You're kidding. He wants to score. Haha, you guys are true fans. Li Long played 3 minutes and got all zeros. Huh. See, I knew he couldn't score. He can't even score in garbage time. He might as well come back. He's just embarrassing us Chinese. Forget it, let's not talk about him anymore. It's bringing down our standards. Li Long was unaware that this game had caused him to vanish from everyone's sight. Even the fans who had harbored a sliver of hope for him had now faced reality. One person might slander you, but when everyone thinks the same, it means you truly have a problem. If Li Long knew what the fans were thinking, he would have objected. The eyes of the masses are not always discerning, as sometimes they can be manipulated. On November 2nd, the 76ers faced the Warriors in a back-to-back challenge. Last night, they flew overnight to Golden State. The Warriors, a bottom-tier team in the West with only 7 healthy players available, were a game Chris Ford was determined to win. Moreover, Coleman had returned from injury, significantly bolstering the forward line. From the tip-off, Iverson entered his killer mode, repeatedly driving to the basket for fouls and combining drives with passes, helping the 76ers in the first quarter with a 2,725 lead. However, perhaps due to the exhaustion from yesterday's game, the 76ers fell behind at the start of the second quarter, especially the Warriors' number 34, Mike Dunleavy, who was on fire. In the first half alone, he scored 20 points and grabbed 6 rebounds, leading the Warriors to a 3,022nd quarter. At halftime, the Warriors led 5,547 ahead of the 76ers by 8 points. "Coach, let me give it a try," Iverson suddenly said to Chris Ford during halftime. Seeing that neither John Salmons nor Aaron McKee could stop Mike Dunleavy, he grew anxious. For some reason, he suddenly recalled the unknown duel with Lee Long that night. That kid managed to defend him so well, there was no way he couldn't handle a Dunleavy. Hearing Iverson's words, Chris Ford felt dizzy. Put Lee Long in. For what? Hadn't he seen Dunleavy's explosive performance tonight? A rookie going in would just be asking for punishment. Yet seeing the firm determination in Iverson's eyes, Chris Ford swallowed the words of refusal he was about to say. After all, as the new head coach, he was reluctant to clash with the team's star. Besides, he had no better solution now. Forget it, treat a dead horse as if it were alive. If it didn't work, he could always pull Lee Long out. With that in mind, his expression turned serious. "Lee, you're on in the second half. Your task is to guard number 34, Dunleavy." Hearing this, Lee Long jolted to his feet, then thumped his chest. "Don't worry, coach. Leave number 34 to me. He'll get the job done." After so long, Lee Long had finally seized this opportunity. As soon as number 34 crossed half-court, Lee Long stuck to him like glue. "So you're Dunleavy, huh? A Chinese guy?" From Yao's hometown, Dunleavy muscled against Lee Long as he moved toward the three-point line. Surprised that the opponent knew Yao Ming, Lee Long was puzzled. Could he be a friend of Yao's? In that case, I'd better go easy on him, or it'll be awkward later. "You know our country's Yao?" Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining 200 resentment points from Dunleavy. What the hell? Could he be Yao's enemy? But that doesn't add up. They don't even play the same position. Just because I'm Chinese, he's this hostile. Could it be? Little did he know, as the second overall pick in the 2002 draft, Dunleavy had always resented the treatment Yao Ming received. Why should everyone talk about Yao and Stoudemire when mentioning the 2002 rookies? He couldn't beat Stoudemire, but he sure as hell thought he was better than Yao. So upon hearing Lee Long was Chinese, he resolved to teach this Chinese kid a lesson. "Hey man, I don't really know Yao like that. But tell me, who's your girlfriend? I've never heard of him being in a scandal." Seeing Dunleavy gritting his teeth, Lee Long thought he had it figured out, and his gossipy curiosity flared. "Yao Ming, you sly dog. Who would have thought you'd stray from the straight and narrow?" "Bullshit. You little punk, your girlfriend's the one in a scandal." Enraged by Lee Long's words, Dunleavy shoved him away and signaled for the ball from the point guard. Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining 300 resentment points from Dunleavy. I guessed wrong. I knew Yao wasn't that kind of guy." Hearing Dunleavy's retort, Lee Long realized his mistake. But there was no time to dwell on it. Seeing Dunleavy with the ball, he quickly closed in. This was the first player in 3 games who actively called for the ball, without Lee Long having to remind him. For that alone, he deserved a special reward. A reward of getting his steal snatched. Dunleavy smirked as Lee Long approached. A rookie is just a rookie. One crossover and head blow past him, leaving nothing but open court ahead. But just as he was about to change direction, a sudden force slammed into him. Holy crap, what did this kid eat? As Dunleavy steadied himself, he fumbled the ball, only to find it in Lee Long's hands. Seeing Lee Long snatch the ball, Iverson quickly came to support, well aware of the kid's ball handling skills. Better not let it get stolen back. Realizing the ball was already with Iverson and there was no chance of a steal, Dunleavy quickly raised his hand. My bad, I got careless. Didn't see it coming." As Lee Long sprinted down court with Iverson, he nearly tripped over his own feet at Dunleavy's words. "Nice one, kid." After Iverson scored on the fast break, he made a point to slap Lee Long's rear on the way back. The gesture startled Lee Long. "Damn, we're both men. What are you doing?" Thinking this, his hand instinctively reached for Iverson's cornrows. "Hey kid, what are you doing? Don't touch my dreads." At this, Lee Long quickly withdrew his hand, fuming inside. "So it's okay for you to slap my butt, but I can't touch your hair." Could Iverson also be a time traveler from the future, aware of the tale where the Pampas eagle was plucked into a vulture? Just then the Warriors pushed forward. Seeing this, Lee Long had no time to overthink and latched onto Dunleavy again. "Buddy, tell me honestly, do you know the 5-whip strike?" Dunleavy stared at Lee Long in utter confusion. 5-whip strike? What the hell is that? Seeing his bewildered expression, Lee Long knew he was overthinking it. Clearly the guy hadn't studied Hunyuan Tai Chi. Annoyed by Lee Long's endless chatter, Dunleavy snapped. "Ball." He shoved Lee Long aside and grabbed the pass. Admittedly, the referees were lenient back then. 15 years later, a shove like that would have earned Lee Long a chance to demonstrate a move. But first, 3.5 spins in midair followed by a free fall. As for why he didn't now, Li Long was afraid he'd crack the refs up so bad they'd die laughing then slap him with a technical. Hey man, that's not very sporting of you. Pushing people. Lucky for you, Uncle Lee's not one to hold a grudge. Seeing Dunleavy with the ball again, Li Long wasted no time closing in quickly while launching a relentless verbal assault. Kid, I'm a man, not a queer, can you keep your distance? Seeing Li Long pressing closer and closer, Dunleavy, unable to find any space, had to dribble backward. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 resentment points from Mike Dunleavy. Li Long was astonished inwardly. This guy was truly a goldmine of resentment, having contributed 700 points in just a minute. No, he had to milk him dry. Bro, I'm not either, but the ball's in your hands. How about I teach you the 5-whip technique? 5-whip technique. Wasn't that some kind of Chinese martial art? Just as Dunleavy was pondering how to politely accept, he saw Li Long flailing his hands wildly in front of him like he was having a seizure. 1 whip, 2 whips, 3 whips, 4 whips. Hey look, no need for the 5th whip, the ball's mine. Young man, you need to mind your own business. Having snatched the ball, Li Long immediately tossed it to Iverson. On the other side, Iverson, who had been waiting, ran toward him as soon as he saw Li Long get the ball. On the 76ers bench, Chris Ford stared at Li Long in astonishment. He never expected Li Long's defense to be so good, stealing the ball from Dunleavy twice in just 1 minute. If he had known that, he would have put Li Long in much earlier. Coach, look, Lee's defensive fundamentals are solid, whether it's his defensive stance or the timing of his steals. The assistant coach pointed at Li Long as he spoke. Yeah, I didn't expect this young man to have hidden this skill from me. If I'd known he was this good on defense, I'd have put him in long ago. Iverson scored on a layup and was ecstatic. He hadn't expected Li Long to have such an effect, stealing the ball twice in under a minute, which made him eager to get in on the action. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 resentment points from Mike Dunleavy. Kid, don't get cocky. I was careless before, but I won't let you steal from me again. As the Warriors prepared for their next attack, Dunleavy spoke with a grim expression. By now he knew Li Long's defense was formidable and had dropped his earlier dismissiveness. If he let this rookie steal from him again, he would lose all face. However, after 2 consecutive steals, the Warriors' point guard decided not to pass him the ball this time. Bro, what's the use of all that big talk? Ask for the ball. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 resentment points from Mike Dunleavy. Hearing Li Long's words, Dunleavy's expression changed. He thought, if you hadn't stolen the ball from me twice, my teammates would still be passing to me. However, today's Warriors relied entirely on Dunleavy's performance. Without his playmaking this time, they could only settle for a rushed shot to end the possession. On the 76ers offense, Iverson's touch was also warmed up by the previous 2 shots. He drove and hit a floater, continuing the scoring run. Seeing the 76ers close the gap by 6 points, the Warriors quickly called a timeout. Mike, be careful. Don't let that undrafted rookie shut you down. The Warriors coach had looked up Li Long's background and was surprised to find he was this year's undrafted player. If he had known there was someone like this among the undrafted players, he would have recommended the team sign him. Now he only had 7 players available. But today's game still hinged on Dunleavy's performance. If Li Long truly neutralized him, the Warriors would be done for. Don't worry, coach. They'll be careful from now on. Dunleavy, feeling he was in top form, nodded solemnly. The game resumed, and Dunleavy got the ball again. Your coach still dares to let you handle the ball. Li Long continued his taunts as he watched Dunleavy protect the ball cautiously. But this time he miscalculated. Dunleavy, after all, had been playing for a year and had decent mental fortitude. Ignoring Li Long's words, he waved for his big man to come out and set a screen. At that moment, Li Long caught a glimpse of Iverson sneaking closer from the corner of his eye. In an instant, Li Long closed in on Dunleavy from the left. Dunleavy, who was waiting for his center to come out for the pick, felt a surge of joy when he saw Li Long pressuring him again. Using the same trick twice on me. You must think too little of me. Thinking this, Dunleavy acted quickly, pivoting backward to drive past Li Long on the right. Slap. He managed to get past Li Long's defense, but couldn't avoid Iverson's sneak attack. Iverson stole the ball, and without waiting for anyone to react, pushed the fast break. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 resentment points from Mike Dunleavy. After that basket, the 76ers were only down by 1 possession, and more importantly, the momentum had completely shifted in their favor. In the following plays, Dunleavy sped up his passes and tightened his ball control, but he could no longer score as easily as he had in the first half. By the end of the third quarter, under Li Long's relentless, tenacious defense, Dunleavy had made only 1 of 6 shots, scoring just 2 points while committing 4 turnovers. The 76ers also posted a 3,420 score in that quarter, taking a 4-point lead. Are you a mad dog? At the start of the fourth quarter, after having his shot disrupted by Li Long once again, Dunleavy finally snapped, cursing at him. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 resentment points from Mike Dunleavy. Given his hot hand today, he should have had a career-defining game, but instead a rookie had ruined it. Worse still, that rookie was Chinese. By now, Li Long had no energy left to respond to Dunleavy. After playing a solid 1.5 quarters, he was completely exhausted. He had always thought his stamina was decent, but he now realized that the intensity of the NBA and the provincial youth team games were worlds apart. Still, with only half a quarter left, he had to grit his teeth and push through. Fortunately, Dunleavy was now flustered and impatient, missing even the open shots he got. In the end, the 76ers beat the Warriors 104-96. After scoring 20 points in the first half, Dunleavy managed only 5 in the second. Yeah, congratulations on your game-high 28 points. Tonight you completed a 10-point comeback. How did you manage that? Right after the game ended, Iverson was stopped by the media. Hearing the question, he beamed with joy, happy that the team had won and he had scored the most points. Then he turned and scanned the court, spotting Lee Long heading to the locker room. He pushed through the crowd and pulled Lee Long over. How did we turn the game around? It was this guy? He might have scored 1.2 points or maybe none at all, but anyone who watched the game knows he was the real hero of our comeback. Lee Long was taken aback when Iverson credited him for the comeback victory. In this game, he played 24 minutes, recording only 1 rebound and 2 steals. AI is too modest. Without his scoring, we never could have turned the game around. Aware of the need to share the spotlight in front of the media, he made a brief remark before heading back to the locker room. He knew the reporters were there for Iverson, and if he tried to steal the show, it would only breed resentment. Besides, he was eager to return and redeem his resentment points. This match had been a huge harvest for him. Meanwhile, back in China on the NBA Tiaba forum, Yao played really well today, dominating Gasol in the paint. Yeah, if Francis hadn't shot so poorly, the Rockets would have beaten the Grizzlies. 19 points and 10 boards, an easy double-double. On November 2nd, the Rockets hosted the Grizzlies at home. Yao Ming played 36 minutes, putting up 19 points and 10 rebounds, while his matchup Pau Gasol managed only 12 points and 2 boards. Unfortunately, the Rockets still lost the game 7,179. Did you hear that Lee Long from the Sixers played 24 minutes in this game? Amid the praise for Yao's performance, a post about Lee Long suddenly appeared. No way is that true. Fake news. Did they pay for that? Man, the Sixers are really going all out. Haha, he played, but over 2 quarters, he only got 1 rebound and 2 steals. It didn't take long for netizens to dig up the Sixers news within minutes. What a scrub. And he had the nerve to play 2 quarters. The coach must be trying to tap into the Chinese market. Lee Long with 1 rebound and 2 steals, smirking, already has the coach's trust. What do you know? Did you even watch the game? Lee Long was the key to the Sixers' comeback. Even Iverson said he was the hero. At that moment, the fan with the username Malbition, who loves P. Jelly, once again defended Lee Long. Dude, are you Lee Long's all to count? Or did you get paid? How much per post, buddy? Hook me up. Iverson is just playing along to help the team tap into the Chinese market, and you actually believe that? Exactly. Meanwhile, Lee Long had already returned to the hotel. They would stay here for the night before heading to Portland to face the Trailblazers. Judging by the Sixers' schedule, they clearly weren't a priority for the league. But none of that concerned Lee Long. Right now, he was agonizing over whether to allocate his attribute points to defense or stamina. With the points from this game and what he had left, he now had 20 resentment points, enough to exchange for 2 attribute points. Originally, he planned to max out defense at 100 before considering anything else. But in the final moments of the last game, he felt his stamina running out. Now he was torn. Maybe he should boost stamina first, since his defense at 91 was already adequate. In the end, he chose to invest in defense. His stamina stat of 57 seemed hopeless, and as a rookie, he wouldn't get much playing time anyway. Head max out defense first and worry about the rest later. On November 4th, Lee Long followed the Sixers to Portland. Long, don't rush. The coach will call your number when it's time. And the Blazers are a bunch of thugs, so don't get into any trouble out there. The game officially began. Lee Long had thought had earned Chris Ford's trust after the last game. But when the second quarter rotations came, his name still wasn't called. Watching Lee Long fidget restlessly, Eric Snow offered some advice. He understood the coach's reasoning. Lee Long was a rookie, and giving him more minutes too quickly would upset the veterans. Especially Big Dog Robinson, who had already complained plenty during the 4th quarter of the last game. But that game was an exception. Everyone knew the Sixers needed Lee Long to guard the rampaging Dunleavy. But not every game had such special circumstances. Tonight, Iverson was on fire. In the first half, the Sixers dominated the Blazers and led by 9 points at halftime. Long, get ready. At the start of the 3rd quarter, both teams sent in their benches, and Chris Ford called Lee Long's name. Rookie, you're guarding me. Lee Long immediately stepped up to Bonzi Wells. Yeah, are you Zach Randolph's little brother? Lee Long knew exactly who Bonzi Wells was, but he said it deliberately to rile him up and earn some resentment points. As expected, Wells got furious. I'm not that loser's brother. Your whole family are losers. Ding. Congratulations, host. You've earned 100 resentment points from Bonzi Wells. Kid, you're asking for it. With that, Wells barreled into Lee Long, driving toward the basket. Caught off guard, Li Long was pushed back. He had thought LeBron James had the strongest drives, but he never expected Bonzi Wells to be even more ferocious. He didn't realize he had only faced a rookie LeBron, while Bonzi Wells was in his prime relying on his raw power. Using his strength, Wells broke through Li Long's defense, thinking the kid was nothing special. The coach had warned him to be careful, but what a joke. But just as he went up for the shot, a gust of wind came from behind. Smack! Li Long soared and swatted the ball away. Bonzi Wells was strong, but not quick. Underestimating Li Long, he never expected to get chased down and blocked. Bonzi, watch out. Didn't I just tell you? From the Blazers bench, the head coach's roar rang out. Ding. Congratulations, host. You've earned 200 resentment points from Bonzi Wells. Kid, you're dead meat. I Bonzi Wells swear it. Not even Jesus can save you. Clearly, he blamed Li Long for the coach's scolding. When he got the ball again, he muttered to Li Long over his shoulder. We don't believe in Jesus in China. Want me to pray to the Jade Emperor for you? This time Li Long learned his lesson. He planted his feet firmly and held his ground against Wells. Damn, this kid is solid. Bonzi tried several times, but couldn't budge, Li Long growing more frustrated. As a substitute, this was supposed to be his time to rack up stats. But the Sixers had sent in this weirdo. With time running out, Wells had no choice but to pass to a teammate. After 3 minutes of the third quarter, the Sixers had outscored the Blazers 84. Bonzi Wells hadn't scored a single point. As the lead grew, the Blazers called a timeout and sent their starters back in. Chris Ford followed suit, pulling his bench for the starters. Long, don't be down. You at least got 3 minutes. I'm still stuck on the bench. Kyle Korver tried to console him as Li Long sat down looking dejected. Korver was even more frustrated. Li Long, an undrafted player, was already in the rotation, while he, a second-round pick, was rotting on the bench. Hearing this, Li Long realized he was being too impatient. Don't worry, you'll make the All-Star game one day. Knowing Korver was down, he casually tried to cheer him up. Ding. Congratulations, host. You've earned 100 resentment points from Kyle Korver. He had just revealed a prophecy, so why was he getting resentment points? Seeing Korver's bitter glare, he realized Korver thought he was mocking him. Indeed, an All-Star game was something Korver never even dreamed of. Little did he know that in a decade or so, if you could shoot threes well enough, you'd get a big contract and a spot in the All-Star game. Thinking about it, Li Long didn't know how to explain. The third quarter ended with both teams tied at 19 and the Sixers still led by 9. Typically, the fourth quarter would start with the bench units. But the Blazers, desperate to catch up, kept their starters in. Seeing that the Sixers decided, fine, if you're not resting, neither are we, and kept their starters on the floor. With 3 minutes left, the Blazers still hadn't closed the gap, or in fact, the Sixers had extended their lead by 2. Chris Ford saw that Big Dog was exhausted and sent Li Long in to replace him. By then, the Blazers had given up on a comeback. They were just trying to pad their stats before the game ended, hoping for better contracts when they switched teams. Rashid pass. Rasheed Wallace got the ball and was about to post up Coleman when he heard Bonzi Wells calling for it on the perimeter. But Rasheed wasn't about to listen to him. Who did he think he was? The team star. Besides, with that Chinese kid glued to him, even if he got the ball, could he score? Seeing that Rasheed had no intention of passing, Bonzi Wells decided to crash the boards himself. He had only 13 points so far and wanted to reach 20 before the final buzzer. Li Long followed Bonzi into the paint. Just then, Rasheed shook off Coleman and went for a low layup. Smack! In the blink of an eye, Li Long abandoned Wells and swatted the ball out of bounds. What the hell are you doing in the paint? Li Long was about to return to guarding Wells when he heard Rasheed Wallace cursing. Damn, we're on opposing teams. Isn't it my job to block you? As he turned to confront him, he saw Bonzi Wells shouting angrily at Rasheed. You want pass me the ball, so I have to grab the rebound myself. What's wrong with that? He wasn't cursing at me. Wait, is he yelling at his own teammate? You dare talk back? If you hadn't led that kid in here, I would have scored easily. Rasheed Wallace grew even angrier when Bonzi talked back. Did he forget who ran the show in the Portland jail? As the two squared off, Zach Randolph quickly grabbed Bonzi Wells. Li Long saw that Bonzi was restrained, but Rasheed wasn't. As a gentleman from a great civilized nation, he figured he should lend a hand. With that thought, he grabbed hold of Rasheed Wallace. Damn it, you trying to sucker punch me? Rasheed was about to use the grab as an excuse to back down, but when he turned and saw it was the Chinese kid from the Sixers, he assumed Li Long was trying to attack him in the chaos. He yelled and threw a punch at Li Long. Damn it, are you a dog? Biting anyone who gets close. Startled by the sudden punch, Li Long's instincts kicked in. He dodged back, then stepped forward and drove a short punch into Rasheed's stomach. Ugh! With a single blow, Rasheed collapsed to the floor, clutching his stomach. Ref! 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 The startled officials blew their whistles. Even the referee was baffled by the Blazers. He had seen fights between opponents, but this was the first time he witnessed teammates brawling during a game. He thought Bonzi was already restrained, so the situation was under control. But in a flash, Rasheed was fighting with a Sixers player. Well, not really a fight. He just got knocked out with one punch. Hey ref, I was just trying to break it up. Why am I getting ejected? With the referees signal, Bonzi Wells, Rashid Wallace, and Li Long each got a technical foul and were ejected. Li Long panicked. He grabbed the referee to explain, breaking it up by knocking the fighter down. All right, get off the court. Seeing the referee's dark expression, Iverson quickly pulled Li Long away. He had been enjoying the drama, had seen teammates argue before, but never come to blows during a game. Who knew that while he was watching the show, his own teammate would become part of it? He was both exasperated and amused. You should have just kept watching instead of getting involved. Still, he gained a new respect for Li Long's fighting ability. He had thought Li Long's skills were just flashy, after all had seen karate board breaking before. But this time a brute like Rashid was taken down with a single punch. AI, can you believe this? I was just trying to break it up. As Iverson led him off the court, Li Long kept complaining. Enough, it was their internal beef. Why did you have to stick your nose in? Iverson laughed despite himself. Coach, I swear I was just trying to stop the fight. Back on the bench facing Chris Ford's dark glare, Li Long tried to defend himself weakly. Seeing the coach ignore him, Li Long didn't dare linger and headed straight for the locker room. Meanwhile, after being carried to the locker room, Rashid Wallace finally caught his breath. He had barely held back from throwing up on the court, but now he was even angrier. He had been knocked down by a rookie with a single punch. How could he, Rashid, ever live this down? Fuming, he kicked a stool. Ow. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 1000 resentment points from Rashid Wallace. With a single resentment point exceeding 1000, you will receive a reward draw. Congratulations, host. You have acquired the Emperor's Kidney, increasing your base stamina to 100. For every target you conquer, you gain 1 stamina point with no upper limit. Just as Li Long was preparing to celebrate, the changing room door swung open. The match had ended. Li, you were amazing. With a single punch, you knocked Rashid down. When will you teach us martial arts? Before Li Long could inquire about the match results, Greg Buckner excitedly asked. In the past, when Li Long was asked to teach martial arts, everyone paid little attention. Now that they had witnessed Li Long's attacking power firsthand, who wouldn't yearn for it? What's wrong? Aren't you all going to shower? At that moment, the head coach walked in, seeing everyone gathered around Li Long, and sternly asked. Upon hearing this, everyone scattered like birds and beasts. After showering, they hurriedly returned to Philadelphia by plane overnight. The day after tomorrow, they were to face the visiting Huangfeng team at home. However, Li Long would definitely not be able to play in this match. No matter the reason, he had fought on the court and would likely face suspension. Whether it would be 1 game or 2 would depend on the league's notification. Fortunately, at this time, penalties for on-court fights were not too severe. Once back home, Li Long couldn't contain his joy and burst into laughter. I hit the jackpot. Truly hit the jackpot. Li Long never expected that knocking down Rashid with just 1 punch would yield such great rewards. 10,000 resentment points equated to 10 attribute points, not to mention, he also obtained the Emperor's Kidney. From now on, I will dominate the court. Thinking this, he remembered that the reason he couldn't play wasn't due to stamina issues. Nevertheless, it's better to be prepared, or at least he wouldn't need to invest points in stamina anymore. With that thought, he eagerly opened the attributes panel, ready to carefully consider what to invest in. Li Long, age 18, height 200 centimeters, weight 110 kilograms. Wingspan 219 centimeters, hand width 31 centimeter. Standing reach 280 centimeters, a vertical jump 82 centimeters, running jump 102 centimeters, running reach 382 centimeters. Strength 84, upper body strength 83, lower body strength 85, explosiveness 94, core strength 91. Speed 85, straight line speed 88, lateral movement 82. Jumping 88. Stamina 100. Injury tendency 70, for the higher the value, the less prone to injury. Offensive attributes: breakthrough 65, ball control 65, breakthrough layup 55, breakthrough dunk 62. Shooting 47, close range shooting 68, mid-range shooting 54, long-range shooting 41, super long-range shooting 6, free throw 65. Passing 49, passing vision 41, passing skills 57. Defensive attributes: rebounds 74, offensive rebounds 72, defensive rebounds 76. Blocks 81, steals 85, defense 87, unknown defense 93, help defense 82. Special skills: Mad Dog Bite, Emperor's Kidney. Resentment points 10320. Looking at his resentment points, Li Long disregarded everything else and first raised his unknown defense to 100. After that, looking at the remaining 3 attribute points, he hesitated for a moment and decided to add them to explosiveness. After all, this attribute was the closest to 100, he would find an opportunity to raise it to 100 first. Once he finished, Li Long fell into a peaceful slumber, while across the ocean waves were stirred up. Fighting is simply tarnishing the nation's reputation. Ban him completely, ban him. Early in the morning, the leader received news about Li Long's fight in the NBA. This finally provided the leader who had always wanted to deal with Li Long with an opportunity. With a command from the leader, the name Li Long was completely blacked out. The vast fan base in Huagua could only receive updates from Yao Ming. There was not a single piece of news about Li Long, just like a complete blackout. The next day, Li Long received a call from the head coach informing him that he had been suspended for one game. For the next match, he could only sit in the stands and watch. On November 6th, the 76ers faced Huangfeng at home. Li Long watched the entire match from the stands. The final score was 1-0-6-9-9. After an overtime, the 76ers ultimately lost by 7 points. It must be said that Baron Davis, as the first generation of the bearded ones, truly played impressively this time. No wonder he could enter the All-Star game this season. In this match, he efficiently scored 37 points, grabbed 5 rebounds, and provided 6 assists, leading Huangfeng to victory over the 76ers. On November 8th, Li Long followed the 76ers to Chicago. Today, he was set to challenge the Bulls as visitors. Glancing at the statue of the old legend outside the venue, Li Long secretly vowed, "What the chosen one cannot achieve, I will rely on my system to accomplish, as relying solely on media hype will not catch up to the old legend." At 8 p.m. the game officially began, and Li Long took his usual seat on the bench. Today, Allen Iverson came with a fiery spirit, especially after being defeated by Huangfeng in the previous overtime match. At the start, the Bulls were pressed down and rubbed against the ground. At the end of the first quarter, the 76ers led by 8 points with a score of 3-2-4. Li, get ready to go in. At the start of the second quarter, head coach Chris Ford sent Li Long onto the court. 3 minutes later, Li Long was taken off the court again. It turned out that during the 3 minutes, he was on both teams, scored 0 points. It wasn't because his defense was too strong. Rather, both teams' substitutes were performing poorly, resulting in a complete scoreless 3 minutes. The Bulls head coach, seeing this, couldn't sit still. They were still trailing by 8 points. Chris Ford noticed that the opposing team had substituted in their starters, and with a wave of his hand, he sent his starters onto the court. Only when the fourth quarter began with the 76ers leading by 18 points was Li Long sent back onto the court. After playing 2 possessions, Li Long realized he was practicing shuttle runs again. During another Bulls attack, Li Long directly stood in front of Kirk Hinrich. Compared to Li Long, Hinrich, as this year's 7th overall pick, was clearly receiving more attention. Under these circumstances, where the outcome was already determined, all the Bulls' ball control was in his hands. Whether to shoot or pass was entirely up to him. Hinrich at this point also wore a confused expression. Why was a small forward sent to defend him? Thinking of this, he had a sudden brainwave. Having a small forward guard him was a mismatch, wasn't it? While pondering, he kept dribbling and made a crossover to break into the paint. Li Long was also taken aback. Wow, this kid has no respect for the game. I haven't even started trash talking, and you're already launching a surprise attack. Seeing this, Li Long didn't bother with trash talk anymore and hurriedly chased after him. Hinrich took just 2 steps to break into the paint, preparing to lay up. Suddenly, he spotted Li Long chasing after him. If he attempted to lay up, now there was a chance Li Long would block him. Thinking of Li Long's silly expression from earlier, he decided to toy with his opponent a little. To be fair, Hinrich's devilish footwork was indeed impressive. He first feigned a layup, then executed a swift reverse pivot. Li Long, fully committed to blocking the shot, was completely fooled by the move. Just as he thought he had made a mistake, expecting Hinrich to score an easy 2 points with a floater. Unexpectedly, Hinrich spun again. Slide like the devil's dance. Under Li Long's astonished gaze, Hinrich, dizzy and disoriented, leaped and tossed the ball out of bounds. Uffed. Both teams on the court burst into laughter. Li Long's face darkened with embarrassment. Had he really been fooled by such a clumsy move? This was going to be a black mark on his record whenever Hinrich's past blunders were mentioned. After the laughter subsided, the 76ers began their offense. Li Long, aware of his limitations, simply stood beyond the 3-point line to draw defenders. He lacked defensive prowess, and the 76ers wouldn't pass him the ball anyway. But sometimes luck strikes when you least expect it. As he watched Korver take a shot and prepared to retreat on defense, the rebound unexpectedly flew toward him. Seeing this gift from heaven, Li Long seized it without hesitation, grabbing the board and driving to the basket. However, the Bulls were not about to let Li Long pass easily. With his poor dribbling skills, Li Long grew anxious upon encountering resistance and immediately picked up the ball to take 3 steps. If Giannis could take 3 steps from beyond the arc, surely he could do it from inside the line. But then Li Long was swallowed by a sea of defenders. Beep. Though he didn't complete the shot, Li Long earned 2 free throws. Taking a deep breath, he made one of 2, finally breaking his scoring drought. Coach, let Long guard that guy. As the game resumed, Li Long naturally found himself matched up against Hinrich. Coach Chris Ford was about to send him back to his position, but Iverson spoke up. They're from the same draft class, and Long went undrafted. He wants to test the mettle of the 7th pick. It's only natural. Iverson assumed Li Long was jealous of Hinrich's selection. Little did he know Li Long simply wanted to guard the ball handler for a chance to shine. Dude, your footwork is weak. You should learn from Hakeem. Li Long was unaware that Hakeem's training camp hadn't started yet. Henrik's face darkened at the mention of the earlier incident. Ding. Congratulations, host, for acquiring 100 resentment points from Henrich. Hearing the system notification, Li Long felt a surge of joy. Man, most people spin their opponents dizzy, but you managed to spin yourself. Li Long's words infuriated Henrich. At least I'm better than an undrafted player like you. Ordinarily, Henrich wouldn't have bothered with Li Long, but since Li Long was guarding him, it meant there was an opportunity at the small forward position. However, Li Long's venomous tongue provoked even the mild-mannered Henrich into anger. He vowed to beat Li Long unionon. This played right into Li Long's hands. Li Long pressed closer while Henrich shuffled left and right, but couldn't break free from the defense. With time running out, Henrich had no choice but to pass the ball. In the end, under Li Long's defense, Henrich failed to score a single point or assist in the final quarter. The 76ers triumphed over the Bulls 1-0-6-8-5, with Li Long recording 1 point and 1 rebound. On November 10th, the 76ers hosted the Eastern Conference leading Pacers. The Pacers were a formidable force this season, with Reggie Miller, who scored 8 points in 8.9 seconds at shooting guard, Ron Artest pre-name change at small forward, and Jermaine O'Neal at center. This lineup was a veritable meat grinder. As expected, the 76ers fell behind from the start. Aside from Iverson, no one on the team could score effectively. The first quarter ended with the Pacers leading 2,615. Long you're in. Fortunately, Chris Ford sent Li Long into the game. Hearing the coach's voice, Li Long leaped to his feet. He had been watching from the bench for an entire quarter. Would you believe that it was Ron Artest leading the Pacers to a lead? Who the hell said this guy was just a defensive player? He's got shooting, defense, drives, passes, rebounds. Everything you could ask for. He's a complete small forward. But that was exactly why Li Long was excited. Playing through garbage time would never make anyone remember him. If he could lock down Artest today, he would truly have a foothold. Kid, you've got some solid build there. Hope you're not all show. At the start of the second quarter, Artest was leading the Pacers' second unit. As soon as he came on the court and saw Li Long guarding him, he spoke up. TCH, you think him the old bully? Hearing Li Long's retort, Artest chuckled. In 2001, the old bully, Michael Jordan, was planning a comeback with the Wizards and wanted to tune up against some young players. He found Artest, who was still with the Bulls back then. Good heavens, whether it was because the old bully pushed him too far, Artest ended up breaking 3 of Jordan's ribs. Kid, don't just run your mouth. Let me see what you've got with your hands. As he spoke, Artest shouldered Li Long to call for the ball. Damn, did this guy mean hands literally. Just moments ago, Artest had thrown a sneaky elbow at Li Long during his turn. Alright, if it's a basketball game, I might not be the best, but if it's a fight, I'm not backing down. Forget you let Ben Wallace try. Thinking this, Li Long pressed tightly against Artest, who had just received the ball. Artest was feeling pleased. Rookie, let me show you what the NBA is all about. Ouch, damn. Just then he felt a sudden pain in his lower back, and his precious little Artest gave a startled twitch. Li Long, using his body to block the referee's view, had delivered a small inch punch to Artest's waist while pressing in close. Seeing Artest flustered, Li Long quickly swiped the ball away. Concerned about his little Artest forgot about the lost ball and spun around to glare at Li Long. Li Long tossed the ball to Allen Iverson and was about to follow the play when he saw Artest staring at him with fury. Kid, what kind of trick did you use? Will it affect my little Artest? To be honest, Artest was a bit scared. He suddenly remembered that Li Long was Chinese. If Li Long had ruined his little Artest, life wouldn't be worth living. You gave me an elbow, I gave you a punch. Fair is fair, right? Don't worry, it won't affect your future life. Li Long replied with an innocent look. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 resentment points from Ron Artest. Seeing Li Long like that, Artest relaxed. But he dared not try any dirty tricks on Li Long again. After Iverson scored, it was the Pacers' turn to attack. This time, Artest abandoned his dirty tricks, directly establishing his position and signaling for the ball, determined to exact revenge on Li Long. Seeing Artest like this, Li Long knew he intended to force a play. He immediately pressed tight against Artest, planting his feet firmly, as if rooted to the ground, holding his ground tenaciously. Upon receiving the ball, Artest began backing down Li Long inside the three-point line. 1 push, 2 pushes, 3. Wait, why didn't he budge? Artest rammed into him 3 times with force, yet remained exactly where he was. Damn, this defied logic. Wasn't LeBron James supposed to be the strongest rookie in this draft class? He had faced the King James before just last game and hadn't encountered such a movability. Seeing the back down was ineffective, Artest decided to use footwork to shake off Li Long. A left dribble, a right jab step, and finally Artest chose to punish Li Long with a pass. He whipped the ball back to his team's backup point guard. Then, it was stolen by Iverson again, leading to another fast break. Subsequently, Arteist attempted 2 more plays, but still couldn't escape Li Long's defense, while the 76ers continued to score consecutively. This finally made the Pacers' head coach restless, and he promptly brought the starters back in. It was worth noting that players in this era had to be durable. Playing over 40 minutes a game was a common occurrence. Not like the future Kawhi Leonard, a true playoff superstar. Seeing the Pacers substitute in their starters, the 76ers also brought their main lineup back onto the court. However, Chris Ford chose to keep Li Long on the floor. He had just witnessed Li Long's defense against Arteist. Without it, the 76ers couldn't have cut the deficit by 6 consecutive points. Yet upon hearing this decision, Glenn Robinson's face darkened instantly. Admittedly, the Pacers starters were indeed formidable. The 76ers interior simply couldn't contain Jermaine O'Neal's dominance, and moreover, Li Long's double-teaming on O'Neal allowed Arteist to find his rhythm again. However, Iverson's shooting touch had also ignited, enabling him to counter the Pacers' scores. Li Long played the entire second quarter, helping the 76ers achieve a 2,617 advantage in that period. At halftime, the 76ers trailed by only 2 points. For the third quarter, Chris Ford substituted Robinson back in, after all, as the team's second star. Keeping him on the bench for too long would harm team chemistry. This time, however, Robinson seemed spurred on by Li Long showing effort on defense and making contributions on offense as well. Seeing the starters performing so well, Chris Ford kept them on the court for the fourth quarter. However, this time they hit a wall. For 3 full minutes, the 76ers failed to score a single point, watching helplessly as the Pacers turned a 5-point deficit into a 5-point lead. In the ensuing game, the Pacers continued to widen the gap. Although the 76ers managed to score sporadically, the 10-point deficit remained insurmountable. Li Long had wanted to guard Arteist, but the head coach, focused on closing the gap, refused to send in a player with no offensive ability. With only a minute left, and the deficit still at 10 points, Chris Ford waved the white flag in surrender. Only then did Li Long get another chance to play. By then, however, the Pacers had also pulled their starters, so he couldn't guard Arteist. In the end, the 76ers lost 7,485. In this game, Iverson scored 37 points, grabbed 4 rebounds, and dished out 4 assists. For the Pacers, Arteist had 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists, while Jermaine O'Neal contributed 23 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. Right after the game ended, Arteist was stopped by reporters on the sidelines. "Ron, congratulations on the win. But we noticed some issues with the team in the second quarter." Arteist, still riding high on excitement, felt a chill below the belt at the reporter's words, recalling Li Long's inch punch. However, as a top small forward in the league, he couldn't let that show. "Yes, that Chinese kid from the 76ers is underrated. I guarantee he's a tough defender. At least he put more pressure on me than LeBron does." To cover his tracks, he used James as a comparison, reasoning that the stronger Li Long seemed, the more justified his own performance during that stretch. Moreover, he genuinely believed Li Long's defense was excellent, aggressive yet clean, with far fewer cheap tricks than his own. Little did he know his remarks would spark a storm after the game. "I'm not saying that kid is better than LeBron. I mean defensively he's better." At the post-game press conference, when asked about the comparison between Li Long and James, Arteist explained himself once more. News headlines screamed, "Ron Arteist reveals undrafted Li Long is better than James," and Chris Ford's tactical blunder, "Arteist admits Li Long should have guarded him." Media from all countries are the same. They'll go for whatever stirs up the most buzz. Taking things out of context and exaggerating are standard moves. Li Long, fast asleep, had no idea that Arteist's words had earned him a bit of fame in the league. The next day, Li Long traveled with the 76ers to Washington, where they would face the Wizards. Meanwhile, at the Cavaliers' practice facility, reporters cornered James. "LeBron, Arteist says the strongest rookie in your draft class is Li Long. What's your take on that?" At the mention of Li Long's name, James' pupils contracted. He instantly recalled his first summer league game, where if his agent hadn't been quick to collect all the footage, he would have been embarrassed. Since then, he had gathered information on Li Long and only relaxed after learning he was an undrafted player without a team. He never expected Li Long to eventually find a team. How infuriating. "Oh, Li Long. Is he the no. 2 pick in our class? I remember the no. 3 pick is Carmelo." James feigned ignorance, making it clear that his only rival was Anthony. "Oh no, Li Long is just an undrafted player. But he did a decent job guarding Arteist yesterday." "Really? How many points did he score in that game, and how many did he limit Ron to?" He was asking knowingly. His PR team had already briefed him after the news broke last night. Li Long scored 0 points and Arteist had 30. Hearing that, the reporter realized the absurdity. Arteist had dropped 30 points and still praised his defender. Was he just bragging about himself? "Hey buddy, you've been played." Ron was joking. Besides, if that guy were really that good, why would he go undrafted? Are all the GMs in the league idiots? With that, James ignored everyone and walked into the training facility. But deep down he had already developed a grudge against Arteist. Just wait. Once I grow stronger, I'll beat you so badly you'll be picking your teeth off the floor. On November 12th, as soon as Li Long arrived at the arena, he was stopped by a reporter. Haley, do you think you're stronger than LeBron? In truth, the buzz around Li Long had already died down over the past couple of days. Most people believed James was right, that Arteist was just hyping Li Long to boast about himself. How could that be? That's the king we're talking about. Besides, I've defended him before and his drives are just too uncanny. Li Long had seen Jameis' interview as well. He had to admit media LeBron sure knew how to talk. Uncanny. The reporter was baffled by Li Long's answer. He had never heard anyone use that word to describe Jameis' drives. You've guarded LeBron. Did his drives conquer you? Seeing the reporter's puzzled expression, Li Long cursed inwardly. You're the one who got conquered. No. What I mean is you never know how many steps he'll take after that second one. With that, Li Long pushed past the reporter and went to warm up. However, Chris Ford didn't give Li Long any playing time that game. First, because the match was too intense. Second, Big Dog Robinson had already spoken to him. If his playing time couldn't be guaranteed, he would request a trade. Between Big Dog and Li Long, Chris Ford naturally had to choose Big Dog. After all, Li Long was just a pure defender with no scoring ability. Not to mention he was still a rookie. 1-1-1-0-5. The 76ers won on the road. In this game, Iverson scored 40 points while the opposing arenas put up 36 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists. Having sat out the entire game, Li Long returned to Philadelphia with a gloomy expression. Li, good news. Billy King is going to convert your contract into a guaranteed one. The next day, Burroughs excitedly found Li Long. What do you mean? Li Long asked, puzzled. Logically, since he couldn't even get on the court now, why would the 76ers suddenly offer him a contract change? Of course your performance impressed the management. Besides, no matter what they're thinking, a guaranteed contract is better than a non-guaranteed one, right? Hearing this, Li Long almost punched him to death. Look at LeBron's team, then look at his own unreliable agent. How could the gap be so huge? He couldn't even figure out management's intentions, yet he dared to casually change the contract. After sending Burroughs away, Li Long headed to the 76ers training facility. Since the next game was the day after they had a team practice scheduled. Kid, are you crazy? This is a scrimmage. After Li Long disrupted his catch, once again Robinson said impatiently. Li Long was already frustrated from not getting a single minute in the last game. Now that there was a scrimmage, he naturally wanted to perform well and impress the head coach. But Big Dog didn't see it that way. He thought Li Long was deliberately making things difficult for him, believing Li Long was bitter about his own playing time being taken. You're an undrafted player. Be grateful you're even playing and stop being so picky and unwilling. If you've got the skill, score. If not, shut up. Li Long was enjoying the defense too much to bother with Big Dog. Truth be told, without Iverson in the scrimmage, Big Dog was the main team's primary scorer. Ding. Congratulations, host, for obtaining 100 resentment points from Glenn Robinson. Hearing this sound from the system, Li Long defended even more vigorously. It had been a while since he last heard it. Smack. Just then, Li Long swatted Big Dog's shot again. Are you fucking done? This time, Big Dog couldn't save face. As the team's second star being shut down by an undrafted rookie was a huge blow to his pride. With that, he pressed his forehead against Li Long's. Tweet, tweet. The coaching staff quickly blew their whistles and separated the two. Chris Ford saw clearly that it wasn't Li Long's fault this time, and he secretly thought that if Li Long's offense were better, he would have no qualms benching Big Dog. Unfortunately, the team couldn't afford to lose Big Dog's scoring right now. It was only then that Li Long realized what had happened. Damn, Big Dog's got a chip on his shoulder today. I was just playing normal defense. Little did he know his unknown defense was now maxed out at 100. For Big Dog, who was at a disadvantage in height, weight, and speed, Li Long was the perfect counter. Li, you're a rookie. You need to get along with the veterans. Don't be too impatient. Unable to continue the scrimmage, Li Long was called into the head coach's office for a consolation talk. Hearing this, Li Long was speechless. Is this my fault? Why doesn't anyone tell Big Dog to get along? Still, he knew that as a rookie he had no leverage, so he kept his frustration bottled up. On November 15th, the 76ers hosted the Western powerhouse Spurs at home. Before the game, Big Dog Robinson and Coleman were both out due to injury. Hearing this news, Li Long was overjoyed. As expected, with no one else available, Chris Ford directly arranged for Li Long to start. Gazing at Ginobile's flowing long hair, Li Long couldn't help but look at Duncan's big hands. It was those magical palms that would one day turn the Pan American Eagle into the Pan American Vulture. From the tip-off, the Spurs quickly found their rhythm, executing their plays methodically. Especially the Vulture and the Tim, one inside, one outside. They were virtually unstoppable. Li Long ran around with Bowen for most of the quarter without even touching the ball. Buddy, you've got to ask for the ball. With no other option, Li Long resorted to his trickster tactics again. Bowen stared at Li Long as if he were an idiot. Are you out of your mind? With Tim and Manu on the floor and a French point guard running the show, you want me to ask for the ball. If I get the ball and you lock me down, the old man will chew me out. Before the game, Popovich had specifically instructed that if Lee Long was guarding Bowen, he just needed to pull him out to the three-point line. After a couple more possessions, Lee Long realized he couldn't trick Bowen and gave up. Looks like the sneaky ones have brains after all. Seeing this, Lee Long shoved Snow aside and stepped in front of Ginobili himself. Snow was already struggling to guard the vulture, so he was more than happy to let someone else take the heat. Without even checking if Chris Ford agreed, he ran straight over to Bowen. "Kid, I hear your defense is pretty good." Ginobili teased as he saw the defensive switch. He trusted Pop's words, but that only fueled his competitive spirit. "Good defense. My snake-like drives are made to break down good defense. Manu, you might want to consider a mohawk or a hedgehog hairstyle instead," Lee Long kindly advised the young Ginobili before him. Hearing Lee Long's words, Ginobili was stunned. Damn it, why would he suddenly ask me to change my hairstyle? Could it be that he has a friend who owns a barber shop? Imagining how he would look with the hairstyle, Lee Long suggested. "Duncan, Manu, don't you love me anymore?" Ugh, how terrifying. Manu the ball. Just as Ginobili was still pondering the horror of the new hairstyle, Duncan was already getting impatient in the paint. Hearing this, Lee Long quickly closed in on Ginobili, but he still underestimated his serpentine agility. Ginobili leaped into the air, tucked his waist, twisted his hips, and executed a behind-the-back pass, landing the ball right in front of Duncan. Damn, no wonder Duncan wanted to grab him. If he wasn't careful, the ball would have smacked him in the face. But Duncan, true to his reputation as the big fundamental, caught the unpredictable pass instantly and turned for an easy layup. Lee Long's face fell. He had volunteered to guard Ginobili, and now the first play ended with a successful pass. Where was his pride? In the following plays, Lee Long intensified his physical defense against Ginobili, confident in his abundant stamina. With Lee Long's relentless dog defense, Ginobili's touches diminished significantly, and the 76ers, led by Iverson, gradually closed the gap. At the start of the second quarter, Iverson continued playing without rest. His shooting touch improved in this period, and having familiarized himself with Parker's defensive style, his drives became more threatening. By halftime, the 76ers led the Spurs 50-47, holding a three-point advantage. "Tim, how are you feeling? Do you need more rest in the third quarter?" In the Spurs locker room during the break, Popovich asked Duncan, who was breathing heavily. Duncan had been giving his all this game. With Ginobili and Parker both neutralized, Duncan was the only one holding the team together. In the first half alone, he had recorded 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists, making immense contributions on both ends of the floor. Yet despite that, the Spurs were still trailing by 3, prompting Popovich's question. "I'm spent. These young guys are really fierce." Duncan caught his breath before replying. He knew his limits. If he continued playing in the third quarter, he would be completely drained by the fourth. Moreover, this game was far from over, which was why he spoke thus. Under normal circumstances, he would have insisted he was fine, but time waits for no man. Seeing Duncan express a need for rest, Popovich's brow furrowed deeply. He knew that if Duncan rested too long in the third quarter, there might not even be a fourth quarter. With that thought, he hesitated no longer. "We need to find a way to survive Tim's rest period." Though phrased as a question, his gaze shifted to Bruce Bowen, who was lacing his shoes in the corner. Seeing the coach's look, Bowen understood immediately. With Bowen grasping his intent, Popovich moved on, continuing to arrange the tactics for the second half. The third quarter began just like the second, with Iverson leading the 76ers in a furious assault. In just 2 minutes, they extended the lead to over 10 points. Popovich could no longer sit still on the Spurs bench. Though he had anticipated this, he hadn't expected the 76ers to be this ferocious. "Defense, stay on your man." Popovich called an immediate timeout, shouting at his players. Without waiting to see if Duncan had rested enough, he sent all the starters back onto the court. On the 76ers' next possession, Iverson drove with the ball. Just as he blew past Parker's defensive figure, lunged toward him. Seeing this, Iverson halted abruptly and pulled up for a jump shot. As he hung in the air, he thought, what idiot double team so late? Watch out. At that moment, Lee Long saw a dark foot slide under Iverson's landing spot. Recognizing its owner, he shouted in alarm. Damn, isn't that Bruce Bowen, the notorious Bowen, the Black Foot? Ouch! Despite the warning, Iverson twisted his ankle upon landing. Hearing the cry of pain, Lee Long's eyes reddened instantly. Who was Bowen? A scumbag who had crippled Carter and was chased by him. Lee Long charged at Bowen without hesitation. "Hey kid, Bruce didn't mean it. He was just trying to block AI's shot with his foot." On the other side, seeing Lee Long, enraged Duncan quickly grabbed him, trying to explain. But the explanation only made Lee Long angrier. Block a shot with his foot? What a ridiculous excuse. Shaking off Duncan, Lee Long strode up to Bowen and unleashed a flurry of Wing Chun chain punches. Bowen tried to dodge, but Lee Long's Jeet Kune Do was no joke. "Good. Beat that bastard." The crowd erupted in cheers as they watched Bowen get pummeled. After all, Iverson was their idol. How could they not be furious when Bowen dared to pull such a dirty move right in front of them? Li Long didn't realize that this act had earned him full marks in the hearts of Philadelphia fans. Beep. The referee finally blew his whistle, pointing off the court at Li Long. Knowing the consequences, Li Long said nothing and headed straight for the locker room. Li, great job. Li, we've got your back. Fans along the aisle cheered for Li Long. On the other side, Bruce Bowen was also carried off, his face bloodied and unconscious from the beating. Watching Li Long get ejected, Iverson felt a mix of amusement and exasperation. They rarely talked, yet Li Long was the first to step up when he was in trouble. At the same time, he was furious. If not for Li Long's warning, he might have been carried off too. For Li, we must win this game. The team doctor had just examined him. His ankle was only slightly sprained. It would be best to rest, but he could continue playing if necessary. Hearing that he insisted on playing, not just because of what happened to Li Long, he would have done so anyway. While Iverson used Li Long's ejection to motivate the team, he didn't know that Li Long was already daydreaming in the locker room. Last time when he accidentally knocked down Rasheed Wallace, the system had gifted him 10 attribute points and a skill. Would it happen again this time? Meanwhile, Bowen had been revived by the Spurs medical staff. Staring at his two front teeth in his hand, he howled bitterly. Li Long will get you for this. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 resentment points from Bruce Bowen. Single resentment points exceeding 1000 reward 1 lottery draw. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining rebound prediction, granting superior judgment of the ball's landing point. Now that's not right. As a small forward, why did he receive a rebounding skill? Was he supposed to play power forward? A short, stout rebound monster. Just as he was pondering this, the locker room door swung open. Relying on Iverson's 36 points, 4 rebounds, and 12 assists, the 76ers ultimately defeated the Spurs 1-0-0-9-4. However, when he hurried back to the locker room, he saw Li Long already dressed, sitting with his legs crossed and humming a tune. Iverson slapped his forehead, thinking, what madness possessed me to worry about this fool? Is the game over? Li Long asked upon seeing Iverson. Brother, thank you. Don't worry, I'll cover the fine. Although he felt he had worried for nothing about this idiot, Iverson was still grateful for his intervention. But at that moment, Li Long couldn't care less. He was too busy thinking about how to allocate his points. This time, he had another 1-0 resentment points, essentially a free 10 attribute points. He needed to plan carefully how to distribute them. Li hit Bowen, yes, but I don't think he was wrong. Anyone who watched the game knows what kind of move Bowen made. Trash like that deserves to be hit. At the post-game press conference, Iverson defended Li Long with indignation. However, he knew his words were futile. The league would certainly suspend Li. But there were things he had to say. Returning home, that night Li Long began allocating points. Originally, his plan was to first max out the stats closest to 100. Following that plan, he should have added to explosiveness. However, recent games showed that increasing his maximum stats wasn't very helpful. With that in mind, he decided to invest in his weaknesses. Looking at his close range, shooting now at 78, Li Long suppressed his inner excitement. Just wait until he maxed out. Then no matter who the legends were, he would turn them all into Li. It seems fighting is the right way to collect resentment points. This is much faster than gathering them bit by bit. As if discovering a bug, Li Long felt a secret thrill. If this was the case, a few more fights might let him max out within a single season. However, he figured Stern probably wouldn't let him play in the NBA then. The next morning, Li Long received a call from head coach Chris Ford informing him of an additional 3-game suspension. On the phone, Chris Ford repeatedly urged him to control his temper and not be so impulsive. Faced with the head coach's earnest advice, Li Long said he understood and it wouldn't happen again. Li. Just as he hung up, Burroughs burst in frantically. Stop, I know I shouldn't have fought. I really know. It won't happen again. He thought Burroughs was also there to admonish him like Chris Ford. What? Fight? Why not? Unexpectedly, after hearing Li Long's words, Burroughs shook his head vehemently. His demeanor suggested that not fighting would be Li Long's loss. What? Are you sure you're not being sarcastic? Li Long looked at Burroughs with confusion. He remembered that the last time he fought, Rasheed Burroughs had advised him against it. Why such a drastic change this time? You're a famous man. Do you know how many calls I've gotten since last night? 7, exactly 7 brands want you for endorsements. It seemed Li Long had underestimated the impact of beating up Bowen. Originally, in the fans' minds, he had, well, no impression at all. But after last night's event, fans suddenly discovered that Li Long was a true man who stood up for his teammates, especially since he stood up for Iverson. At that time, Iverson was the top of the 4 shooting guards with a fan base second only to the GOAT. While Yao Ming didn't count, he was on another level. So after the game last night, Li Long became quite famous. An image was established of a skilled defender, loyal and righteous, a tough guy who dared to step up for his leader. No way to basketball sidekick. All of Iverson's fans loved Li Long by association. Plus, early this morning, TNT replayed the full video of Li Long punching Bowen. This caught the attention of Bruce Lee's fans as well. This basketball player, whose name was only one character different from their idols, actually knew Jeet Kune Do. Seeing the massive traffic Li Long generated, other media outlets also found the golden ticket and began reporting on him extensively. Li Long, true heir of Bruce Lee, knocks down Rashid with one punch. Li Long floors Bowen with Bruce Lee's straight punch. Overnight, Li Long's popularity rivaled that of this year's #1 draft pick LeBron James. With such a surge in popularity, businesses naturally came knocking for advertisements. Only there's one brand perfect for you. Take a look. Burroughs handed a document to Li Long. Li Long took it and first looked at the endorsement fee. Wow, $2 million a year. That was quite generous. Then he saw the brand Everlast. What do they sell? Not knowing the company, Li Long asked Burroughs. What? You don't know Everlast? And you claim to practice boxing? They're the world's most famous boxing equipment company. Hearing Burroughs' explanation, Li Long was speechless. I'm a basketball player. What business do I have endorsing boxing gear? Wait, explain this to me. To get the endorsement fee, I need to KO opponents 3 times in a season. Translate that for me. What does KO mean here? Suddenly spotting a clause in the contract, Li Long looked at Burroughs in disbelief. KO like with Bowen Rashid. Burroughs began explaining with gestures, seemingly oblivious to Li Long's displeasure, but trailed off as Li Long's face darkened. If you don't want it, I can negotiate further. Actually, Burroughs hadn't expected to fool a Chinese sucker. Instead, an American sucker had shown up. Get out, get out, get out. Don't bother me with anything less than a LeBron-level endorsement. Fuming, Li Long kicked Burroughs out the door. He thought, I only fight when there's a reason. If I started throwing punches for no reason, would people think I'm just a brawler who happens to play with a ball? Hey, Li, be realistic. LeBron is. Burroughs thought Li Long was getting too big for his boots and wanted to advise him to cash in on his current fame while it lasted. But before he could finish, Li Long had already shut the door in his face. On November 16th, the Philadelphia 76ers, now without Li Long, faced the Cleveland Cavaliers in a back-to-back away game. What should have been Li Long's first encounter with LeBron James was postponed due to his suspension. Perhaps hampered by injury or the fatigue of consecutive road games, Allen Iverson's touch was ice cold. He made only 8 of 29 field goals and missed both of his 3-point attempts, finishing with a mere 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. Meanwhile, LeBron James of the Cavaliers played 46 minutes, hitting 10 of 19 shots for 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists. The Cavaliers ultimately triumphed over the 76ers with a final score of 91-88. After the game, a reporter asked James about Li Long. Li, I know him. He fought Rashid, he fought Bowen. Well, he's new to the league. I think he'll be fine. The King's words were diplomatic, subtly implying that Li Long was not yet worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as him. Yet in his heart, James held Li Long in high regard. A premier perimeter defender like him would be a valuable championship piece if he ever had the chance to recruit him. On November 18th, back at home, the 76ers awaited the visiting Houston Rockets. Li Long arrived at the arena early to get a close look at Yao Ming. Hey, look who it is. Isn't this our enforcer? What is your suspension over? Iverson, the first to warm up, spotted Li Long sitting behind the bench. Nonsense. This suspension cost me big time, you know. Li Long retorted, only half joking. He spoke the truth. Having learned of the media blackout against him in China, he had been eagerly awaiting this game. The Chinese broadcasters might refuse to show his games with the 76ers, but surely they would have to televise a game against the Rockets. He planned to put on a stellar performance and force their hand. But despite all his calculations, he never imagined he'd be suspended. The loss was substantial. Fortunately, there was still one more game against the Rockets this season. Hello there, Li Long. A massive figure suddenly blocked Li Long's view just as he was getting engrossed in watching. Yao. Brother Yao. Li Long corrected himself, remembering Yao's stature. Li Long, I know you. The league's #1 enforcer, quite impressive. Yao Ming said, his trademark goofy grin appearing as he noticed Li Long's shyness. Li Long was speechless. He didn't know which media outlet had given him that #1 enforcer title just for clicks. Still, the title wasn't entirely baseless. In just 9 games this season, he had already been suspended 4 times for fighting. Brother Yao, don't tease me. There was a reason for it all. Li Long understood Yao's subtle warning and quickly offered an explanation. Just then, a short man with glasses squeezed in, speaking Mandarin. Hey to Yao, you know Li Long. I'm Yang Yi, a reporter for China Sports Daily. Seeing Li Long's gaze, Yang Yi quickly introduced himself. Oh, you're Yang Yi, brother Yang. I know you. Li Long grasped Yang Yi's hand warmly. Of course he knew Yang Yi, especially for his famous line, no more miracles. Brother Yao, go get warmed up. We'll catch up after the game. Li Long gestured towards the Rockets' side. All right, let's talk after the game. And try to stay out of fights. Yao Ming, seeing his coach beckon, gave Li Long one last piece of advice before heading back. How long do you know you've been blacklisted? Yang Yi finally asked the question about the media ban, as Li Long wouldn't engage with any other topic. Yang Yi had initially hesitated to bring up such a sensitive subject, but Li Long's indifference to other questions forced his hand. Along. Li Long felt a dizzy spell. I may look young, but I'm actually 30. You can call me Brother Long. Yang Yi nearly choked. He had seen Li Long's NBA bone age test results, so he knew the truth. But for the sake of his story, he let the matter of the address slide. Brother Long, why aren't you angry about being blacklisted? Yang Yi pressed on. Angry? What good would that do? Once I start putting up great numbers, they'll be the ones begging me. Li Long had already thought it through. With his system, he was confident he would max out his potential. When that day came, he would dominate LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. If China wanted success on the international stage, they would have no choice but to come to him. Besides, in this era before the internet's full explosion, a media blackout had its limits. As the web grew, their ability to silence him would diminish. So he was utterly unconcerned about the ban. At worst, it might delay his all-star selection. The game began, and the 76ers fell behind, particularly in rebounding. The final score was 66-74. The 76ers lost to the visiting Rockets by 8 points at home. Yao Ming recorded 12 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 assists. Iverson, however, had a terrible shooting night, making only 4 of 19 field goals and missing all 3 of his three-point attempts. He relied on free throws to finish with 15.7 rebounds and 6 assists. Watching Iverson clank shot after shot, Li Long felt a pang of pain. What a waste of rebounding opportunities. If he were on the court, he would have been grabbing them all. He hadn't yet realized he was subconsciously thinking about rebounding. Yang Yi, witnessing this, mistook Li Long's expression for concern for his team and silently praised his professionalism. As soon as the game ended, Iverson stormed off to the locker room with a dark face, not even acknowledging Li Long. Haha, Long, sorry for the win. Doesn't affect our plans to hang out, does it? Yao Ming suddenly appeared. Hearing that prefix again, Li Long was resigned. It seemed he couldn't escape it. He wouldn't dare to brush off Yao Ming the way he did Yang Yi. All right, don't be so dramatic. He'll wait for you outside the arena. We'll talk later. Li Long knew Yao Ming had a post-game press conference to attend. After Yao Ming left, Li Long said his goodbyes to a few of his 76ers teammates before heading out. Yang Yi was surprised to see how well-liked Li Long was within the 76ers camp. Compared to Yao Ming's lonely rookie days, the difference was stark. He didn't realize that Li Long had earned the team's respect by standing up for Iverson and fighting Bowen. After all, who wouldn't want a teammate who would have your back when a scuffle broke out on the court? Hey, why aren't you going to the press conference? Why are you following me? Li Long asked, puzzled as he noticed a little tail tagging along behind him. With 2 big shots like you right here, I'd have to be crazy to go to some press conference. He had already decided to stick close to these two. When the time came, he'd get all the news. Exclusives no less. Wow, we've only just met, and you're already planning to mooch a meal off me. I'm saying, for a journalist, you sure don't know your manners. First time visiting, and you don't even bring a fruit basket. How about this? There's a convenience store over there. Go buy some cooked food and a bottle of wine. Seeing Yang Yi just smile, without a word, Li Long had no choice but to arrange things himself. He thought to himself, kid, you think you're mooching off me? This meal is on you, no doubt about it. Wine. You dare to drink during the competition? Yang Yi was even more surprised when he heard he was being sent to buy wine. It wasn't the cost of the wine that bothered him, but he was curious how Li Long dared to drink during the tournament. Others might not know, but he was well aware that the 3 great walls of China, Yao Ming, Wang Zhizhi, and Monk Bader, never touched a drop during the season. Hey, listen to yourself. If American players can do it, why can't we? What's the big deal about a little drink? He was exaggerating, of course. In America, someone his age wouldn't even be sold alcohol. Hearing this, Yang Yi understood that this guy was different from Yao Ming and the others. Don't you two run off then. With that, Yang Yi jogged off to buy the wine. He had his own little scheme. Drinking was good. If they got drunk enough, they'd open up. That wouldn't just be an exclusive story, it would be top secret intel. Watching Yang Yi's retreating figure, Li Long thought to himself, finally, someone's buying me a drink. Only a fool would run away. Hey, Yang Yi even bought stuff. Yao Ming had just finished the press conference and gotten leave from the coach before coming out. As he emerged, he saw Yang Yi carrying a large bag of things. Just some cooked food. Brother Long said since we rarely get to meet, we should have a drink. Yang Yi deliberately said we to make sure they wouldn't leave him out. What? Drink? No, I don't drink. Hearing about alcohol, Yao Ming waved his hands repeatedly in refusal. He had only drunk once. During a national team gathering, he had a single glass of beer, and someone ended up stuffing him into a taxi to send him home. So when he heard Li Long wanted to drink, he quickly declined. All right, you don't have to drink. Yang Yi and I will. Let's go. Li Long chimed in. It had been a while since he'd transmigrated, and he hadn't had a drink yet. Today he was in the mood, and a little alcohol would liven things up. Are we really walking? You didn't drive. After following Li Long for 2 minutes, Yao Ming noticed they were getting farther from the arena, and there was no parking lot nearby, so he asked Li Long. I don't even have a driver's license. How would I have a car? Li Long replied matter-of-factly. Don't worry, it's not far. At most 10 minutes, and we'll be there. The next day, Li Long was woken by a ringing phone. Hello, Yao Ming. He's right next to me. Okay, got it. It turned out that Yao Ming had said he'd returned to the hotel that night, but the Rockets didn't see him even by the next morning, so they had to ask Li Long for him. But none of them had Li Long's number. Eventually, Steve Francis had to contact Allen Iverson to get in touch with him. Li Long slapped his forehead, remembering that after a few drinks last night, had gotten more and more excited. Eventually, Yao Ming couldn't stand their goading and had a small glass. Just a small glass, and he was out. Completely out. Brother Yao's gone. Aren't you leaving? After seeing off the hurried Yao Ming, Li Long asked Yang Yi. Actually, Yang Yi was older than Yao Ming, which was why everyone called Yao Ming Big Yao. But in front of Li Long, he didn't dare call himself brother and could only address Li Long as Brother Long. He's on the Rockets chartered plane. I have to buy my own ticket. By the way, Brother Long, don't you have training? Yang Yi took the initiative to clean up last night's mess. Training my ass. It's the same old routines over and over. With that, Li Long lay back down. Woken by the phone today, he wanted to catch a few more winks. At first, he did go practice with his teammates, but after 2 sessions, he noticed his attribute points hadn't changed at all, so he stopped going. Anyway, he had a guaranteed contract now. The head coach had called him at first and had agreed nicely over the phone, but he never showed up. Eventually, Chris Ford gave up. As long as he could handle the defense, he could do whatever he wanted. On November 22nd, Li Long's suspension ended, and they were to host the Celtics at home. In their last game, the 76ers beat the Raptors 81-75 on the road, but Iverson didn't travel with the team. After the game against the Rockets, his old injury flared up, so he sat out 1 game. Without Iverson and the other 2 #1 picks, Chris Ford was ready to give up on the game, but surprisingly, they won anyway. For this game, Iverson was back, determined to lead the team to his 2nd straight win. From the tip-off, the Celtics, led by Paul Pierce, took control. Iverson, perhaps still recovering from his injury, was off his game. Li Long was overjoyed. After missing 3 games, he was itching to test his newly improved rebounding ability. With Iverson playing the little blacksmith, he could happily farm. Grab rebounds. And to farm, I mean rebound. Even better, he even switched positions with Sammons. Sammons was more than happy. He was a small forward by nature, but the coach had forced him to play power forward. With Li Long's rebounding support, the first quarter ended in a 24-24 tie between the 76ers and the Celtics. Li Long had a blast. In the first quarter alone, he grabbed 5 rebounds, snagged an assist, and even blocked Celtics power forward Vin Baker. The head coach also noticed that Li Long was different today, voluntarily playing power forward and crucially protecting the boards. With that in mind, he decided to let him stay at power forward. The second quarter began. After a full period of battling, Vin Baker was exhausted. Li Long took full advantage, not only grabbing rebounds, but also sneaking in a few points. First, he caught an alley-oop from Iverson for a thunderous dunk, then followed up with 2 close-range shots off offensive rebounds. He had to admit his improved close-range shooting was quite useful. By the end of the second quarter, Li Long had put up 6 points, 11 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block. But Pierce was on fire today, posting a monstrous 24 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in the first half, leading the Celtics to a 3-point lead at halftime. In the second half, Li guard Pierce. Seeing Pierce attack both inside and out in the first half, head coach Chris Ford knew that if they didn't contain him, winning today would be tough. That was originally Li Long's job, but today, unexpectedly, he had volunteered to play power forward. Although Li Long did well there, Sammons clearly couldn't stop Pierce. Li Long had had his fill of rebounding over 2 quarters and was thinking about facing Pierce in the third. To his surprise, the coach assigned it. Now that's what you call status. In the future, elite 3 and D players would be a scarce resource. He didn't have the 3, but his D was maxed out. So what did that make him? A board and D player. The thought made Li Long chuckle. No problem. Leave Pierce to me. In the second half, he'll show him what it means to be an icebox. Seeing Li Long's confidence, Chris Ford temporarily set his worries aside. Kid, did you forget to send your head coach a fruit basket? Otherwise, why would he send you to die? As the third quarter began, Paul Pierce taunted upon seeing the defensive switch. Today, he felt his touch was exceptionally good, so he paid no heed to the change in defender. Truth be told, Pierce's mouth was foul, but he was mistaken if he thought Li Long was an ordinary rookie. Send me to die? Are you suggesting I should give you 11 stab wounds? Back in 2000, Pierce got into a quarrel with thugs at a nightclub, and within 35 seconds, he was stabbed 11 times. The deepest wound was merely 2 centimeters from his heart. Even the heavens wept at that moment. Yet, as they say, the wicked live long. That guy was back on the court after only 18 days in the hospital. No wonder he was called the Phoenix. Surviving 11 stab wounds had always been a point of pride for Pierce, but hearing Li Long's words, he sensed something sinister behind them. Ding. Congratulations, host, for acquiring 200 resentment points from Paul Pierce. Kid, you're dead meat, I swear it. Not even AI can save you now. Give me the ball. After uttering a threat, Pierce demanded the ball from his guard. "Old bird, bring it on. I'll show you the power of my 35-second 11-punch combo." Seeing Pierce receive the ball, Li Long retorted with trash talk before pressing tightly against him. Hearing this, Pierce shuddered, suddenly recalling that his opponent was no ordinary rookie. In the 11 games the 76ers had played this season, this guy had already served 4 suspensions for fighting. They said Rasheed Wallace was the king of technical fouls, but Li Long was the true king of suspensions. Now, media pundits were already predicting how many games Li Long would ultimately play this season. While other rookies missed games due to lack of skill, Li Long's absences were purely for brawling. Realizing he was facing someone dubbed a boxer who had wandered onto the wrong court, Pierce dared not spew any more trash talk. Yet just as he tensed up, Li Long's long arms reached out and stripped the ball from him. Go cornrows. After the incident with Bowen, the relationship between Iverson and Li Long had improved significantly, so Li Long was becoming increasingly audacious. Iverson, already watching their duel, sprinted to the front court the moment he saw the steal. He then finished with a 3-step layup. Chris Ford, watching from the sidelines, was also impressed. He had only been testing the waters without high expectations for Li Long. Pierce had been playing out of his mind today, yet Li Long's defense proved effective. Moreover, as head coach, he could see that Li Long's defensive level was indeed beyond what Salmons could offer. As the Celtics advanced, Li Long once again faced Pierce. Seeing Li Long, Pierce wanted to unleash some harsh words, but choked them back. In his heart, however, he was determined to teach him a lesson. Pierce dribbled while sneaking glances at the basket. Noticing Pierce's wide eyes, Li Long suddenly recalled that this guy had a signature step-back game winner. Wasn't this the setup? Pierce executed a crossover, stepping left to shift Li Long's weight right, then stepped back beyond the three-point line and rose for the shot. Smack! Unfortunately, the ball had barely left his hand when a large yellow hand swatted it down. With his guard up, Li Long wasn't about to let him shoot so easily. On the other side, Iverson saw the block, dove for the ball, and raced toward the front court. Just a minute into the third quarter, the 76ers had taken a 1-point lead. Though Li Long's rebound count hadn't increased, he had notched a steal and a block. Paul Watcher passes. From the Celtics bench, the head coach, seeing Pierce stifled on consecutive possessions, shouted to prevent him from getting reckless. Truthfully, he didn't need the reminder. Pierce already knew Li Long was no pushover. In the ensuing game, Pierce was completely shut down, playing 8 minutes in the third quarter with 0 points on 0-4 for shooting and 3 turnovers. However, as one problem was solved, another arose. While Li Long guarded Pierce, the Celtics' power forward Vin Baker began to run wild. The only shot that missed was when Pierce had left the court and Li Long had moved to the power forward position, defending him and causing the miss. Seeing this, Chris Ford finally confirmed that Li Long's defensive prowess was undoubtedly among the league's elite. 7666. Relying on Li Long's defense, the 76ers entered the fourth quarter with a 10-point lead. At the start of the fourth quarter, Pierce began to force plays, but unfortunately, under Li Long's defense, he made only 1 out of 5 shots, scoring just 2 points. By the time there were 6 minutes left in the game, the 76ers had already built an 18-point lead. Just then, Pierce, who had been off the ball, suddenly collapsed, clutching his leg. "Hey, I didn't touch him." Li Long, who had been guarding him, quickly raised his hands and shouted. Upon seeing this, the referee immediately called a timeout, allowing the Celtics medical staff to come onto the court. After a while, Pierce was carried off the court by 2 people. Could that old fox be faking it again? Watching Pierce being carried off, Li Long muttered. Somehow he couldn't help but recall that future finals incident where Pierce returned after a bout of diarrhea. Li Long had no idea that back in the locker room, Pierce was sitting boldly on a bench. Good thing I was clever, otherwise the media would be saying I was shut down by a rookie. As Li Long had guessed, Pierce, seeing that the game was unwinnable and that he had been thoroughly outplayed by Li Long in the second half, decided to fake an injury and leave the court. After all, the game wasn't being broadcast, and for most fans his 26 points would be enough to justify his performance. Plus, with the injury excuse, he could largely downplay Li Long's defensive impact. On the other side, after Pierce left, the Celtics put in their bench players. Seeing this, the 76ers thought, well, since they've surrendered, we should be merciful and let them off easy. No, I'm not coming off. I've been all defense this game, barely grabbed any rebounds. When told he was being substituted, Li Long was unhappy. He had finally managed to score, and he was just 4 points shy of a double-double. Now that it was garbage time, Chris Ford, that old fox, wanted to bench him. That was like killing the donkey after it had done its work. Chris Ford was speechless. This was the first time he had encountered someone so brazenly chasing stats. Others at least made some excuse when padding their numbers. But this kid just came right out with it. You don't need to worry about the stats. Oh, we all know what you've contributed on defense. What's the use of knowing? How many fans actually watch the games? In the end, Chris Ford, unable to sway Li Long, still sent him onto the court. Brothers, just shoot whenever you get the ball. I've got the boards. After stepping onto the court, Li Long let out a shout and began sprinting across the floor. If not for the scoreboard, one would think they were the ones trailing. Relying on a furious push in the final 6 minutes, Li Long finished the game with a comprehensive stat line of 10 points, 17 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Watching Li Long beam with joy, Chris Ford grumbled inwardly. Foolish kid, as if any management would hand out a big contract based solely on stats, ignoring performance. He thought Li Long was chasing big stats for a fat contract. Little did he know Li Long had no worries about the contract. He was doing it to win over the fans. As for the contract, once he maxed out his level, why fear not getting a big one? However, most media reports after the game focused on Paul Pierce's injury exit, while Li Long's 17-10, achieved by padding stats in garbage time, went unreported. Early the next morning, Li Long boarded the team plane to New York. Yes, they were set to play the Knicks on a back-to-back. Li Long had wanted to see if the young Stephon Marbury was as selfish as people claimed, but unfortunately Marbury was sidelined due to injury. However, he did meet the young, well, still the same old, Dikembe Mutombo. Moreover, near the end of the first quarter, he slyly swatted Mutombo's shot with great respect, paying tribute to the legend with a block. Mutombo, am so grateful. Originally, the Knicks had a chance to win, but in the second quarter, Chris Ford kicked Li Long out of the paint again. Before the game, Li Long had said he wanted to play power forward, and Chris Ford agreed. Unexpectedly, the Knicks' small forward erupted. Seeing his activity, Chris Ford had no choice but to assign Li Long to guard him. And then there was no more to it. In the end, thanks to Li Long's fearless hustle in garbage time, he finished with 10 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 block. The 76ers beat the Knicks 1-0-0, 8-9, winning by 11 points. After this game, his resentment value once again exceeded 1,000 points. He originally had 920 points. In this game, Mutombo contributed 200 and Knicks small forward Shandon Anderson added 250, bringing his total to 1,370 resentment points. On the flight back to Philadelphia, he added another point to his close-range shooting. On November 26th, the 76ers faced the Bucks on the road, winning 1-0-1-8-8 for another victory. This season, the Bucks had just traded away Ray Allen, promoting the future leader of the Yield team, left-hand Michael Redd. And indeed, to be the captain of E's team, one had to have some skills. In the first half, he went toe-to-toe with Iverson, not backing down at all, scoring 20 points alone. In the second half, 76ers head coach Chris Ford used his signature move, unleash Li Long. Yes, in the second half, he had Li Long guard Michael Redd. And then there was no more to it. With height, weight, and every advantage on his side, the Mad Dog's tenacious defense was too overwhelming. Michael Redd went 0 for 7 in the second half, scoring 0 points. He only provided Li Long with 600 resentment points. However, there was no garbage time in this game. The Bucks held on until the final minute before surrendering. This meant Li Long failed to score in double digits, breaking his streak of 2 consecutive games with 10 points and rebounds. 6 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block. That was his final stat line for the game. He suddenly realized that since improving his rebounding ability, he had been grabbing over 10 boards per game. Now the main factor limiting his double-doubles was scoring. If he could average a double-double this season, he couldn't compare to LeBron James, but he could still rival Dwayne Wade. Coach, how have I been performing lately? On the flight back to Philadelphia, Li Long approached head coach Chris Ford. You've been doing great. Chris Ford was a bit puzzled, wondering why Li Long was bringing this up out of the blue. The team had won their recent games, putting him in a good mood. But as soon as Li Long mentioned it, he recalled the kid's shamelessness, fighting hard in garbage time. Then why do you always have me defend? Why not let me attack? Seeing that the coach didn't catch his drift, Li Long asked directly. Hearing this, Chris Ford nearly choked on his spit. With your offense, even if I gave you the ball, could you make the shot? Still, knowing young players love to attack, he tried to console him. What's wrong? You're defending great. Who knows, you might even win DPOY this year. DPOY? What was that? Did it come with rewards? Nothing beat a solid double-double, Li Long grumbled inwardly. All right, get back to your seat. If you show up in front of me again, you'll be benched next game. Seeing Li Long still hovering, Chris Ford said. Hearing he might not get to play, Li Long quickly returned to his seat. Defense is fine, but why get angry? Not very democratic. Those Americans are all liars. Back in his seat, Li Long muttered to himself. System, is there a reward for winning DPOY? Ding. Winning a single season statistical title rewards 1 attribute point. Winning Defensive Player of the Year rewards 3 attribute points. Winning the regular season MVP rewards 5 attribute points. Li Long hadn't expected that Chris Ford's offhand comment would actually trigger a system reward. So who was this season's DPOY? Damn. World peace. He suddenly remembered that this year's DPOY was that brute Ron Artest. Well then, no choice. I'm taking it. After all, 3 attribute points were equivalent to 300 resentment points. The next day, November 27th, the 76ers were set to host the Eastern Conference powerhouse, the Pistons. In Li Long's mind, the Pistons were the big boss this season, the eventual champions. But once the game started. Is that all? Technically, the Pistons were missing just Rasheed Wallace to complete the starting five. They should have been at about 80 of their peak form. In this game, Lee Long played power forward as usual. He had grown accustomed to this position. It allowed him to grab rebounds, stay close to the basket, and utilize his close-range shooting. "Bro, what's your name?" Seeing that his matchup looked familiar, Lee Long asked. "Oh, I'm Oker. Mehmet Oker." Hearing the name, Lee Long was taken aback, then studied Oker closely. "So you're Oker, huh? You're the one they call Yao Ming's nemesis." Lee Long remembered clearly in his past life this guy, along with Carlos Boozer, had tormented Yao Ming in the playoffs. Though he didn't know what they looked like, the names were etched in his memory. Well, a grudge from a past life settled today? Then Oker began a match that was both agonizing and exhilarating. "So you think you can front me, huh?" Smack. "Take a death grip rap, see if you still front me now." Ding. Congratulations to the host for gaining 100 resentment points from Oker. "So you think you can drift out and shoot threes, huh?" Smack. "Take a block party, see if you still shoot threes now." Ding. Congratulations to the host for gaining 100 resentment points from Oker. Lee Long's antics left Oker utterly bewildered. What kind of hobby is this? Asking my name before torturing me. If only Head told him his name was Ben Wallace. After that, there was no more. The Pistons, seeing Oker so thoroughly shut down, stopped passing him the ball. At the start of the third quarter, the Pistons, led by Billups, began their counterattack, especially Richard Hamilton, who hit 3 consecutive mid-range jumpers. Switched. Seeing this, Lee Long, regardless of who was guarding Oker, sprinted to Hamilton's side and shoved Aaron McKee aside. Hamilton didn't care who Lee Long was. He was a man who had run Kobe Bryant ragged. Without even glancing at Lee Long, he started his long-distance run. Lee Long smiled. "Off-ball movement. I don't know it. But stamina. I'm not afraid of you." He also wanted to test if his stamina had any limits. Then the court saw 2 long-distance runners. Smack. "Go on, cornrow." At first, Hamilton didn't pay much attention to Lee Long, thinking he was just a rookie who had gotten lucky in 2 games and didn't know his place. Using a screen, he thought Head found an open space. Just then, Billups' pass arrived. Without a second thought, he prepared to shoot. Unexpectedly, Lee Long had kept up, and just as Hamilton leaped, stripped the ball. Ding. Congratulations to the host for gaining 100 resentment points from Hamilton. This time, Hamilton dared not be careless. He secretly vowed not to call for the ball unless he was completely open. "Kid, are you a long-distance runner too?" After running for most of the quarter, Hamilton found himself unable to shake Lee Long, completely exhausting himself instead. "No, I practice Kung Fu." Facing Hamilton's question, Lee Long replied with a straight face. Ding. Congratulations to the host for gaining 100 resentment points from Hamilton. With Hamilton neutralized, the Pistons' comeback stalled. 8665. Coach, the opposing team is still fielding their starters. Shouldn't we be playing? In the fourth quarter, Iverson looked at Lee Long leading 4 substitutes on the court, exchanging blows with the Pistons, and asked Chris Ford, "It's fine, we have a big lead. Let the kid have his fun. If the gap narrows to 10 points, you'll go back in." As it turned out, the Pistons did manage to cut the lead to just 10 points, but unfortunately the game ended 1-0-2-9-2, exactly a 10-point victory for the 76ers. Leading by example in the fourth quarter, Lee Long notched another double-double, 10 points, 13 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. Yeah, the Pistons are nothing special. Looks like we have a real shot at the championship this year. On the flight back, Lee Long mused that with him on the 76ers, they had easily beaten the Pistons. Could he actually win a championship? The thought of winning a championship in his very first year excited Lee Long. He then resolved that he absolutely must prevent Rasheed from going to the Pistons. But his influence was limited, so he decided to persuade Iverson. "A championship? What does that have to do with the Pistons? You're dreaming. Haven't you seen the Lakers forming their F4? Hearing this, Lee Long thought to himself, if it weren't for me, the championship this season would belong to the Pistons. Oh, come on. They're rife with internal conflicts. Whether they even make it to the finals is anyone's guess. Besides, even if we face them, are you just going to give up?" At this, Iverson perked up. The last time he played in the finals, he had fallen to the OK duo. "Hell no. If we meet them, I'll get my revenge." Then the more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. The 76ers were currently 3rd in the Eastern Conference. Apart from the Pacers, they had a good chance of beating anyone. They had lost to the Pacers, but he hadn't gone all out. If they fought a grueling 7-game series, he wouldn't guarantee a win, but they'd at least have a fighting chance. Moreover, the 76ers' next game was against the Pacers. This time they would go all out just to see how big the gap really was. "Hey, you might actually be onto something. I was thinking we'd wait until you've leveled up and gotten stronger before making a championship run, but now." Seeing Iverson take the bait, Lee Long flashed a knowing smile. "Then you need to get management to trade for one more guy, or winning the title this year will be tough." Iverson was stunned. "One guy? Who had that much power? Who are you talking about? Don't even think about O'Neal." "Of who said O'Neal? I'm talking about Rasheed Wallace." Hearing it wasn't Shaq, Iverson sighed in relief, then grew puzzled. "Him? Why him? If you two are on the same team, you'll be getting technical fouls from the refs every day." What's the point? Clearly Iverson didn't agree with Li Long's idea and even joked about their reputations with the officials. Hey, come on, am I really that kind of guy? Alright, be serious. Rashid isn't cheap. Even if we trade for him come the finals, who's going to guard O'Neal? You or him? Li Long was momentarily stunned by Iverson's question. He had been so focused on dismantling the Pistons that he forgot about the need for someone to contain O'Neal in the finals now that Ben wasn't there. He didn't think his current stats were enough to handle O'Neal. Given O'Neal's form, his strength attribute was undoubtedly maxed out. If O'Neal won another championship here and then another in Miami, would Kobe be able to stand it, let alone anyone else? And what about LeBron? When he becomes the king, he'll find that the founding emperor's work was half done while O'Neal ascended the throne. How would he ever catch up to Jordan? Forget it. He was worrying about things that weren't his concern. He stopped thinking about it and decided to focus on accumulating resentment points and improving himself. Watching Li Long return to his seat, Iverson smiled knowingly. He had always thought Li Long lacked ambition, skipping practice and only caring about padding his stats for a big contract. He never expected this side of him. Whether or not they had a shot this year, seeing this side of Li Long made Iverson willing to wait. He would wait for Li Long to develop his shooting, wait for a few more good teammates to join, and then make another run at the championship. After returning to his seat, Li Long first allocated today's attribute points. Following this game, he had already accumulated 1370 points of resentment value. Seeing his close-range shooting had increased to 80, Li Long pulled down his blindfold and went to sleep. On November 29th, the 76ers hosted the Eastern Conference leading Pacers at home. Iverson was brimming with confidence for this game. Though he knew the chances of winning the championship this season were slim, he still wanted to give it one more try. However, whether due to excessive excitement or having left his touch at home, Iverson started with 3 consecutive missed shots, each clanging off the rim. Meanwhile, Li Long was locked in a fierce physical battle with the original babyface star and Pacers leader Jermaine O'Neal. It must be said that O'Neal was indeed formidable at this time. In the first quarter, Li Long defended with all his might, yet O'Neal still managed to sink 2 shots. 1-4-2-2. Leon Artest next. Seeing the Pacers leading by 8 points in the first quarter, Chris Ford grew anxious and assigned Li Long to guard the opponent's key player. Li Long was taken aback. Last time against the Pacers, he had guarded Artest and ended up scoring 0. He had just been eager to test his 80-point close-range shooting attribute in this game, but the head coach had him defending the perimeter again. Hey kid, WHYD, they switched to you. I heard you know Kung Fu. Hearing this, Li Long's eyes lit up. Could it be that Artest wanted to spar with him? That was like a pillow arriving just as he was feeling drowsy. He was precisely fretting over how slowly his attribute points were increasing. Yeah, I heard you practice boxing too. How about we find a place after the game to train? Li Long asked with an eager smile. Train? That's not happening. If anyone found out, we'd be suspended. That'd be trouble. Originally, Artest had intended to agree, for he was no coward. But upon seeing Li Long's overexcited expression, he quickly changed his tune. He even crafted a plausible excuse. Damn it, this kid was a freak, getting this thrilled at the mere mention of a fight. Recalling the rookie's track record of knocking out 2 opponents with just 2 punches, Artest wondered if basketball was merely a sideline for him. No worries, no worries. If it's really a problem, we can go to my place. No one will ever know, Li Long insisted relentlessly. He understood that fighting led to suspension, which was why he proposed going home. He figured that if he and Artest were seen heading to his house, the media would assume they were just hanging out as friends, never suspecting the real reason was a brawl. What a genius he was. But Artest grew even more alarmed upon hearing this. Damn, this guy was addicted to fighting. He was even willing to invite him home just to throw down. Truly one of a kind. No way, no way. I've got a game to focus on. Don't you know we're gunning for the championship this season? Hearing this, Li Long scoffed inwardly. Yeah, right. You guys didn't even make the finals. What a load of hot air. But on the surface, Li Long betrayed nothing. How about this? When you shoot, I won't guard you. After this game, come to my place for a fight. Upon hearing that, Artest's panic intensified. Damn, he's making such a huge concession just to beat me up. That only made him more determined to refuse. Kid, what are you talking about? As if your defense could stop me. Artest feigned anger, careful not to show any weakness. At that moment, Li Long finally caught on. Was this guy actually afraid of fighting him? Are you fighting me or not? If not, I'll lock you down so hard you won't score. You practice for another 3 years. Artest thought to himself that while he might not win a fight on the court, he was a two-way small forward. Slap. Li Long stripped the ball from Artest cleanly. Fight me or not. If not, I swear you won't score another point today. Artest was stunned by the steal. Damn, this kid's defense was legit. I was careless just now. I didn't dodge. Just you wait and see if I can score again. Artest had initially wanted to point at Li Long and hurl some trash talk, but remembering how the kid was desperately fishing for an excuse, he quickly turned his raised hand into a gesture of wiping sweat. For the rest of the game, Arteist avoided physical contact with Li Long, afraid of giving him any pretext. But without his bulldozing strength, relying solely on his mediocre dribbling to get past Li Long's tenacious defense was nothing short of a pipe dream. Damn it, Ron, are you crazy? Drive into him. With most of the second quarter gone and the 76ers closing in on the lead, the Pacers head coach called an urgent timeout. As they came off the court, O'Neal yelled at Arteist, "You've got some nerve blaming me. Who was it that got held to 2 of 6 shooting?" Already fuming, Arteist snapped back. However, with Miller's mediation, the conflict didn't escalate further. When the game resumed, O'Neal began to dominate. The 76ers were caught off guard, and by halftime the score was 2,824. They had lost another 4 points. "How did you go play with 2 balls last night and leave your touch at the club?" Li Long asked Iverson with a look of mock grievance, seeing he had made only 2 of 13 shots in the first half. "Screw you and your 2 balls. Can't a guy just have an off night?" Iverson, already frustrated, snapped back at the teasing. Chris Ford, seeing how things were going, figured the game was as good as lost and stopped bothering with adjustments. Still, he mused that while Li Long was effective, he lacked scoring ability. If the opponent had only one threat, Li Long could lock him down completely. But against a team like the Pacers, it wasn't enough. Looks like he'll need the GM to make another trade. Just as he was pondering what kind of player to acquire, the game ended. Early in the third quarter, seeing O'Neal was active, Li Long shifted to guard him. But no sooner had he switched than Arteist caught fire. After Arteist hit 2 straight shots, Li Long moved back to defend him, only for O'Neal to score again. Forget it. He'd just focus on padding his own stats. Yet a nagging doubt lingered. If the Pacers were this strong, how had the Pistons beaten them? Was adding one Rasheed Wallace really that game-changing? 9,077. The final score. The 76ers lost by 13 points. Li Long finished the game with just 6 points and 8 rebounds. "Scaredy cat, Arteist, you sure you don't want to come over?" he asked one last time as they left the court. But Arteist didn't even acknowledge him. "Hey Ron, you're pretty tight with that kid, huh? He even invited you to his place." O'Neal asked on the way to the locker room. "Huh? What? I didn't hear him. That kid. He probably admires my skills and wants me to teach him a few moves." The next day, the 76ers faced the Hawks in a back-to-back game. Iverson shook off his sluggish performance from the previous day, shooting 20 for 34 and scoring 50 points, leading the 76ers to a resounding 98-80 victory over the Hawks. Li Long also recorded 8 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals. Moreover, after 2 consecutive games, Li Long had gained another attribute point. Gazing at his mid-range shooting, which had now become 55, Li Long mused to himself whether he might transform into an all-around power forward by the time the playoffs arrived. When that day came, his template would be Rodman. The next day, Li Long slept in at home as the next game was still 3 days away, and Chris Ford had given the team a day off. "Lily, you're amazing." Suddenly, Burroughs burst in with great fanfare. "Yeah, I know I'm great, but how did you find out? Don't tell me you have a sister to introduce to me." Li Long, disturbed from his slumber by Burroughs, replied grumpily, "Oh, screw you. You've climbed to 5th place on the rookie ladder." Hearing that was all, Li Long was left speechless. It was only 5th place. Was it really worth getting so worked up over? Besides being in the same draft class as James, he had never even considered Rookie of the Year. LeBron James, the chosen one. He was the media's darling, someone who never lost when it came to media voting. All right, I'd advise you to think before you speak. If you tell me you came all this way just to deliver this news and disturb my sleep, you're dead meat. Seeing that Li Long was unmoved by the news he brought, Burroughs was taken aback. What was going on? Wasn't he happy at all? Well, there is actually something today. The 76ers general manager wants to negotiate an early contract extension with you. A 31 deal, total value, $12 million. What do you think? At the mention of money, Li Long's interest was piqued. How much? An average of only $3 million a year. Li Long said, somewhat dissatisfied. Bro, $3 million is a lot. That's US dollars, you know. Besides, even the prodigy LeBron James only makes a little over $4 million, all right. Hearing this, Burroughs immediately felt Li Long was getting ahead of himself. Damn it, why don't you mention LeBron's shoe contract? Comparing yourself to him on that front, are you out of your mind? Besides, the contract is too long. At most 11, with a player option for the second year. The first year of the contract has to be at least $5 million. Li Long thought to himself that in 2 years he should have developed enough. By then he could opt out and go anywhere for a big contract. Are you crazy? Who doesn't prefer a long-term deal? Aren't you afraid of not panning out? Burroughs wasn't stupid. He immediately grasped Li Long's intention. He had been spending his spare time learning how to be a good agent. He worried that if Li Long suffered some injury, he would be at a huge disadvantage. Pippen signed a long enough contract. Would you say he's happy about it? At this, Burroughs was speechless. Pippen was still crying over his short-sightedness. But you don't have to sign for just 1 year. And how could Billy King possibly agree? Burroughs still thought it was a bad idea and continued to persuade him. If he doesn't agree, forget it. After this season is over, plenty of teams will be willing to give me $5 million a year. But, no buts about it. That's the final decision. If you can't negotiate, it'll find someone who can. Burrows wanted to argue further, but Li Long cut him off. Hearing Li Long say that Burrows dared not press the issue. Li Long was his cash cow now, and he couldn't afford to offend him. On December 3rd, the 76ers hosted the Raptors at home. Chinese kid today, it'll show you who the real top power forward in this draft class is. At the start of the game, Chris Bosh started trash-talking Li Long. Recently, with Li Long putting up consecutive double-doubles, some media outlets have begun calling him one of the two best power forwards among the rookies. Especially a couple of days ago when Li Long climbed to 5th place on the rookie ladder right on his heels, it made Bosh feel indignant. How could an undrafted blue-collar player with no self-created scoring ability be compared to me, the future Dragon King, the top power forward? Isn't that Tim Duncan? Li Long naturally knew Chris Bosh, but at the mention of top power forward, his mind instinctively went to old Timmy. Hearing this, Chris Bosh was baffled. We're talking about rookies, what does Duncan have to do with it? But just as he was distracted, Li Long had already grabbed the defensive rebound. Hey Chris, focus. Vince Carter, the Raptors star player, shouted at Bosh for zoning out. Internally, he was filled with resentment towards the management. Why did they have to pick Bosh? Look at that 58th pick on the other side. If they had gotten him, wouldn't the team be stronger than the 76ers right now? He was a solid defensive ace who could also rebound, didn't demand the ball, and wouldn't try to be the alpha like his cousin. After running a few pointless suicides, Li Long was speechless. The guy had talked so much trash, but hadn't even touched the ball in ages. Buddy, are you trying to show me the style of the top power forward through running? After another useless sprint, Li Long couldn't help but ask Bosh. Hearing this, Bosh's face immediately changed. Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining 200 resentment points from Chris Bosh. He hadn't expected that their leader Carter would be so stingy, not giving him a single touch for the entire first quarter so far. You don't have the ball either, do you? Bosh, having nothing else to say, tried to give Li Long a taste of his own medicine. I'm just an undrafted nobody. Who told me I'm not the top power forward? Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining 200 resentment points from Chris Bosh. Li Long almost burst out laughing at Bosh's retort. Did they read Lu Xun's The True Story of AQ in America too? Hearing Li Long mock him about the top power forward again, Bosh's face darkened. On the next Raptors possession, Vince. A boss, let me take one. Bosh boxed out for position, intending to demand the ball with authority, but his tone involuntarily softened when he saw Carter. Seeing this, Carter knew his young teammate was being bullied by the 58th pick. He thought to himself that no matter how good Li Long was, he was still someone else's player. So he actually passed the ball to Bosh, hoping to let him save face. Kid, get ready. Bosh, seeing that Carter had actually obliged, immediately puffed up again. Look at this. This was what you call respect. Unfortunately, before he could finish his sentence, Li Long stripped the ball cleanly. He had deliberately let Bosh get position, as it was boring just watching him run around. Cornrows go. Having stolen the ball, Li Long hurled it down the court with a loud shout. Iverson had already started sprinting down court the moment Li Long made the steal. Catching Li Long's pass, he finished with a 3-step layup. Cornrows. Is that how you address your leader? Seeing Bosh, who was not yet the Dragon King, so astonished, Li Long felt a secret thrill. What's the big deal? It's just a nickname. In truth, only he dared to call Iverson that, and no one else on the 76ers would. After all, Iverson saw Li Long as his own Rodman. Hadn't Rodman called Jordan Baldy without Jordan getting angry? Hearing this, Bosh was truly in awe. This was a real boss. He thought to himself, a man should aspire to this. Chris, watch your damn step. Don't mess up the play. Just as Bosh was pondering what nickname to give Carter, Carter unleashed a torrent of curses at him. Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining 200 resentment points from Bosh. Carter was already frustrated. He had been trading baskets with Iverson and, thinking Bosh was a promising rookie favored by management, had passed him the ball. But what came of it? The ball was stolen and Iverson scored again. This was the era of the 4 shooting guards rivalry. None would allow the other to get the upper hand. Li Long found the scene amusing. It seemed Bosh was the most pitiful of the 0-3 Fab Four. James had an arrogant team leader, but he would soon be traded to make way for him. This guy, however, had to develop under Carter for another year. Thinking this, Li Long felt it was pointless to play against him. He aimed for the DPOY, guarding Bosh wouldn't showcase his defense. McGee, switch with me. Without caring how the 1.96-meter McGee would guard the 2.11-meter Bosh, he directly confronted the dribbling Vince Carter. Though if you ignored Bosh's neck, McGee and he were probably similar in height. Kid, I actually want to thank you for beating up Bowen. Seeing Li Long come to guard him, Carter showed no tension. In his mind, no matter how good Li Long's defense was, he was just a rookie. Instead, he expressed his gratitude. Li Long then realized that Carter had already been undercut by Bowen. No need for thanks. If you insist, a gift of 3 or 500,000 wouldn't be refused. This remark shattered Carter's composure. Am I mad? Give you 500,000. But in that instant, Li Long struck. With a light flick, he stripped the ball from Carter's hands. You trickster. Watching Iverson easily score another layup, Carter fumed. Ding, congratulations to the host for gaining 200 resentment points from Carter. Bosh, witnessing this, thought you got stripped by Li Long too, and you had the nerve to criticize me. From then on, Carter was determined to make Li Long suffer a humiliating crossover. But Li Long was no fool. He stuck to Carter like glue, preventing him from driving for dunks. Though he couldn't steal or block every play, Carter's shooting accuracy plummeted. By the end of the third quarter, Carter had only 15 points, going 4 for 19 from the field and relying on free throws. The 76ers, led by Iverson's 27 points in 3 quarters, held a 79-64 lead, a 15-point advantage. Carter played for another 6 minutes, realizing that the point difference was irretrievable before he finally stepped off the court to rest. Seeing the Raptors surrender, the 76ers also substituted their starters. In the final 6 minutes, Li Long and Bosh each led 4 substitutes on the court, enjoying the game. However, unfortunately, at the crucial moment, Li Long blocked Bosh. Ding. Congratulations to the host for gaining 30 resentment points from Bosh. From the resentment points, it seemed that Bosh had resigned to his fate. Bro, why make it difficult for someone who is just trying to pad their stats? Scoring is data, and blocks are also data. Looking at Bosh's bewildered face, Li Long couldn't help but smile awkwardly. Damn it. Just because you have one more block, does that mean I become a mere background player? Bosh grumbled to himself. The game ended with a score of 9-6-8-4, and the 76ers won by 12 points. Li Long once again recorded 2 points with 12 points, 12 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. Interestingly, at the end of the game, Li Long was awarded a free throw, but unexpectedly, with only a 65 free throw attribute, he failed to make the shot. On December 5th, the 76ers continued their home games, facing the visiting Bulls. 8-3-7-6. The 76ers secured another victory, and this time Chris Ford surprisingly assigned Li Long to defend against the Bulls guard Jamal Crawford, who had been on a rampage in the first quarter. Subsequently, Crawford was left speechless by Li Long's defense. After this game, Li Long's defensive prowess also caught the media's attention. More and more media outlets reported that while it was still unclear who would be the best rookie of the 2003 class, it was certain that the best defender was Li Long. On December 6th, the 76ers faced the Heat in a back-to-back away game. In this match, Li Long taught Wade, who didn't have a particularly strong game, a good lesson. Although Li Long wasn't as fast as Wade under his strategy of defending against penetration while allowing jump shots, Wade was left to suffer the consequences of his poor shooting. Why should a rookie make things hard for another rookie? I must practice my shooting. This was one of the 2 thoughts Wade had after the game. However, after the game, Li Long exchanged phone numbers with Wade, and they had a brief conversation. After all, this was his preordained Pippen following in LeBron's footsteps and leaving LeBron with no path to take. With Iverson's 35 points, the 76ers defeated the Heat 9-3-8, continuing their winning streak. After this game, Li Long also raised his mid-range shooting attribute to 58. To elevate it to 80, he would need 22 more attribute points. At the current rate of collecting points, he would need approximately 28 more games. However, they had 4 days off before facing the Pistons on the 10th. Hey, really? Okay. The next morning, back in Philadelphia, Li Long received a call from Iverson, who said he was treating the whole team to a night game because of their 4-game winning streak. After hanging up, Li Long quickly turned on the TV and switched to Philadelphia news. He didn't believe Iverson's claim that he was treating because of the winning streak. The 76ers had experienced winning streaks before. Sure enough, the news reported that Iverson had been named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. With a perfect record of 3 wins last week and averaging 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 for assists, he undoubtedly deserved this honor. Confirming his thoughts, Li Long felt no jealousy. After all his offensive attributes were currently abysmal, it was better to focus on planning for the DPOY. One must not forget that the person with 600 million fans in the future also started from the bench. However, thinking about how he would confirm tonight whether his Emperor's kidney had any other use, he felt a bit excited. As night fell, Li Long took a taxi to the night basketball court, called Iverson to have him come out and pick him up. There was no way around it. He wasn't yet 21, and they wouldn't let him in. You sure have some nerve asking me, the host, to come out and pick you up. Anyone would think you're my boss. Before long, Iverson emerged shaking his head. Can't help it, I'm too young for that, right? Player of the week. Li Long was unperturbed, directly referencing Iverson's recent accolade. True to form, Iverson brightened at the mention. Oh, it's just a minor award. I couldn't care less. It's not like I've never won the regular season MVP. Li Long mused inwardly that if anyone could humble brag, it was AI. Without that award, who knew when Iverson would ever treat him? He said nothing more, simply following Iverson into the private room. The moment Li Long appeared, he drew the attention of many young women. After all, Li Long was young and robust, and considered quite handsome on the 76ers. The next day, he woke up refreshed, realizing the truth behind the Emperor's kidney's legendary stamina. Gazing at his endurance stat, now 103, Li Long couldn't help but wonder if this kidney belonged to Wilt Chamberlain. No wonder the Big Dipper had 2,000 conquests. He began to fantasize about how many he might have himself. It wasn't about pleasure, it was purely for boosting his stamina. Yet recalling Magic Johnson's fate, Li Long shivered. Best to be cautious. Never get involved unless introduced by a trusted friend. On December 10th, the 76ers faced the Pistons on the road. Li Long only learned before departure that Iverson would miss the game due to injury, likely from overindulgence. Li Long had braced himself for a loss on the road. Unexpectedly, the Pistons fell 7,876. That night, Hamilton was run ragged by Li Long, whose stamina had recently improved. Chris Ford marveled at Li Long's energy after a full game of chasing. Could Chinese Kung Fu really enhance endurance? He even considered promoting it within the team. Unbeknownst to Li Long, Larry Brown watched him pensively from the Pistons bench. Having recently left the 76ers, Brown knew their roster well. The newcomers this season were clearly unremarkable from what had seen on tape. Only Li Long, an undrafted rookie, truly caught his eye. He was a perimeter version of Ben Wallace. Brown contrasted him with his own soft three-point center Mehmet Okur. Hadn't he even banned Iverson from shooting threes during his tenure with the 76ers? If possible, he'd trade the Pistons' second overall pick for Li Long. Speaking of the 2003 second pick, human victory cigar, Darko Milicic, his plight was worse than Chris Bosh's. Bosh at least got playing time to develop. Milicic rotted on the bench, not even making the Pistons' active roster that game. Back in Philadelphia on December 13th, the 76ers hosted the Nuggets. If there was one NBA player Li Long dared not provoke, it was Carmelo Anthony. After all, guns are legal in the U.S. And Melo was famously dubbed the NBA's top gangster by Chinese netizens. Haley, I thought LeBron would be my main competition for Rookie of the Year, but here you come out of nowhere. Anthony's smile was disarmingly sweet as he greeted Li Long before the game. Anthony was genuinely frustrated. One James was trouble enough, and now this Li Long had emerged from obscurity. Though Li Long ranked 5th on the rookie ladder, his early slump was behind him. Recent consecutive double-doubles hinted he might soon surpass Bosh and Wade. If he averaged a double-double for the season, he could overtake both Anthony and James if they weren't careful. Moreover, Li Long's defensive reputation was growing. The real mystery was how such a talent went undrafted. The scouts must have been blind. Well, except for the 76ers scout, they were sharp. If Anthony knew Li Long got drafted through connections, he'd be stunned. Iverson returned from injury for this game, but his shot was off. The 76ers trailed for the first half until Li Long began guarding Andre Miller, turning the tide. Relying on defense, the 76ers won 7,773. Li, your defense is incredible. You'll work hard. Next time you're in trouble, Anthony said before heading to the locker room. Guarding the point guard, Li Long finished with just 2.7 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. Unfortunately, after this game, Iverson's old injury flared up worse than before, sidelining him for at least 2 weeks. Players back then truly gave their all. Iverson had been injured on December 5th against the Bulls, but played through it against the Heat. He sat out one game due to discomfort, then returned to face the Nuggets injured. Now he was completely out. Why couldn't he learn from future stars like Kawhi Leonard resting at home while collecting his paycheck? Without Iverson, the 76ers became a bottom feeder. On December 15th, they lost 8,694 at home to the Jazz. On December 18th, they fell 8,188 to the Cavaliers. Li Long only then realized Cleveland had traded away Ricky Davis, fully handing the reins to LeBron James. With Davis gone, carrying the grudge of "I thought he was drafted to help me," James immediately stepped up. During the game, Li Long witnessed young LeBron's infamous crab dribble. Despite positioning himself, while James blew past him repeatedly. Defend his third step and head take a fourth, guard the fourth, and he might shoot on 3, or even sneak in a 5th. Li Long earned a technical foul for complaining. Eventually disgusted, he preferred boxing out Zydrunas Ilgauskas over guarding James. Still, James showed high emotional intelligence in his post-game interview, praising Li Long. "Li, this is our first meeting, and I must say he's one of the best players in our draft class. His defense is phenomenal. After this game, he's my brother." As for the technical, Li was a bit impulsive. "You have to respect the officials on the court. I didn't see the play, but if no call is made, you just keep playing." When reporters relayed James' words to Li Long, he was speechless. Is he trying to recruit me to be his sidekick? Li Long shoved past the reporters, annoyed. Brotherhood. Screw that brotherhood basketball. However, what Li Long didn't know was that when James heard these words, a flash of inspiration struck him. Indeed, if he could recruit Li Long to assist him, wouldn't he have found his own Dennis Rodman ahead of time? With this thought, he silently cursed the Cavaliers' management for their blindness. Ricky Davis was practically being given away, yet they never thought to trade him for Li Long. On December 22nd, the 76ers faced the Celtics on the road, losing 8,487, marking their third consecutive defeat. Meeting Pierce again, the guy had learned his lesson. When Li Long guarded him, he simply passed the ball, leaving Li Long torn between assignments. Ultimately, Pierce ended up with an impressive stat line of 31 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. After the game, Li Long regretted not focusing solely on locking down Pierce, ignoring everyone else. Yet he also knew that sometimes when a player finds their rhythm, no defense can stop them. Clearly, Pierce had exceptional touch that night. Carrying a 3-game losing streak, the 76ers returned home to face the Magic, their designated pushovers. At this point, McGrady of the Magic had lost all hope, merely fixated on padding his scoring title to boost his influence. Victory or defeat mattered little to him. With Iverson absent for this game, McGrady's motivation to score also waned. The final score was 9,573, as the 76ers finally halted their slump. Yet afterward, the 76ers lost consecutive road games to the Clippers, Suns, and Jazz. On the last day of December, they arrived early in Houston. Tomorrow, they would challenge the Rockets on the road, a game Li Long had eagerly anticipated. China has blacklisted me, hasn't it? Let's see if they broadcast the Rockets game or not. Moreover, after the previous game, his mid-range shooting had improved to 65, granting him greater scoring confidence. Hey Long, you really got me last time. I got a harsh scolding from the head coach afterward. Arriving in Houston, Li Long first called Yao. After all, he had treated Yao before, so this time, visiting Yao's home turf, he had to get a meal in return. Yao answered the call and soon arrived at Li Long's hotel. Hi Yao, you're being modest. How could the coach dare to yell at you? You're the Rockets star. You're too bold. Don't say that. Brother Francis is the real leader. Yao Ming was startled by Li Long's words and quickly stopped him. Yao Ming was well aware of his place. Though his performance was improving and the coaching staff intended to elevate him, he had no desire to seize power. In his heart, as long as he and Brother Francis worked together and played well, the title of leader was meaningless. Come on, let's go eat. Since Yao's restaurant wasn't open yet, he could only take Li Long out to eat. Look at LeBron. He's only been playing for a month and already ousted his former leader. As a senior, you should learn from him. Li Long said, somewhat exasperated. You're just teasing me. Recently, Ricky Davis' quote had gone viral, and Yao instantly recalled it. Can't compare, really can't. That guy is a prodigy destined to take over from Jordan. Hearing this, Li Long was taken aback. Yao, how can you tell he's the one to succeed Jordan? At that time, James was still competing with Anthony for Rookie of the Year, and Yao, unlike Li Long, had no knowledge of the future. Isn't it obvious? He signed a huge shoe deal before entering the league, gets favorable calls from referees early on. I saw your defense on him last time, such obvious traveling when uncalled. Yao was indignant. As a fellow #1 pick, why did every move he made result in a foul? TSK. No wonder Yao later thrived in the bureaucratic system. His observational skills were impeccable. In an era dominated by the 4 shooting guards, he instantly saw the league's intent to elevate James. But he probably said it casually, never imagining that James would one day truly challenge Jordan's throne. After dinner and Yao's earnest advice, Li Long returned to his hotel. It was his own fault. After a few drinks last time, he had boasted, arrogantly claiming he challenged Iverson on his first day and shattered the big dog's locker upon joining the 76ers. Yao had left in a hurry last time, missing the chance to discipline him. Now that he had the opportunity, he gave Li Long a thorough lecture. On January 1, 2004, a new year began. Li Long accompanied the 76ers to the Toyota Center, the Rockets' home arena. Upon entering the arena, Li Long spotted Yao Ming being interviewed by Yang Yi and Zhang Heli. Zhang Heli in particular had long anticipated this game. Although domestic media were barred from reporting on Li Long, Chinese Americans knew about him, especially after some outlets recently hailed him as one of the league's best defenders. That sense of national pride drove them to spread the news back home. Though it circulated only on forums and bulletin boards, many netizens dismissed it as false. But for Zhang Heli, who understood English, he knew the truth. Moreover, Li Long had recently been posting consecutive double-doubles. Yao old young, this must be teacher Zhang Heli. Li Long didn't care about protocol. Seeing the camera, he eagerly stepped into the frame. At that moment, the Chinese broadcast team hadn't noticed, and Li Long had already barged into the shot. Back in China, countless TV viewers were startled to see another Chinese face on screen. Wow, the 76ers really do have a Chinese player. Could those online rumors be true? What rumors? There's word that this player is named Li Long and is one of the league's best perimeter defenders. No way. Then why hasn't domestic media reported it? Leaving aside the shock of domestic viewers, Zhang Heli and the others were equally surprised. But since Li Long was already there, they couldn't skip an interview. Besides, once the game aired, the truth would come out anyway. Li Long, it's so hard to meet you. I've wanted to interview you for a long time. So what do you have to say to Yao about today's game? Zhang Heli, quickest to react, handed the microphone to Li Long. Great to meet you too, teacher Zhang Heli. Then turning solemnly to Yao Ming, Li Long said, "Yao, last time you stole a win while I was suspended. This time I'm here to collect the debt." "Hey, Li finally found you." At that moment, a bulky figure appeared before them. It turned out that this match was not only broadcast live in China, but also in the United States as a Chinese derby. The American media broadcasting this game was TNT. The moment Barkley saw Li Long being interviewed courtside, he hurried over with the cameraman. Seeing Li Long now reminded him of their first encounter, and it had been proven that Li Long's kung fu was indeed no joke. "You fat pig, how dare you come find me? Who told you to badmouth me in the media?" At that moment, Barkley remembered he had once made up stories about Li Long while commentating another game. He hadn't expected Li Long to find out, especially since he had said it during a live broadcast of a Spurs game. Little did he know Burroughs had been watching that very broadcast. Later, Burroughs told Li Long. Meanwhile, the Chinese audience was utterly bewildered. Zhang Heli and the others, spotting Barkley excitedly, turned the camera toward him. But as soon as Li Long spoke, they had no idea how to translate. As you can see, Xiao Li and Barkley have a great relationship. They're greeting each other warmly. Zhang Heli, a seasoned veteran, translated Li Long's words without a hint of embarrassment. "Are you kidding us? At least I understood that damn part." Exactly, is that how Americans greet each other? But just as Zhang Heli thought he had smoothed things over, he broke into a cold sweat again. The fat pig, ignoring the interview, backed away, shouting, "Don't come near me." Meanwhile, Li Long chased after him, rubbing his fists. "They'll teach you to badmouth me." TNT's camera, never one to shy from drama, captured the entire scene and sent it back to the studio. Kenny Smith burst into laughter upon seeing it. Let that fat pig boast about his good relationship with Li Long. Now he's been slapped in the face. And being mischievous, he even provided commentary for the two. Barkley must be trying to test Li's boxing skills, but running away like that won't cut it. As you can see, Xiao Li has great social skills, joking around with legendary star Barkley. Zhang Heli, quickest to react, forcefully spun Li Long's actions. Teacher Heli, stop spinning it. Do you really think we're blind?" "Yeah, but this Li Long guy is fierce." "Exactly, why doesn't the media cover someone so tough?" "Long, come here." Yao Ming, unable to watch any longer, finally called out to Li Long. If this continued, he wouldn't know how to smooth things over. After all this was happening during his own interview. Hearing Yao Ming's call, Li Long stopped messing with Barkley and returned to Yao Ming's side. "Li, I'm not scared of you, you know. I just don't want to hurt you and ruin the 76ers game. After all, I'm a 76ers legend." But just as Li Long returned to Yao Ming, he saw Barkley spouting nonsense into the TNT camera. Yao Ming quickly grabbed Li Long to stop him from going back. "Yao, I swear I'll never badmouth you again." Seeing Yao Ming holding Li Long back, Barkley shouted to Yao Ming and then hurried back to the commentary booth with the cameraman. Yao Ming hadn't expected to silence his critics, not with his skills, but by pulling Li Long away. "Xiao Li, no more delays. The game's about to start. Any final words?" Zhang Heli, noticing the Rockets coach repeatedly glancing at Yao Ming, knew time was short and wanted to end the interview with one last question. "No rush, they still need to warm up. Let's chat a bit more." Li Long ignored the urgency. Warm up? He wasn't scoring anyway. Why bother? He'd rather seize the chance to get more face time with the Chinese people. Zhang Heli was speechless. "Was I talking to you? Can't you see Yao Ming is anxious?" Following Zhang Heli's gaze, Li Long saw Yao Ming's predicament. "Hey brother Yao, relax. He'll play center later. I won't guard you so you can score freely. Don't guard me either, and he'll have a blast too." Yang, he couldn't hold it in anymore. "Bro, this is a national broadcast. Are you sure that's okay?" The national audience was equally stunned. What a character. So even the Americans play fixed games. "All right, Long, stop joking. Play well later. I'm heading back to warm up." With that, Yao Ming quickly left, afraid he might punch Li Long if he stayed any longer. "Li, the coach wants you back to warm up." Just as Li Long was about to chat more with Zhang Heli, Glenn Robinson, aka Big Dog, came over. "Hey, come on, let me introduce everyone. My great teammate Glenn Robinson, the 1994 No.1 pick." Li Long, unsure how to hype himself up, was thrilled to see Big Dog. Why brag about yourself when a teammate can do it better? He remembered liking that in his past life. Big Dog was about to cut Li Long off when he saw Chinese media, but Li Long interrupted. "They'll give you one more chance to rephrase. There are 100 million fans behind this camera." "What a..." Shocked by the number, Big Dog quickly straightened his jersey and spoke formally into the camera. "I'm Glenn Robinson, you can call me Big Dog. I'm Li's good friend and brother, we share a deep bond. I remember when he first joined the team, I was the one who welcomed him." Yang Yi was stunned. "Damn, that's impressive. No wonder they say everyone's an actor on camera." Had heard from Li Long that if not for punching a locker, he might have had a clash with Big Dog. On the other side, Chris Ford was furious. "I told you to fetch Li, and now you're fooling around with him." With that, he headed toward them. Seeing the head coach, Big Dog remembered his purpose. But now he didn't bother calling Li Long and quickly ran back to warm up. Seeing the 76ers coach storming over, Zhang Heli sensed trouble. He was about to say something good about Li Long to avoid any negative impact. Coach, there are 100 million fans behind this. Li Long, unfazed by Chris Ford's anger, spoke first. Fans? I don't care how many. Wait, what did Li just say? 100 million. My God. Chris Ford adjusted his suit and walked to the camera with a smile. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Ford. Not all viewers in front of televisions in China were ignorant of English. Once the game began, the internet was flooded with Li Long's remark about 100 million fans. As you can see, this is Li Long. To thrive in the NBA, you need this kind of personality, Zhang Heli explained, secretly wiping sweat as he returned to the commentary booth. This time he truly understood Li Long. He had heard Yang Yi talk about him before and thought it was exaggerated, but now he realized it was true. Brother Yao, how was what I said just now? Want to consider it? The game had just begun when Li Long started coaxing Yao Ming again. Play well, Long. This is a national broadcast. Yao Ming thought Li Long just wanted to put up good stats for the national audience, but this was also a nationwide broadcast in America. Couldn't the American fans see through the trick? I'll find then. Smack. Li Long snatched the ball that Stevie Francis passed to Yao Ming. He had originally planned to boost each other's stats, making the nation happy, but Yao Ming insisted on being serious. Yao Ming stared at Li Long, who had stolen the ball, with a bewildered expression. Had he made the wrong choice? Before Yao Ming could react, Snow, who had dribbled to the front court, tossed the ball into the air. Li Long followed up with a violent dunk. Before the game, he had told his teammates that since this was a Chinese broadcast, they should create scoring opportunities for him. Wow, look at that. Just one step inside the free throw line. That fully demonstrates Li Long's athleticism. On the other side at the Chinese commentary desk, Zhang Heli was also startled by Li Long's move. As the game progressed, Li Long completely unleashed himself, defending whoever had the ball. At first, the Rockets refused to believe it. How could a forward try to guard their guards? But after Francis was blocked twice and stolen from once, and Mobley was blocked once and stolen from once, they stopped being stubborn. They realized Li Long guarded everyone except Yao Ming. Only then did Yao Ming understand that Li Long's earlier suggestion to not guard each other was meant to protect him. Judging by how quickly Li Long stole from Francis, it was clear he had incredible hand speed. With Li Long's height, wingspan, jumping ability, and quick hands, Yao Ming knew he would struggle and make many mistakes if guarded. Li Long's stamina was enviable. He sprinted across the court without panting and played every quarter without a minute of rest. Zhang Heli was thrilled. If Li Long joined the national team, they would gain a formidable perimeter defender. Ultimately, with 14 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, and 4 steals from Li Long, the 76ers defeated the Rockets 76-72. Yao Ming scored a game-high 24 points along with 7 rebounds and 2 assists. After this game, the ban on Li Long began to crack. Though the official media still refrained from actively reporting on Li Long, more and more fans learned about him. On January 4th, the 76ers arrived in San Antonio. Li Long expected the Spurs to seek revenge and end their 5-game road trip in defeat. Unexpectedly, Tim Duncan had an off night. He made only 4 of 12 field goals and 3 of 13 free throws, finishing with just 11 points. The 76ers won 8,777 against the Spurs. Notably, Bruce Bowen played in this game, but dared not use any dirty tricks in front of Li Long. On January 6th, the 76ers returned home to face the visiting Bucks. Allen Iverson was set to return in this game. That morning, the news reported the first round of All-Star voting. Unsurprisingly, Iverson led Eastern Conference guards while Yao Ming continued to edge out Shaquille O'Neal for the top spot among Western Conference centers. Li Long searched the list but didn't find his name. Well, even LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony weren't on it, so he figured he was overthinking. He didn't know that his votes had surged in the past 2 days because of his game with Yao Ming. If that game had been played earlier, he might have been on the list. Plus, some of Iverson's fans were voting for him as well, so breaking through wasn't impossible. However, this posed a major problem for the league. James, who was in the same draft class as Li Long, hadn't had a chance to make the All-Star team. As the future face of the league, James, not being the first rookie from his class to become an All-Star, made it harder for him to chase Michael Jordan's legacy. Thus, there was talk within the league about changing the rules so that rookies couldn't directly enter the All-Star game and would have to play in the Rookie Challenge first. The reasoning was simple. O'Neal, who was clearly the league's top player, being forced to play as a substitute was unacceptable. Li Long didn't know that the rule originally meant to be changed for Yi Jianlian was now being altered early because of him. At 7 p.m., the game officially began. Perhaps because Iverson had just returned, his shooting was cold. He made only 6 of 18 shots, 0 of 3 three-pointers, and relied on 6 of 7 free throws to finish with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. Although Li Long's defense was as strong as ever, the Bucks had a balanced attack with 5 players scoring in double digits and all 9 players who played scored. In the end, the 76ers lost 8,876. Are you the traitor on the opposing team? Li Long joked, putting his arm around Iverson after the game. Traitor? What do you mean? Iverson asked, confused. You're the sixth man for the other side, the spy. Look, we won 3 straight when you were out, but as soon as you came back we lost. Li Long said seriously before immediately running off. Li, you bastard, stop right there. You're the traitor. Your whole family are traitors. On January 8th, the 76ers hosted the Los Angeles Clippers. In this game, Iverson's shooting improved, but more importantly, the 76ers had a balanced offense with 5 players scoring in double digits, replicating the Bucks' performance from the previous game. However, in the fourth quarter, Li Long was pushed by Elton Brand while competing for a rebound and fell from the air. Losing his balance, Li Long's knee slammed into the floor. Li. The 76ers players, disregarding the game, rushed over to check on him. Li Long knew he had taken a heavy fall this time, likely requiring hospitalization. As this thought crossed his mind, he spotted Brand still feigning innocence with the referee. Give me a hand. Li Long grabbed Kenny Thomas and stood up on one leg. Kenny Thomas was utterly bewildered, wondering what Li Long intended to do by rising without a stretcher. Hey Brand, I forgive you. Hopping on one leg, while leaning on Kenny Thomas, Li Long approached Brand from behind and spoke to him. See, I told you it wasn't intentional. Brand turned his head while addressing the referee. Bang! However, the moment he turned around, a massive fist appeared before his eyes. Kid, what do you think you're doing? Kid, you're asking for death. The Clippers players, seeing Li Long dare to strike, even with a limp, quickly surrounded him. Tweet. The referee hurriedly blew his whistle. Li, you're a beast. Kenny Thomas, finally snapping out of his daze, whispered to Li Long. At that moment, the 76er stretcher arrived. They helped Li Long onto it and sent him to the hospital. After Li Long was carried away, the Clippers also dispatched a stretcher to take their fallen captain off the court. 100-80. The two teams hastily wasted the final minutes, then packed up and left to check on their respective injured players. The next day, the media broke the news. 76ers rookie Li Long from China suffers anterior cruciate ligament and meniscus injuries, expected to recover in 1 to 2 months. Upon receiving the news, Yao Ming immediately called. Brother Yao, it's nothing, just a minor injury. He'll be fine after 2 months of rest. In truth, Li Long wasn't bothered by this injury. He relied on his system attributes and knew he would return to the court once healed. Not to mention he had knocked out Brand before leaving the court. The league had already added a 5-game suspension for that incident, but since he was about to be sidelined anyway, the suspension mattered little. Thinking of this, he broke into a joyful smile. Because as he was being carried into the hospital, he heard the system's voice, just as expected. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 resentment points from Brand. Single resentment points exceeding 1000 reward 1 lottery draw. Ding, because the host has completed a hidden achievement, knocking down an opponent 3 times. A special reward, a Klay Thompson single quarter miracle card. Klay Thompson single quarter miracle card, upon use, all 13 shots in a single quarter will hit, including 9 3-pointers, 4 2-pointers, and 2 free throws. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Spot Up 3-point shooter skill. Spot Up 3-point shooter, Steve Novak's signature skill, increasing open 3-point shooting accuracy by 90. Checking his attributes, his long-range shooting had already increased to 90. Subsequently, he added the 100 resentment points to long-range shooting, ensuring his open 3-pointers would be 100 accurate. At that moment, he felt the injury was worth it. Li, I told you to sign that long-term contract, but you wouldn't listen. Look what happened. Burroughs complained bitterly from the side. It was now a week after Li Long's injury. After a week in the hospital, the doctors diagnosed that Li Long didn't need surgery, only rest. Burroughs brought him home, with a doctor visiting to change the dressings as needed. Originally, due to Li Long's improving performance, 2 American companies had wanted to sign him for endorsements, and Burroughs had been busy negotiating. But unexpectedly, at this critical juncture, Li Long got injured. Not only were the endorsements put on hold, but the contract renewal talks also became difficult. Oh, I told you it's just a minor injury. After 2 months of rest, he'll be even stronger. Li Long had the system. He knew that upon his return he would be stronger than before, now not just a defender, but a shooter. He was destined to become a top-tier 3-and-D player. But Burroughs didn't see it that way. He believed Li Long's game relied on his explosive athleticism, and after the injury his physical abilities would decline. With his mediocre skills, he might soon be eliminated from the NBA. Thinking about this, Burroughs grew even more frustrated that he hadn't persuaded Li Long to sign that 31 contract extension, which would have guaranteed at least 3 more years. Ring. Speak of the devil. Burroughs picked up his phone and saw it was Billy King, the 76ers general manager. Hello, okay, I'll be there this afternoon. What's wrong? Who was that? Seeing Burroughs' worried expression after hanging up, Li Long grew curious, thinking it might be news about the canceled endorsements. What were a few endorsements? If they were gone, so be it. Once he performed at a high level next season, would he lack endorsement deals? It's Billy King, that sly fox. He's definitely going to lowball us. This is trouble. Billy King. You mean the 76ers want to lowball me on the contract renewal? Li Long finally understood why Burrows was worried. Li, you have to listen to me this time. They'll try my best to secure the original 31 contract, even if the money is less, well, take it. Also, you should ask AI to put in a good word for you. That will make things smoother. Watching Burrows fret and scheme, Li Long couldn't help but chuckle. Damn, was he the chosen one of the system, really reduced to begging Iverson for help to secure a contract. Still, he was deeply displeased with the 76ers' opportunistic behavior. What, he had just gotten injured, and they were already acting like this. Where was the loyalty? But thinking of Iverson's later fate, he felt a bit more understanding. It's fine. Go ahead and negotiate. We'll decide after you get back. On the other side, Billy King had finally figured out why no Chinese companies were advertising. Though he couldn't understand the connection between a player being a system insider and companies advertising at their home court. He knew he had been deceived. Li Long couldn't bring the same revenue to the 76ers as Yao Ming had to the Rockets. However, Li Long was playing better and better, fully anchoring the team's perimeter defense. If possible, he was still willing to keep Li Long. Of course, that willingness came at a reasonable price. Hey Burrows, how's Li's health? That afternoon, Burrows arrived at Billy King's office. Don't worry. The doctor said that with some rest, Li's physical condition won't be affected. When he returns, he'll still be a top-tier defender in the league. Having gained some experience, Burrows deliberately emphasized that Li Long's physical abilities would not decline. Billy King chuckled inwardly. A defensive player without the Chinese market. How much could he be worth? And that was assuming his physical condition didn't decline. Oh, that's great news. Come, let's discuss the proposal you mentioned last time. Young people with drive is a good thing. I hope Li becomes an all-star player. A11 contract seems fine, but the second year must be a team option. Hearing the first sentence, Burrows knew the man had ill intentions. Sure enough, the old fox only wanted a one-year deal. Burrows completely ignored the team option for the second year. In his mind, Li Long would inevitably be cut by the 76ers due to declining physical abilities. No, Mr. General Manager, after my persuasion, Li has changed his mind. He thinks the 31 deal is more reasonable now. How about we sign as originally discussed? Hearing Burrows' words, Billy King chuckled inwardly, a flicker of suspicion stirring within him. Though he had reviewed Li Long's injury report, which suggested it would likely not affect his physical condition, the sudden change of heart from the other party gave him pause. Could there be some hidden truth he was unaware of? Oh no, Burrows. I've already submitted your proposal. Changing it now would be a real hassle. How about this, we sign an 11 deal first, and we can renew later, right? Besides, Li is still in his developmental phase. He might even land a bigger contract. Burrows cursed under his breath. Cunning old fox, after a year, you'd be lucky not to cut him, let alone renew. Yet he could see Billy King wouldn't budge easily. He could only regret Li Long's earlier hubris. Fine, 11 then. First year, $5 million. No, Burrows. You should know that would put Li's salary above even the #1 draft pick. First year, $2 million. Second year, $5 million. That seems more reasonable to me. Bullshit. You're exploiting the situation. I won't agree to this. Hearing Billy King's terms, Burrows lost his composure, leaping to his feet in fury. Young man, no need to be so hot-tempered. How about this, go back and discuss it with Li? After all, I was the one who discovered him. Billy King, unruffled, patted Burrows on the shoulder with a smile. Discuss? What's there to discuss? After this season, he'll hit the free market and get $5 million anywhere. That evening, upon hearing Burrows recount the day's talk with Billy King, Li Long erupted in rage. Seeing Li Long's reaction, Burrows grew increasingly uneasy. That won't do. It'll get you traded. Maybe we should just accept it. He feared Li Long might be sent to a team where he wouldn't get playing time, leading to unemployment next year, not even the $2 million. Damn it, Burrows, what the hell do you mean? You think I'm finished too? Li Long's anger flared. He was the chosen one of the system. Why did everyone doubt him? Seeing Li Long's fury, Burrows was convinced it was a bluff. Don't get angry. I'm just talking about the worst-case scenario. We have to consider all possibilities, don't we? Just as Burrows was pondering how to persuade Li Long to accept Billy King's offer, he saw Li Long speak with utmost seriousness. Stick to the original terms. 1-year contract, minimum $5 million. If not, let him trade me if he wants. Thus, another 10 days passed. During this period, the 76ers played 6 games, managing only 2 wins and 4 losses. Chris Ford was growing anxious. Without Li Long, the games hinged entirely on Iverson's performance. He approached Billy King, hoping to trade for a few useful players to tide them over until Li Long's return. After all, the 76ers had started the season strong, and he harbored aspirations of making a playoff run. That day, Billy King called Burrows again. He had contacted him once before, but the other side remained stubbornly fixed on the $5 million figure. Well, that's truly regrettable. Receiving the same answer from Burrows, once more Billy King began to contemplate trading Li Long. After all, this was the peak of Li Long's trade value. If he returned and played poorly, the asset would become worthless. By the time the All-Star break approached, the 76ers had managed only 4 wins and 8 losses. This time, even Iverson grew restless. Though he knew the championship hopes were slim this season, he still wanted to fight for it. The 76ers, once sitting comfortably in 3rd place in the Eastern Conference, had slipped to 6th due to their recent slump. On February 13th, the All-Star game began. Lee Long, originally slated to participate in the Rookie Challenge, was absent due to injury. A 4-team trade involving the Detroit Pistons, Atlanta Hawks, Philadelphia 76ers, and Boston Celtics was consummated. Rasheed Wallace, after playing just 1 game for the Hawks, was traded again. Billy King worked his magic as the 76ers swapped an undrafted rookie and a draft pick for a 2nd overall pick. On February 18th, the final day of the All-Star festivities, Lee Long learned through the media that he had been traded. Damn it, that bastard didn't even tell us. Watching Burrows rage impotently, Lee Long was secretly ecstatic. Hell yeah, I'm the chosen one, aren't I? Winning the championship in my rookie year. Enough, Burrows, relax. Billy King will regret this. Go find me a place to rent in Detroit. Meanwhile, Iverson rushed back from Los Angeles, not even stopping by home, heading straight to Billy King's office. Fueled by anger, he barged in without knocking. He found Billy King trying to persuade Chris Ford. Hey buddy, you wanted a big center, didn't you? A 2nd overall pick. We basically got him for free. Oh, Alan, you're back. You're here about Lee Long, right? Seeing Iverson's fury, Billy King gestured for him to sit. I know you wanted to keep Lee, but that guy was asking for $5 million. An undrafted player, a guy who can only defend, and he wants $5 million. If I gave him that, I'd be a laughingstock. Billy King explained to the two. Isn't Lee worth $5 million? Look at his impact on the court, and look at our record without him. Iverson, however, felt that $5 million was a bargain compared to Lee Long's contributions. Hey, you know you can pick up a decent defender in free agency for $2 or $3 million. And Lee's injured now. Who knows how much he has left in the tank? Their bodies, those Chinese guys, aren't like ours. Besides, look, the Pistons have gone crazy willing to give up Milicic for him. This is this year's 2nd overall pick. Think about James Anthony Wade. Speaking of Milicic, Billy King was thrilled. As he saw it, the people in Detroit must have lost their minds. Little did he know years later Milicic would lose the moniker of Human Victory Cigar, only to be remembered as the man traded for Lee Long. But he can't even get playing time now. Even Iverson had to admit the Pistons' move seemed insane. That's Larry's fault. You know he trusts rookies the least. He has no idea how to develop them. At the mention of Larry Brown, Iverson fell silent. The truth was, as King said, even LeBron might not thrive under Brown unless the team fired him. Since it was already done, Iverson's initial impulse faded. After all, the NBA was just a business. Whoever took it too seriously would lose. After leaving Billy King's office, Iverson headed towards Lee Long's home. Haley, before you leave, how about I take you out one more time? Upon seeing Lee Long, Iverson said with a hint of melancholy. Even though he knew it was just business, he couldn't help but recall Go On Braids. He couldn't help but remember when Bowen undercut Lee Long and Lee Long recklessly took him down. Come on, wait until I win the championship, then you can treat me. Lee Long knew his trade had nothing to do with Iverson. Seeing his friend's sadness, he joked. Nonsense, you're young and full of wild thoughts. Better think about how to earn a starting spot on the Pistons. Seeing that Lee Long wasn't as dejected as he had imagined, Iverson felt relieved. Little did he know a few months later, when Lee Long actually lifted the championship trophy, what his feelings would be. Hey, I don't rush things. Don't switch teams lightly. Maybe it's not as good out there as you think. On February 22nd, after learning that Burrows had settled everything in Detroit, Lee Long prepared to fly there. There was no game that day, so Iverson came to see him off. Before takeoff, Lee Long couldn't help but reveal a hint of fate to Iverson. He felt it was a pity that in the future Iverson would decline rapidly after leaving the 76ers. If it were like Garnett, who won a championship, there would be nothing to say. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. In the end, he was kicked around by various teams. Switch teams. How could I? I'm the leader of the 76ers. You'd better worry about yourself. If you can't make it, come back to me. I have the pull to get you a minimum contract. Hearing this, Lee Long silently made a decision in his heart. Meanwhile, in the Spurs general manager's office. Didn't you think highly of that kid? Why didn't you raise the bid? GM Buford said to Popovich. Forget it, a first-round pick is already enough. Besides, he can't shoot. In terms of defense, Bowen can do what he does. Lee Long was unaware that he had caught the Spurs' attention. In fact, Popovich had noticed him during the first game between the 76ers and the Spurs. A rookie who could guard Ginobili, if properly developed, would surely be a valuable championship piece in 3 to 5 years. Indeed, who would have thought Joe Dumars would be so crazy as to trade the 2nd overall pick for Lee Long? Speaking of this, Buford was still utterly shocked. Maybe he sees a shadow of the old bad boys in Lee Long. On February 24th, after settling into his new home, Lee Long took Burrows to report to the Pistons. However, the team was on the road against the 76ers, so he could only meet with the GM first. Li Long felt he was already fine, but the doctor advised him to rest a few more days to avoid any lingering effects. Being able to rest while still getting paid, Li Long was happy to take as much time off as possible. Li, finally meeting you. The first time I saw you, I recognized your spark. Don't worry, in Detroit, we're all family. Meeting Li Long, Joe Dumars saw more and more of Rodman in him. Don't worry, GM, he'll definitely win you the championship this year. Li Long said confidently. He was absolutely certain about this. Even without him, the Pistons could win the title. With him, it would be even easier. Haha, I love this swagger. Good. Joe Dumars took Li Long's words with a grain of salt. Everyone knew that the big shark in the West was a completely different beast in the playoffs compared to the regular season. Moreover, the Pacers and the Nets stood in the way in the East. By the way, is your injury healed? Joe Dumars asked with concern, not wanting to have traded for a wounded player. Almost, but the doctor advised me to rest for about 10 more days. Hearing this, Dumars felt relieved. That's fine. Come back when you're fully recovered. By the way, is your jersey number still 58? Li Long's heart stirred. Fortunately, when he first chose his number, he had anticipated a team change and picked one no one else wore. After all, he was a man destined to steal LeBron's script. He never expected to face a trade before finishing his first season. Of course I like 58. It's a magical number, Li Long said to Joe Dumars with a smile. On March 10, 2004, Li Long once again stepped into the Pistons training facility. He had been fully recovered since March 5th, but from March 1st, the Pistons had been on a 6-game road trip. They wouldn't play at home until tomorrow. Naturally, Li Long took the chance to slack off until today. Kid, you're finally here. Rasheed Wallace spotted him as soon as he walked into the gym. Damn, I haven't settled scores with you yet. I was just breaking up the fight and you attacked me. Got me suspended for a game. Seeing Rasheed reminded Li Long of the last game when he was attacked while trying to separate them. All right, it's all in the past. Come on, let me introduce you. Hearing Li Long's words, Rasheed quickly waved his hands, not daring to provoke him again. Kid, I've heard of you, but this is the Pistons. You'd better behave. At that moment, Pistons leader Ben Wallace walked over and chimed in. In truth, Ben had been unhappy ever since he heard Li Long was traded here. He saw Li Long as a violent guy who might disrupt team chemistry. If Li Long knew what Ben was thinking, he would have protested. His actions were always justified. Hearing Ben's words, Li Long felt a surge of excitement. Could it be that he was about to receive a grand welcome gift? If he beat up Ben, would it infuriate Joe Dumars? I've heard of you too. How about we go at it? Seeing Li Long's eager expression, Rasheed was also looking forward to it. Though he wouldn't dare provoke Li Long, Ben's strength was nothing to scoff at. When Rasheed first joined the Pistons, he had intended to be the leader. But after arriving, Ben had put him in his place. Truly a man who could stand up to the big shark. Now seeing Li Long wanted to taste misery loves company. It's better for two to be bullied than one. Li, come over here. Just then an aged voice called out. It was Larry Brown. Li, are you fully recovered? I'm really looking forward to having you on the team. Well, who said Larry Brown ruins rookies? Li Long had been prepared to rally the players if Brown gave him a cold shoulder. Subduing Ben was a key part of that plan. Unexpectedly, Larry Brown was so amiable. No problem, coach. Rest assured he'll help you win the championship this year. Upon hearing Li Long's words, Larry Brown's heart stirred, realizing that Li Long harbored the same thought. In truth, this had also crossed his mind recently. He had originally planned to have Li Long play power forward once he arrived. That way there would be no concerns on the defensive end. Aside from the lack of interior height, they would have rebounds, blocks, and excellent mobility. At that point, they could mount a charge for the highest trophy. This was the primary reason he was willing to trade the second overall pick for Li Long. However, he hadn't anticipated that Rasheed Wallace's chemistry with the Pistons would be so remarkable. In recent games, they had achieved an 83 record. This presented a new problem: Li Long's playing time. He needed to convince Li Long to come off the bench. Li, it's good that you have this confidence, but as a newcomer to this team, you'll have to start from the bench. Hearing Larry Brown's words, Li Long was already mentally prepared. After all, this was the Detroit Bad Boys. As a rookie, he couldn't expect to start right away. No problem, coach, rest assured. With the game scheduled for the next day, today's session was merely a light run-through of tactics. Li Long observed from the sidelines without joining the team scrimmage. As for three-point shooting, he had already tested himself at home. He wouldn't claim to be perfect, but without defense, hitting 99 out of 100 was entirely feasible. This time, when Burroughs rented a house for him, he specifically chose a small villa with a half-court basketball court, all to ensure Li Long could practice diligently and extend his NBA career. Ben, shall we go to the weight room or the locker room? After practice, Li Long waited for the coaches to leave before stopping Ben Wallace. Ben glanced at him in surprise, thinking this guy was just like Rasheed. He had originally planned to give Li Long a warning after the coaches' talk and let the matter drop. But now the rookie was actually provoking him. If he didn't teach him a lesson, where would the Pistons' leader's authority be? Wait outside, Ben said expressionlessly, then led the way into the locker room. Seeing Ben accept the challenge, Li Long broke into a grin and quickly followed him inside. Damn, are rookies this fierce nowadays? Will he get killed by Ben? You'd have to ask Rashid. He's been beaten by both of them. Rashid, thanks for the reminder, jerk. About 10 minutes later, Li Long opened the door. Quick, come in and shower, or you'll catch a cold. Seeing Li Long's cheerful face, everyone was stunned. Could it be that the boss had been taken down? They entered to find Ben sitting majestically on a bench, his expression unreadable. From today on, Li is our brother. We stand united against outsiders. Got it. The Pistons assumed the two had fought to a draw and developed mutual respect, so they all agreed and greeted Li Long warmly. Only Chauncey Billups was puzzled. Why hadn't Ben gone to shower and remained seated there? Back home, Li Long excitedly opened the system. His duel with Ben had naturally ended in his victory. But he wasn't foolish. He merely struck Ben's abdomen to neutralize his combat ability. That was why Ben remained seated when the others entered. Ding. Congratulations, host, for obtaining 500 resentment points from Ben Wallace. System come out. Why only 500 resentment points this time? After returning home, Li Long was shocked by the system's notification. He had been expecting a skill reward, but instead received only 500 resentment points. Ding. Ben Wallace indeed generated only 500 resentment points. Li Long then understood. Previously, he had defeated opponents on the court in front of tens of thousands of fans, which was why they generated so much resentment. This time, he had only defeated Ben in the locker room unseen by anyone, and his teammates assumed it was a draw. It seemed he would have to KO opponents in public from now on. On March 11th, the Pistons faced the Bulls at home. Li Long once again sat on the bench. Damn, no wonder Stern disliked the Pistons. Their defense was brutally savage. Li, get ready to go in. At that moment, Larry Brown called a timeout and substituted Li Long for Tayshaun Prince. He wanted to see if Li Long could develop chemistry with his teammates within this defensive lineup. Hearing Larry Brown's words, Li Long quickly rose to his feet. As soon as he stepped onto the court, he automatically ran to the three-point line. After all, he was playing small forward now and didn't need to fight for position under the basket. Unexpectedly, Linton Johnson III of the Bulls, seeing this situation, simply left him wide open by 3 steps and went to double-team Hamilton instead. This was a blatant disrespect for Li Long's shooting ability. Had make Johnson taste his three-pointer soon enough. Chauncey overhear him wide open. Thinking this, he immediately signaled for the ball from Billups. However, at that very moment, Billups spotted an opening and took the shot himself. Even his own teammates didn't believe in him. Watching the ball arc towards the basket, Li Long knew words were useless. He could only earn his teammates' trust by sinking a three-pointer himself. Just then, he saw Billups' shot clank off the rim and fly in his direction. However, Johnson III had already boxed him out perfectly. Fine if they wouldn't pass to him, had just grabbed the rebound himself. Acting on instinct, just as Johnson III was about to secure the board, Li Long snatched the rebound right out of his hands. On the Pistons bench, Larry Brown watched the scene with excitement. This was exactly the role he envisioned for Li Long. Li, over here. Billups, who was about to retreat on defense, stopped in his tracks upon seeing Li Long grab the rebound and ran towards him for the ball. He knew Li Long was useless beyond rebounding and defense. Li Long initially wanted to dribble it out himself to show off his three-point shot, but Johnson III wasn't foolish. Seeing Li Long snatch the rebound over him, Johnson quickly pressed up on him, looking to poke the ball away. Now Li Long was in an awkward spot. He needed to dribble the ball out to even attempt a three. He couldn't very well cradle the ball and walk out like LeBron James, could he? He didn't have that privilege. With no other option, he tossed the ball back to Billups. Damn it, if they didn't pass him the ball again, had never give it up next time he got a rebound. Muttering to himself, Li Long ran back out to the three-point line. Once he reached the three-point arc, Johnson III stopped following him. Even Larry Brown on the sidelines could now see it clearly. Without any shooting ability, Li Long couldn't draw a defender. That meant the Pistons were essentially playing 5-on-4 on offense. And with Ben Wallace, who also couldn't shoot except for dunks, it was practically 5-on-3. Rashid switched positions with Li during the attack. However, the seasoned coach quickly found a solution. Li Long lacked mid-range shooting ability, but Rashid Wallace had it. Simply swapping them would do. Even if Li Long couldn't shoot close to the basket, he could at least dunk. Moreover, his close-range shots had some accuracy. Li, go inside. Hearing Larry Brown's shout, Rashid Wallace instantly understood the veteran coach's intent. He moved to the three-point line and pushed Li Long into the paint. This caught Li Long off guard. Damn, his mid-range stat was only 68. Originally, Li Long had planned to show off his three-point shooting as soon as he stepped onto the court. With both a three-pointer and defense, he might not secure a starting spot, but had definitely get playing time. Unexpectedly, before he could showcase his three-point skill, he was pushed inside the arc. Maybe go to the basket. Li, get out. In the center. As soon as Li Long stepped into the paint, Ben's loud voice rang out. It's fine, you play center, you'll play power forward. Li Long replied nonchalantly with a cheeky grin. Get out, you're too short to play center. Since he had lost a fight with Li Long, Ben hesitated to force him out. Come on, without that afro, you're about the same height as me. Watching the two short players in the paint, Chicago Bulls' Tyson Chandler was bewildered. Damn, are you two here to joke around? Just then, as time was running out, Hamilton failed to break free from the double team. Billups had to take another contested shot. Clang. As expected, the ball missed again. At that moment, Tyson Chandler pivoted, boxing out both Lee Long and Ben to let his teammate Antonio Davis grab the rebound. Lee Long panicked. If he couldn't score from outside and couldn't grab rebounds inside, what was he even doing on the court? Ignoring Chandler in front of him, he used all his strength to tip the ball. Antonio Davis was about to secure the rebound, only to have Lee Long tap it back into the air. Seeing his teammate miss the rebound, Chandler abandoned his box out and leaped for the ball. But in terms of leaping speed, Lee Long considered them all amateurs. Lee Long reached the ball first despite starting later. This time he didn't pass. He jumped again and slammed the ball through the hoop with both hands. Chandler, just landing, prepared to jump again, but saw Lee Long dunk over him. Nice! The crowd erupted in cheers, impressed by Lee Long's uneonto rebound. Even Ben had to admit his skill, truly someone who could beat him. He now respected Lee Long's rebounding ability. But stealing my center position, where do I go? Doesn't he know I can't shoot? After the play, Lee Long happily returned to the backcourt. As the Bulls advanced, Hinrich dribbled while cursing inwardly. Damn, how am I supposed to play this? It seemed his only option was to score by himself. This was ridiculous. Hamilton and Lee Long, are you dogs? Running like that for a game? Don't you care about stamina? But Billups was no pushover. A seasoned veteran like him wasn't someone a rookie like Hinrich could take on alone. Crawford noticed Hinrich's predicament and moved to support him. He executed a cross screen with Johnson 3 blocking Hamilton behind him, then ran toward Hinrich. But he forgot. Blocking Hamilton only brought Lee Long over. Lee Long followed. Crawford saw the handoff pass coming and immediately pounced. With his tenacious defense, he swiped the ball away with his long arms. Billups saw the steal, grabbed the ball, and dribbled to the side. Lee Long saw the ball with Billups and sprinted forward. But after a few steps, he stopped. Billups was just dribbling around in his own half. Damn, why waste time after a steal? Just then the Bulls scrambled back on defense. That's a key, playing like that. Scoring isn't important. What matters is stopping the opponent. Larry Brown's encouraging voice came from the sideline. Hearing this, Lee Long remembered. This was the Pistons, not the 76ers. The Pistons' strategy was to drag opponents into a defensive battle, winning by holding them to lower scores. Honestly, Larry Brown was extremely pleased with these few plays. As he imagined, Lee Long's defense was excellent, superb. In short, he had defense, and for offense, he had defense. In Brown's mind, defense was everything. In the first quarter, the Bulls only scored thanks to Hinrich's deep three-pointer from beyond the arc and nothing else. 2-3-1-3. The Pistons led by 10 points in a single quarter. More importantly, their defense had mentally scarred the Bulls players. As the game progressed, Larry Brown experimented with lineups. When Rashid was subbed out, Lee Long moved to power forward. When Ben was subbed out, he played center. Even when Lee Long guarded Bulls point guard Hinrich, he stole the ball twice. Hinrich, not known for speed, tried to outmaneuver him with skill, but Lee Long's relentless defense was no joke. Of course, after a steal, Lee Long looked clueless. His dribbling was so awkward that not tripping over his own feet was a miracle. The game ended with the Pistons winning 9-8-6-5, a 33-point margin. Lee Long had 2 points, 11 rebounds, 5 steals, and 2 blocks. Though his stats dropped, he noticed that stronger defense yielded more resentment points. In this game, he collected some from nearly every Bulls offensive possession. Larry Brown, overjoyed, rushed to Joe Dumars after the interview. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Joe, did you see that? Lee's performance was incredible. Seeing Brown's excitement, Joe Dumars urged him to sit down. Easy, Larry. Don't get too carried away. Lee's defense is great, but far from perfect. Hearing the GM disagree, Larry Brown grew agitated. No, Joe. You saw it. This kid can guard all 5 positions at an elite level. Isn't that perfect? All right, Larry, let me ask you this. If Lee had to guard Shaq in the finals or Iverson in the Eastern Conference Finals, could he do it? That question stumped Larry Brown. At this, Larry Brown fell silent, but then a sudden realization struck him. So according to you, who can guard O'Neal, Onion? To guard O'Neal and Iverson at the same time. Even Jordan couldn't do that. But Mike would beat them with his scoring. Hearing this, Larry Brown understood the implication. After all was said and done, he still believed Lee Long couldn't score. Don't worry, we have Chauncey and Richard. There's no need for Lee to score. In truth, Joe Dumars didn't dislike Lee Long, otherwise he wouldn't have seen a shadow of Rodman in him. He simply wanted Larry Brown to push Lee Long to improve his offense and passing. Not to be excellent, but at least not as poor as now. After this game, the trade in which the Pistons swapped the 2nd overall pick for Lee Long finally yielded results. During Lee Long's recovery, most media believed the Pistons had lost out, with some even accusing Joe Dumars of senility or treason, calling him a spy for the 76ers. See, I told you the Pistons hit the jackpot. Lee is nothing like that bust of a 2nd pick. In the TNT studio, Barkley was shouting at Smith. Oddly enough, despite being chased by Li Long before, Barkley only grew fonder of him. Amid the chorus of critics, he stood as the sole unwavering supporter of Li Long. No, Charles, it's just one game. I admit Li's athleticism hasn't declined, but it only proves the Pistons didn't lose out, not that they struck gold. For the sake of the show, Smith had to play devil's advocate against Barkley. Can he stop making excuses? The Pistons didn't give that bust any playing time, but the 76ers did. Compare the stats, not to mention the advanced metrics. Barkley spoke with confidence, as any discerning eye could see Li Long's impact on the court. Hey Charles, Darko is just over 18. Centers take longer to develop than other positions. Smith was prepared, using Milicic's youth as an argument. Younger players often promise greater future achievements. Care to bet? He'll kiss a donkey's ass if I'm wrong. I bet he'll never catch up to Li. Barkley was resolute. Milicic was young, but so was Li Long, and Li even knew kung fu. How could a bust ever surpass him? He had long wanted to settle the score with Smith. This put Smith in a tight spot. Deep down, he also believed Li Long's future was bright, but the conversation had escalated. Besides, the future wasn't something that could be judged in just a few years. Given their ages, it might take a decade or more to see the outcome. By then, he might not even be commentating. Seeing the director waving at him, Kenny Smith gritted his teeth and took the bet. Sure enough, within half an hour of the show's airing, the headline, "Barkley bets on Chinese player again, same old wager," was splashed everywhere. "Li, you've got to come through. I've staked my reputation on you." Just as Li Long got home, he received a call from Barkley. Initially puzzled about how Barkley got his number, Li Long couldn't help but laugh after hearing what he had to say. "Don't worry, you'll win this time. If you'd bet him on who wins the championship first, he'd be kissing a donkey's ass this year," Li Long said with unwavering confidence. He was genuinely grateful for Barkley's support during his injury. Barkley was left speechless by Li Long's words. It wasn't until Li Long hung up that Barkley snapped out of it. "Damn, kid's got some nerve. I've played forever, won MVP, even rode Hakeem's coattails, and still never got a ring. And you, a rookie, think you can win a championship in your first year?" He dismissed it as a joke. On March 15th, TNT adjusted its schedule to broadcast the Pistons game live. That day, the Pistons hosted the 76ers at home. Combined with Barkley's recent bet, the game drew unprecedented attention. Li Long was equally excited. In the past 2 days, he had received calls from Yao Ming, Yang Yi, and Zhang Heli, all urging him to perform well. "Coach, I won't go easy on you today." Before the game, Li Long went over to the 76ers side to greet his former teammates. But then he learned Iverson was injured again and wouldn't play, so he could only trade trash talk with Chris Ford. "Kid, dream on. Get back here." Just as Chris Ford was about to retort, Li Long turned and ran. Since they were playing the 76ers, Larry Brown let Li Long start in place of Prince. The 76ers, in turn, started Milicic to ride the wave of hype. "Kenny, how about another bet? The Pistons will win tonight." On the commentary desk, Barkley was trying to lure Smith. "Screw you. What if I bet on the Pistons? Would you take that?" But Smith wasn't falling for it. The 76ers were already weaker than the Pistons, and without Iverson, he saw no chance for them. Moreover, since the trade, the Pistons had surged past the Nets to claim the 3rd seed in the East, while the 76ers had slipped to 7th. Barkley frowned. "Aren't you on that bus side?" Smith shot him a resentful look. "He thought TNT wants ratings, and they've put me on the spot. Look at this jump ball." Milicic became the 2nd pick for a reason. His athleticism rivals Li Long's. After Milicic won the tip against Rashid, Smith remarked. On the court, the 76ers sprinted forward as soon as they got the ball, but the Pistons reacted quickly, getting back on defense. Snow dribbled beyond the three-point line, seeing no clear opportunity. With Iverson out and Big Dog also absent, Snow was at a loss about whom to pass to. Eric over here. Facing his old team, which had kept him on the bench, Milicic burned with intensity from the opening tip. Milicic took 2 steps out, boxed out Big Ben, and called for the ball from Snow. Let's take a look at this play. Milicic is actively calling for the ball. It seems he holds quite a grudge against the Pistons. On the commentary desk, Kenny Smith perked up at the sight. After all, though it was under duress, he was still someone he supported. If he could put up good numbers, wouldn't it vindicate his own judgment? However, he soon fell silent. "Ha, Kenny, I don't know what you were expecting." It turned out that Li Long had already noticed Snow's predicament. Seeing Milicic moving outward, he knew he wanted the ball. He stealthily shuffled 2 steps toward the paint, and the moment Snow released the pass, he darted in to intercept it. Yet the Pistons didn't fast break. Instead, they waited for the entire 76ers team to retreat before Billups leisurely dribbled the ball up the court. "Li, what are you doing out there? Get inside." Seeing Li Long standing beyond the three-point line again, Rasheed Wallace shoved him back into the paint. "Bro, I really can shoot threes." Speechless, Li Long had no choice but to trudge back near the restricted area, staring blankly at Big Ben. "Big Ben, buddy, back off a bit. I can't shoot." "Li Long can't do it, man. Neither can I." Billups took one look at those 2 brutes clogging the paint and knew he had to attack quickly, or else they'd end up playing 3-on-4 again. Using a screen from Rashid, he flashed open and hurriedly pulled up for a shot. But the shot was a bit rushed. The moment it left his hand, he shouted, "Rebound." And then it was time for the two buddies to shine. Big Ben and Li Long each extended a pair of formidable arms, clearing out the entire paint. They exchanged a look. "This rebound is yours." Big Ben knew this game was Li Long's chance to face his old team, so he was happy to play the enabler. Catching Big Ben's signal, Li Long didn't hold back. He leaped high and slammed down a thunderous two-handed dunk. From then on, Li Long found his rhythm with Big Ben. "They'll box out for you, you grab the board and dunk. Then you box out for me, I grab the board and dunk." Billups looked at the two of them with utter exasperation. "Am I just here to set you up?" While they were having a dunk fest inside, the other three had to deal with four defenders. "Charles, don't you think Lee and Big Ben are padding their stats?" Suddenly, Kenny Smith asked from the commentary desk. Barkley, about to argue, was left speechless. Damn, it was true. The two had a clear division of labor. One boxed out, the other grabbed the board. If ID had a helper like that back in the day, I wouldn't have only won one rebounding title. Perhaps sensing the resentment from Billups and the others, Li Long nudged Big Ben during the next offensive possession. "What's up?" Big Ben, for his part, was enjoying the partnership. The rebounding efficiency had shot up, and with Li Long's help surpassing Garnett for the lead wasn't out of the question. "Looks like Chauncey's pretty steamed." Li Long gestured with his chin toward Billups. "Don't worry about them. We're ahead, aren't we? As long as we win the game, it's fine." Hearing this, Li Long couldn't agree. Big Ben was tight with those guys. They wouldn't hold it against him. But as a rookie, if he kept letting his teammates get double-teamed, he'd be the one catching flack. With that in mind, Li Long started setting screens on the perimeter. Even if he didn't draw defenders, he had endless energy. "Li Long, I really can shoot threes." He set screens for Billups, then for Hamilton, then for Rashid. After that, well, Big Ben didn't need one, and it wouldn't matter anyway. Surprisingly, Li Long's disruption threw the 76ers defense into chaos. Amidst the confusion, Rashid found himself guarded by Snow. Without hesitation, Billups lobbed an easy pass, and Rashid grabbed it. Facing an opponent nearly 8 inches shorter, he didn't think twice, just rose for a straight-arm jumper. Watching Li Long snatch rebounds and score right in front of him, Malisic was on the verge of tears. This was supposed to be his statement game. How did it come to this? Were the media all lying? Under the combined attention of Li Long and Big Ben, he had only racked up 3 turnovers by the end of the first quarter, with zeros everywhere else. Seeing this, Chris Ford quickly pulled Malisic out. Having come from the college coaching ranks, he knew how to develop young talent. Any longer, and Malisic might be ruined for good. But watching Li Long's performance, he had a sinking feeling that this trade might have been a loss for the 76ers. On the other side, Larry Brown also subbed out Li Long. He now faced a different kind of dilemma: too many good players. He didn't know how to use them all. At the same time, he felt even more confident about this year's championship. Even in the 80s and 90s, when basketball was about brawling, his team's toughness would have stood out. Don't forget, Li Long was the king of suspensions. A guy who'd seek revenge even on a broken leg. If not for fear of injuries in the playoffs, Brown would have happily run Li Long with the starting 5 the whole game. After all, with these 6 guys, stamina 40 minutes a game was a breeze. Thinking this, he looked at Li Long with renewed appreciation. Truly a man trained in martial arts. His endurance could handle back-to-back games. After Li Long left the court, the Pistons' defense didn't let up. Because Prince felt the pressure. Lately, whenever Li Long came on, he was the first to be subbed out. It told him he wasn't as indispensable to the coach as the other 4. So he had to make the most of his minutes. He couldn't let Li Long steal his starting spot. What does a coach value most? Defense. No question. Shut down the opponent. Show the coach that anything Li Long could do, he could do just as well, if not better. After all, he was a better scorer than Li Long. With Li Long off the floor, Big Ben felt it first. Grabbing rebounds wasn't as easy anymore. What used to be an offensive board every 2 possessions was no longer happening. Of course, part of it was because the 76ers had tightened up their defensive rebounding after Malisic left. But for Billups and the others, finally getting to play 4-on-4 felt like a huge relief. In the following game, Li Long played every position except point guard, and he performed well at each one. At least in Larry Brown's eyes. In his philosophy, scoring didn't matter. As long as you stopped your man from scoring, you were playing well. And defense was precisely Li Long's forte. 8-5-6-6. Another near 20-point victory, the Pistons easily took down the visiting 76ers. Unfortunately, Li Long still didn't showcase his 3-point shooting in this game. However, he had already made peace with it. There would always be a time to use it. He wasn't in a hurry. After this game, the discussions about trading Li Long away from the Pistons ceased entirely. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that regardless of the future, the Pistons had at least won the present. Comparing Malisic and Li Long in terms of immediate contribution was like comparing a car to a taillight. The difference was that vast. Since the next game was 4 days away, the Pistons had the following day off. On March 17th, the team resumed normal training. Ben Wearsley. Everyone had already started training, but Larry Brown still hadn't seen Li Long. It turned out that when Li Long was with the 76ers, the media had reported his absence from team practices. Larry Brown assumed it was a bad influence from Iverson and that Li Long would change once he joined the Pistons. But to his surprise, Li Long dared to continue his willful ways. With this thought, Brown assigned the drills and returned to his office, his face dark with displeasure. "Haley, where are you? Why aren't you at practice?" After hanging up, Brown's face turned even darker. "Am I that stupid, letting him fool me with a stomachache excuse?" In the end, he waited all day, but Li Long never showed up. On March 19th, the Pistons traveled to face the Nets. Larry Brown placed great importance on this game. In his mind, this game was a preview of the Eastern Conference semifinals. It was the first time this newly formed Pistons team would face the Nets, and also the last regular season meeting between them. Therefore, he was determined to defeat them. However, he felt uneasy because Li Long had missed 2 consecutive days of team practice. Watching Li Long, who still seemed unconcerned joking around with Big Ben, Brown didn't know whether to praise his composure or scold his foolishness. Hadn't he noticed that Brown hadn't said a word to him since boarding the plane? On the other side, Big Ben was also trying to persuade Li Long. "Li, why don't you come to team practice?" "I'm a genius. Practice or not, it's all the same stuff. Just let Chauncey handle the offense and lock down my man on defense." Li Long couldn't care less about team practice. He relied on his system, not tactics. Besides, what tactics did the Pistons have? Drag the opponent into a defensive battle and crush them with overwhelming defensive power. Larry Brown, as everyone knew, never achieved much after leaving the Pistons. Moreover, Brown didn't even allow his players to shoot threes. What was Li Long supposed to practice? Mid-range shots. If it were like the future Suns running a fast-break offense that required building chemistry with Nash, then running drills would be beneficial. But in Detroit, it was completely unnecessary. Seeing that Li Long wouldn't listen, Big Ben was at a loss. In the past, if someone disobeyed him, he could use physical intimidation. But with Li Long, he'd better forget it. From their last spar, he realized that when it came to fighting, Li Long was a professional. Although he was stronger, he knew he couldn't win. If he actually fought him, he'd be the one on the ground. "Just be careful, okay? Haven't you seen how angry Larry is?" Hearing Big Ben's words, Li Long knew he had upset Larry Brown. Realizing his playing time was still at the coach's discretion, Li Long got up and walked toward Larry Brown. This startled Big Ben. "This kid. He's not going to punch the coach, is he?" "Hey Larry, has anyone ever told you that you look especially handsome today?" Li Long sidled up to Brown, pushed aside the assistant coach, and sat down. Larry Brown's face turned even darker. "Damn it, how old am I? What good is being handsome?" But this kid was certainly bold, coming straight to him like this. Thinking of something, Larry Brown almost laughed. "Hey you." The assistant coach was bewildered and was about to scold Li Long when Brown closed his playbook and waved him off. Larry Brown decided to see what trick Li Long was trying to pull. "Coach, is this suit specially prepared for the championship? Why are you wearing it so early? That's not good, you're letting the luck out." Mentioning the championship piqued Larry Brown's interest. After all, Larry Brown was a highly respected coach. Even Popovich was his disciple. Moreover, he was also serving as the head coach of the U.S. national team. After falling short in the 2001 finals, he dreamed of winning an NBA championship. So hearing Li Long's words, he couldn't help but respond. "Talking big. The regular season isn't even over and you're already talking about a championship. Do you think Stern is your daddy?" Li Long grumbled inwardly, "Not my daddy, but maybe LeBron's." "Oh, isn't it obvious? Under your wise leadership, who could break through our ironclad defense?" Li Long forced down his disgust and flattered him. "Kid, don't talk nonsense. I ask you, how would you defend against Iverson?" Hearing Li Long's words, Larry Brown felt smug. He thought the same way. But even though Li Long had hit the mark, he suppressed his joy and questioned him. "Defend? Why defend him? With those 76ers, it just let AI score all he wants. How many points can he get? With our strength locking down, everyone else is a piece of cake. The Jordan rules." Larry Brown immediately understood Li Long's meaning. Indeed, a hot Iverson was unstoppable, but relying on him alone to beat the Pistons was impossible. Even if he won a game or two, it would just be a repeat of the 2001 finals. What about the Lakers? They formed the F4. Larry Brown was essentially asking Li Long all the questions Joe Dumars had asked him. With that, Shaq also did it comment, "Do you think they're united? Besides Kobe and Malone?" At this, Larry Brown became alert. Yes, he had only focused on the opponent's strength, ignoring the internal conflicts brewing within their team. With this realization, he couldn't help but take a closer look at Li Long. He didn't expect this usually cheerful kid to be so perceptive. "All right, make sure you attend team practice from now on, got it? And if we don't beat the Nets today, you'll be in trouble," Larry Brown said sternly to Li Long. "Don't worry, coach. Today we'll crush the Nets so badly they'll be scared to face us in the playoffs." Li Long made a solemn vow and returned to his seat. The other members of the Pistons were baffled when they saw Lee Long heading over to Larry Brown. They swarmed Ben to inquire. Ben, is Lee going to confess his faults? Boss Lee wouldn't be thinking of picking a fight with the coach, would he? Scram all of you. How the hell would I know? Ben impatiently shooed them away. How could he possibly know what that fool Lee Long was up to with Larry Brown? It sure didn't look like he was asking for forgiveness. Then they saw Lee Long and Larry Brown chatting and laughing together. This stunned the Pistons. Holy cow, did this guy use some kind of magic to actually make the coach smile? Rasheed Wallace marveled, recalling that Larry Brown had never given him a kind look. Just then Lee Long swaggered back to his seat with an arrogant gait. Lee, what did you and Larry talk about that got him so happy? Rasheed, emboldened by their past scuffle, came over and asked. The rest of the Pistons pricked up their ears. Get lost. I'm into 2 balls, not a 3-legged freak like you. A burst of laughter erupted from the Pistons at Lee Long's retort. Rasheed's face flushed red, thinking how embarrassing it would be to back down now. But he knew he couldn't beat Lee Long in a fight. Come on, we're fist buddies, aren't we? Spill it, maybe I can help you out. Hearing this, Lee Long suddenly had an idea. Though he spoke lightly, he knew the Nets were no pushovers. Having made it to the finals 2 years in a row, they were formidable. If he slipped up, it would be trouble. Since you're my fist buddy, I'll let you in on a secret. I told Larry to let me start that ID demolish the Nets. He didn't believe me, but he said if any of you guys play poorly, he'll put me in right away. Play well, or you'll end up on the bench. And keep this to yourself. With that, Lee Long pulled down his eye mask and pretended to sleep. Rasheed's heart tightened. He told himself he had to perform exceptionally in this game. If Lee Long took his starting spot, what face would he, the former Blazers leader, have left? He intended to keep Lee Long's secret, but under the formidable threat of Ben's strength, he spilled the beans. As the other 4 Pistons silently vowed to play their best, a faint smile curled beneath Lee Long's eye mask. By the time they reached the hotel, Larry Brown had also learned of the rumor. What a clever little rascal. He didn't expose Lee Long's scheme, as he too wanted the Pistons to stay alert and crush the Nets decisively. At 8 p.m., the game officially began. The Nets were still a big draw, and tonight's match was broadcast nationwide. Kenny, how about a bet on who gets a championship first, Lee or that bust? Barkley brought up the old wager, trying to trap Smith. Charles, don't try to fool me. I bet Lee gets it first. Smith was full of regret for ever listening to the director. Seeing that Malisic was getting playing time, but still underperforming, he was deeply frustrated. No way. Everyone knows him on Lee's side. All right, let's watch the game. The Pistons' defense has been incredible lately. Barkley praised as the Nets were forced into a 24-second violation. Yes, since the trade over 12 games, the Pistons have allowed only 77. 2 points per game, best in the league. Kenny Smith added. On the court, the Pistons starters were fiercely defending the Nets, determined not to lose their starting spots to Lee Long. Though Billups felt relatively safe, he was matched up against Kidd. Was Kidd really the league's top point guard? As they say in arts, there's no best, in martial arts there's no second. Billups didn't delude himself into thinking he could steal the title, but suppressing the best would be even more impressive. Kidd was also frustrated. After 2 finals losses, had hoped Martin and Jefferson's growth would make this their year. But unexpectedly, 2 monstrous teams emerged from the traditionally weak East. First there was the Pacers, and now the Pistons. After the All-Star break, the Pistons' defense was even more brutal than the Pacers. He wondered if it was just because they'd faced weak opponents. But no, they were simply relentless. Kidd, once ambitious, felt his spirit crushed after the first 6 minutes. Only Jefferson could score through isolation plays. The rest were hopeless. Just then the Pistons called a timeout. Lee, you're in for Tayshaun. Prince's face darkened as he was subbed out. His eagerness to perform had led to mistakes, allowing Jefferson 4 straight points. He was thinking of how to redeem himself when the coach called the timeout. The other Pistons stiffened, realizing Lee Long's words were true. They had to play well or risk being benched by Larry Brown. When the game resumed, Lee Long immediately clamped down on Jefferson, leaving no room for him to receive the ball. Larry Brown nodded approvingly from the sidelines. Lee Long's defense was indeed superior to Prince's. The second-year player still had much to learn. As the shot clock ticked down, Kidd had no choice but to force a shot. Not known for his shooting, he predictably clanked it off the rim. Seeing 3 Pistons big men ready for the rebound, the Nets gave up on offensive rebounding. Ben grabbed the board and passed to Billups. Seeing Lee Long waiting beyond the 3-point line again, Rasheed was exasperated. You can't shoot threes, what's the point of standing out there? Jefferson was already preparing to double-team him. So Rasheed ran over and shoved Lee Long back into the paint. Ben, bro, you're here. Help me box out. Lee Long, buddy, it's time for us to rack up some rebounds. The moment Billups saw the 2 big men inside ready to grab the rebound, a dark line appeared across his forehead. Well, here he goes again, setting up the board. With that thought, he stopped looking for an opportunity. After all, who cares who takes the wild shot? He rose up and launched a 3-pointer right over Kidd. To prevent the rebound from bouncing too far, he deliberately increased the arc of his shot. Receiving the signal from Big Ben, Li Long spread his arms and began boxing out. Just as Big Ben saw Li Long had cleared the space for him and was about to snatch the rebound, the ball swished cleanly through the net. Seeing the shot go in, Big Ben stood frozen in place. This defied logic. Wasn't that supposed to be my offensive rebound? Ben, next time you're the one setting the screen for me. Li Long snapped him out of it with a tug and sprinted back down the court. Only that shot had no rebound. Next play, you're still boxing out for me first. Hearing this, Li Long was displeased. Wasn't that just cheating? That won't fly, one turn each. You can't break the rules. Blame Chauncey if you must, he's the one who made the shot. At this, Big Ben cast a resentful glare at Billups. Billups meanwhile cursed inwardly. You two idiots really think I'm just a tool to set up rebounds. The Nets came on offense and Kidd was once again at a loss for how to play. Jefferson, however, had an idea. Since Li Long's defense was so tight, why not set a pick for Kidd? If Li Long switched, he could go at Billups. If he didn't, Kidd would have an open look. Though Billups was no slouch on defense, it was still a better bet than going against Li Long. Acting on the thought, Kidd saw Jefferson coming over to set the screen and instantly grasped his intent. Switched! Li Long shouted as he closed in on Kidd. After the screen, Jefferson, seeing Li Long had switched to guard Kidd, immediately cut to the basket. As he had planned with Billups now on him, he saw a chance to go on and on. But after sealing his position and taking a look. What the hell? Are you a rabid dog, or what? Li Long clung to Kidd like glue, his long arms flailing wildly. Normally for a point guard, Kidd's weight made him a heavy one. But against Li Long, he was outmatched in both height and weight. Though his ball handling was elite, and Li Long could barely steal it, the real problem was that he couldn't find a passing lane either. Kidd felt like he was back in his rookie days facing off against Gary Payton. With the 24-second clock winding down, he had no choice but to heave the ball toward the rim on instinct. Alas, his instincts were way off. The ball didn't even graze the rim and sailed out of bounds. In the second quarter, Larry Brown kept the lineup unchanged, sending Li Long back out with the core four. This left the Nets in despair. By the end of the second quarter, the Pistons had outscored them 3,414 in the period, leading by 25 points at halftime. Look at the Pistons' defense. They're a strong contender for this year's championship. On the commentary desk, Barkley was stunned by their defensive display. He had laughed off Li Long's earlier claim that he'd win a title in his first year, dismissing it as youthful arrogance. Now it seemed all too possible. After all, this wasn't the future. The current NBA still believed defense wins championships. At that thought, Barkley felt a pang of envy. That's right, Charles, I agree with you there. Lee really might take the title in his rookie season. When that happens, should you and Malone start fighting for third best power forward of all time? Kenny Smith believed the Pistons' defense was championship caliber even if they still lacked a superstar to score in clutch moments. Hey, Lee is a small forward. And do you really think a bench player's championship compares to a regular season MVP? Barkley shot back quickly. He had only just acknowledged Tim Duncan's status last year and didn't want to slide down another peg. Kenny Smith knew this well. After all, even with 2 championship rings, he still ranked below Barkley in legacy. He was just trying to get under Barkley's skin. After all, Barkley had set him up. Watching Li Long's defense, it was clear his floor was high. If he honed his offense, his potential would be limitless. For now, he just hoped Malisic would be another Yao Ming steadily improving. If Li Long knew what he was thinking, he'd laugh his head off. Larry Brown was ecstatic. After the experiment, he found everything matched his expectations. In the East, only the Pacers remained a tough nut to crack. Come the 5th of next month, if they could stifle them too, he'd be poised to chase another championship. After all, they belonged to the same Eastern Conference, and their paths would cross often. Moreover, this game was being broadcast nationwide. Stern would not look kindly on overly aggressive defense. 8-9-7-1. The Pistons ultimately triumphed over the Nets by 18 points. Li Long played 30 minutes, recording a modest double-double of 10 points and 10 rebounds. After this game, Kidd's heart sank halfway. It seemed the championship this year was once again out of reach. At that moment, a faint desire to change teammates began to stir within him. On March 20th, the Pistons hosted the Nuggets. Haley, congratulations on recovering from your injury. When he saw Anthony again, the latter greeted Li Long with a smile still on his face. Hey buddy, you're impressive too. Leading your team to the playoffs in your first year. It looks like the Rookie of the Year award is yours for the taking. At that time, the Nuggets were sitting in 8th place in the West, giving them a clear advantage over Jameis Cavaliers. Sure enough, upon hearing Li Long's words, Anthony's spirits lifted even higher. Receiving recognition from a fellow rookie, especially being acknowledged as superior to James, was the thing that delighted him most. I wouldn't dare say that. The regular season isn't over yet, and the final standings are still uncertain. Though he said that, the smile he couldn't hide on his face showed that he fully agreed with Li Long's words. It's almost a sure thing. The Cavaliers definitely won't make the playoffs. By then, the Cavaliers were already confirmed out of playoff contention, so Li Long's statement was accurate. Hey bro, next time you're in Denver, I'll take you out for some fun. Hearing this, Anthony grew even happier, and in that moment Li Long became his brother. Yet Li Long felt a pang of regret. Their team had no more games against the Nuggets this season. He wondered though whether Anthony would still stand by those words next season once he realized the Rookie of the Year award was not his. You'd better rack up some good stats. I'm worried LeBron might just pad his numbers in these final games. At this, Anthony furrowed his brow. He had never considered the possibility Li Long raised. But the more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Unfortunately, as soon as the match started, Anthony cried, especially in the second quarter after Larry Brown substituted Li Long in. Hearing Li Long's shameless words, Anthony almost couldn't hold back and wanted to slap him twice. You just told me to score points, and now you're making me do just that. You're clinging to me tighter than a woman, and you still expect me to take you out. In such a high-intensity match, the Pistons won another 11 points in the first half. However, as soon as the fourth quarter began, Anthony was rendered speechless again. Oh, here we go again. Seeing Anthony's expression of utter despair, Li Long tried to console him. Buddy, you gotta get used to it. This is playoff intensity. Thank you very much. Upon hearing Li Long's words, Anthony was completely at a loss for words. 9-4-7-5. The Pistons had another resounding victory by 19 points. After this game, Li Long's mid-range shooting attribute finally improved to 70. With this rating, he no longer had to stare blankly at Big Ben under the basket in the upcoming games. On March 22nd, the Pistons faced the Cavaliers on the road. Li Long had just finished dealing with the Little Melon and now had to face the Little Emperor. Haley, my brother, congratulations on making the playoffs in your first year. Before the game, James actually took the initiative to chat with Li Long. Hearing Jameis' words, Li Long was speechless. Since when were they brothers? However, sensing the sour tone in Jameis' voice, Li Long felt a secret thrill. The playoffs. Wait until I win the championship. Then you'll really have something to be sour about. Not at all, nowhere near your average of 20-55. You've got Rookie of the Year in the bag, right? But in front of him, Li Long hypocritically exchanged pleasantries. Anthony, dude, why does that sound so familiar? Haha, not really. Carmelo's still in the running. It's really uncertain. The game began, and James played exceptionally aggressively from the start, perhaps trying to show Li Long his prowess in hopes of recruiting him later. He knew Li Long was only on a one-year contract and would become an unrestricted free agent after this season. Unfortunately, his shooting touch was off that night, and with the Pistons' interior packed with formidable big men, his drives to the basket were significantly less effective. The team was barely kept afloat by the traitorous Boozer. It must be said that Boozer's mid-range shot was incredibly accurate at the time, and with his quickness, he could knock it down whenever Rashid lost focus. At the start of the second quarter, Brown surprisingly replaced Rashid with Li Long, putting him at power forward. This made things tough for Boozer. Li Long was faster, slightly shorter, but with a comparable wingspan, lighter, but equally strong with superior jumping ability and far greater stamina. By the end of the second quarter, the score was 2-6-1-3. After obliterating the Nuggets in their last game, the Pistons made James taste the same bitter medicine. At halftime, the Cavaliers were already down by 22 points. Larry Brown saw the situation and pulled the starters to rest, bringing in the bench. As the regular season drew to a close, he intentionally managed his starters' minutes. If one of them got injured, he would have no one to turn to. In the third quarter, Li Long watched Boozer and Oker play gleefully on the court, one hitting mid-range jumpers, the other sinking threes. No wonder the two would develop such great chemistry later. It was innate. 9-6-7-6. The game ended with the Pistons handing the Cavaliers a 20-point defeat. Li, I really envy you for having such great teammates. After the game, James approached Li Long again and said admiringly, "No wonder everyone says James has high emotional intelligence. Just look at him." In contrast, after the last game, Anthony had walked off without even looking back after his big loss. It's all the same. Having such good teammates means I can't even start. By the way, LeBron, speaking of that, you should be careful. I just heard your power forward say he was thinking of joining the Jazz. Hearing this, James was stunned on the spot. Boozer was his only reliable help. If he left, how could he compete? Moreover, Boozer had already verbally agreed to resign with the team. Impossible, absolutely impossible. James said firmly at the thought. Maybe I misheard. Just keep an eye on it yourself. With that, Li Long quickly made his exit, having successfully sown a seed of doubt in the bald-headed man's mind. When the time came, and it actually happened, the Little Emperor would surely have to say thank you to him. On March 24th, the Pistons finally lost a game. 8-1-8-2, losing to the Hornets before their name change. In this game, the Pistons completely beat themselves. They led by 12 points after the first quarter. They had assumed it would be another easy blowout victory. A series of reckless and chaotic plays allowed the opponent to close the gap by 11 points. In the third quarter, the Pistons ramped up their intensity, limiting the Hornets to just 13 points, but their own shooting was off, managing only 17 points. Witnessing this, Larry Brown felt reassured. It was merely a lapse in concentration, and their defense had not deteriorated. As it turned out, the head coach actually deployed a bench lineup. Good heavens, in the end, they let the Yellow Hornets stage a comeback. Just look at yourselves. After a few consecutive wins, every single one of you acts as if you're invincible. What gives you the right to be so arrogant? There are no weak teams in the NBA. The moment you let your guard down, you could lose at any time. Staring at the stern-faced head coach, the Pistons players thought to themselves, if it weren't for the old man's deliberate actions, how could they possibly have lost the game? But there was no helping it. A loss was a loss. Larry Brown, too, had no other choice. As the winning streak continued, he felt the arrogance within the team growing ever larger. Today presented a perfect opportunity, so he decided to use a heavy defeat to jolt the team. Unfortunately, the Yellow Hornets were uncooperative, ultimately defeating them by just a single point. Still, a loss was a loss, and at least the act he had staged didn't fall apart. If those guys had managed to turn the tables, who knew how insufferably cocky they would have become? One had to admit Larry Brown's performance was quite effective. On March 26th, the Pistons traveled to face the Spurs. Before the game, Larry Brown took a moment to chat with his disciple Popovich. When the game began, the Pistons quickly found their rhythm. In the first 2 quarters, they kept the Spurs under pressure, leading by 4 points at halftime. The substitutes entered the court, and the Spurs immediately took a 2-point lead. In the final quarter, with a mix of substitutes and starters, they ultimately handed the Spurs a victory. Lee Long cursed inwardly, realizing that the master had not yet finished his act and had orchestrated another performance with the disciples. On the flight back to Detroit, Lee Long glanced at the standings and finally understood. The Pistons were currently second in the Eastern Conference, but due to divisional rules, they couldn't catch up to the first-place Pacers. Thus, they would ultimately settle for third. The Western Conference, however, was in utter chaos. The Timberwolves, Lakers, Spurs, and Kings were all within 1 game of each other in terms of win-loss differential. This match not only saved face for his disciple, but also taught his own players a lesson. Most importantly, it kept the top 4 teams in the West on edge. Dare they slack off, and they'd fall behind. The old fox truly lived up to his reputation. Instead of studying tactics, he delved into the art of war. After 2 consecutive losses, the atmosphere within the Pistons tightened. In the following 3 games, they easily defeated their opponents. On April 5th, the Pistons faced the most crucial regular season game of the season. They hosted the Pacers at home. The media dubbed this matchup a preview of the Eastern Conference Finals. ESPN even added the game to its broadcast schedule on short notice. However, compared to the Pistons' intensity, Rick Carlisle was far more relaxed. The Pacers had long secured the top seed in the East and were already preparing for the playoffs. They wouldn't easily alter their strategy just because their opponent was the Pistons. As the game began, it lived up to its championship-level intensity, and Lee Long, watching from the bench, winced in pain. Both teams were determined to stifle the opposition's scoring at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing their own offense. The first quarter ended with a score of 108-105, nearly driving the ESPN director to tears. What the hell was I thinking adding this game to the schedule? At the start of the second quarter, Lee Long was subbed in. Larry Brown's instruction was simple: shut down that son of a bitch Artest. Lee Long took the court ready to clash with Artest, only to find the latter resting on the bench. Shrugging off the thought, he began running alongside Hamilton. Lately, with his mid-range shooting attributes improving, Billups had been feeding him a pass or 2. He managed to hit 1 out of every 2 shots. Larry Lee's shooting is improving rapidly. On the sidelines, an assistant coach remarked to Larry Brown after witnessing Lee Long sink another mid-range jumper. Hearing this, Larry Brown nodded slightly. He felt both fondness and frustration toward Lee Long. The kid was indeed improving quickly, though he had initially only valued his defense. Unexpectedly, in just over a month, his shooting had become quite respectable. Yet his refusal to attend practice left Brown at a loss. This was why Brown kept Lee Long on the bench. Watching Lee Long lure a defender toward Hamilton before slipping into an open spot, Brown couldn't help but cover his eyes. Sometimes he felt sorry for Hamilton. The man would work tirelessly to create an open look, only for Lee Long to deliberately draw the defender his way. Then Lee Long would use Hamilton's presence to shake free for his own shot. Little did Brown know Hamilton was already cursing under his breath. Damn it, am I running all this for you? Every time I exhaust myself sprinting around, you come over and drag your defender to me. Yet thanks to Lee Long's chaotic, unorthodox play, the Pistons managed to win the second quarter by 9 points. Lee Long once again squared off against Artest. Scared Artest dare to fight, he blustered. In truth, he was only trying to intimidate. With the playoffs looming, he wouldn't dare start a brawl. But Artest was unaware of this. Damn, are you addicted to fighting? Even if you are, why always target me? With that in mind, Artest resumed his passive avoidance, minimizing physical contact with Lee Long. Watching Artest pass him the ball again, O'Neal was delighted. That kid Artest has finally acknowledged me as the boss. Then he was swatted down by Big Ben. However, while the Pistons' defense was tight, the Pacers were no slouch either. With Lee Long's clumsy off-ball movement, he couldn't shake off Ron Artest. Of course, the main reason was that Hamilton couldn't lose Reggie Miller's chase. Otherwise, he could have used Hamilton as a decoy to draw Artest away. Hamilton, thanks a lot. Seeing this score, Larry Brown sighed inwardly. The media was right. The Pacers were indeed the biggest stumbling block on the Pistons' road to the finals. When the fourth quarter began, Lee Long and the four Tigers took the court again, only to find that the Pacers had given up. Amid Larry Brown's lamentations, the Pistons easily secured the victory. After defeating the Pacers, Larry Brown began to conserve energy for the playoffs. In the following 5 games, they won 4, ultimately finishing the regular season with a 54-28 record, placing them 3rd in the Eastern Conference. In truth, based on their record, the Pistons should have ranked 2nd in the East, but due to divisional rules, they had to settle behind the Nets, who had 47 wins. After his first season, Lee Long averaged 8.1 points and 8.7 rebounds, a double-8 stat line. Moreover, in the final stretch, he had elevated his mid-range shooting ability to 80 points. With 5 days remaining before the first round of the playoffs, the team gave the players 2 days off. Lee, the Pistons contacted me asking about our renewal terms. That day, Burroughs came to Lee Long. So soon? What did you say? Lee Long was taken aback, knowing that the Pistons' salary cap was tight, otherwise they wouldn't have let Oker go after this season. I said I needed to discuss it with you and didn't give a direct answer. Hearing Burroughs' words, Lee Long felt relieved. In truth, he still felt quite fond of the Pistons. Not only could they win the championship this year, but they could also reach the finals next year. Although they ultimately lost to the Spurs, that was without him. With him added, could they beat the Spurs? If so, he would achieve a two-peat. However, there was a downside to staying with the Pistons: the perception of team basketball. In later years, even Big Ben had to curry favor to get into the Hall of Fame. Chauncey Billups, as Finals MVP, was never considered for the 75th anniversary team. He was once grouped with Andre Iguodala as a negative example of an unworthy Finals MVP. Forget it, let's not worry about that for now. Negotiate with them and see what they offer. We'll decide after this season. In truth, Lee Long had a plan. He had been holding on to that Klay Thompson single-quarter card, waiting for the right opportunity. If he could make a stunning debut in the finals, could he snatch the Finals MVP? He didn't know and hadn't told anyone, but he wanted to try. The regular season concluded, and the statistical leaders were announced. McGrady secured the scoring title for the 2nd consecutive year, with an average of 28 points per game. Garnett, averaging 13.9 rebounds, claimed the rebounding crown. Kidd took the assists title, Baron Davis the steals title, and Ratliff the blocks title. Regrettably, Ben Wallace finished 2nd in both rebounds and blocks. On April 19th, the Pistons began their playoff journey. In the first round, they would face the challenge of the Bucks. Yesterday, the Rockets lost to the Lakers by a single point, 71-72, on the road. Lee Long specifically called Yao Ming to console him. Lee, why did you skip training again? Don't you realize this is the playoffs? Upon arriving at the arena, Lee Long was greeted by a stern-faced Larry Brown. Relax, old man. Don't be so serious. It's just the first round. Our goal is the championship. Seeing Lee Long's nonchalant expression, Larry Brown was nearly furious. This brat had picked up bad habits from Iverson. However, he decided he must teach Lee Long a lesson. Ben, it's a real pity. If I had come earlier, maybe you'd have been the rebounding champion. Meeting Ben, Lee Long spoke with some regret. This season, Ben averaged 13.1 rebounds per game. Especially after Lee Long's arrival, his rebounding numbers surged rapidly. But unfortunately, he still fell short of Garnett in the end. It's all right. Our goal this year is the championship. It was evident that Ben maintained a positive mindset given Garnett's outstanding performance this season. Looking at the relaxed Ben, Lee Long thought to himself, tomorrow, when you learn that you didn't win the Defensive Player of the Year, I wonder if you'll still be smiling. The game began, and Lee Long sat on the bench as usual. The playoffs were indeed different from the regular season. Although the Bucks were clearly at a disadvantage, they fought tenaciously. In the second quarter, Lee Long warmed up ready to enter the game, but his name was not called. Watching the other Pistons starters take turns leading the bench, Lee Long grew restless. Coach, I'm a rookie. If you don't let me experience the playoff atmosphere now, are you saving me as a secret weapon for the finals? Lee Long approached Larry Brown, speaking in a pleading tone. Serves you right for skipping training. Hearing this, Lee Long knew he was being punished. Coach, I swear I won't do it again. Let me play, or the game will get out of hand. Watching others enjoy themselves on the court, Lee Long grew anxious and quickly made his promise. Hearing Lee Long's assurance, Larry Brown chuckled inwardly, thinking, Kid, I can still handle you. He had intended to let Lee Long play the entire game, but then he realized Lee Long was right. The opponent was weak, and this was a perfect chance for him to gain experience. Otherwise, if he faltered against a truly strong team, it would be disastrous. Thus he relented. Once Lee Long stepped onto the court, he was like a fierce tiger descending from the mountain, instantly elevating the Pistons' defensive intensity to another level. He knew exactly what Larry Brown favored, so he naturally had to perform well. Watching Lee Long's on-court display, Larry Brown sighed inwardly. This kid truly lives up to his reputation as someone who dares to approach him on his own. Born with an iron will with no sign of being intimidated by the playoffs. Have I been duped? If he's so unflappable, why does he need to accumulate experience? In the third quarter, with Li Long's contribution, the Pistons outscored their opponents 2,815, winning by 13 points. Just as Li Long was plotting how to achieve a double-double in the fourth quarter, Larry Brown pulled him out of the game again. Watching the Pistons substitutes fight fiercely on the court, Li Long cast a resentful glance at Larry Brown. Sensing Li Long's sulky stare, Larry Brown chuckled inwardly. Trying to fool me, huh? The game ended with the Pistons winning 1-0-8-8-2, a dominant 26-point victory. Having played only one quarter and tallying 6 points and 5 rebounds, Li Long returned home in frustration. The next morning, the league announced several awards. LeBron James defeated Carmelo Anthony to win Rookie of the Year. Ron Artest defeated Ben Wallace to claim the Defensive Player of the Year award. These two announcements stirred up a hornet's nest. A multitude of people voiced grievances for Anthony and Wallace, but the awards were already decided, leaving them powerless. Hey Ben, you okay? How about you treat me to a nightclub, and it'll keep you company? Fearing that Wallace might be upset, Li Long specifically called to console him. Get lost. Come if you dare. Upon hearing this, Li Long decided not to go. Such an obvious sarcastic remark was not lost on him. It seemed he wouldn't be getting a free meal from Wallace. Li Long suddenly wondered if the malice at the Palace brawl might have been Wallace's way of venting over losing this award. Just then, Carmelo Anthony's call came through. Hey brother, did you see the news? Li Long hadn't expected that of the two announcements, one would have him offering comfort, only to be told to get lost. Yet the other sought him out for solace. It seemed his affections were ultimately misplaced. I saw it, man. I was just about to call you. How is this fair? These media outlets are so unjust. Where are his stats better than yours? Did he lead his team to the playoffs? Over the phone, Li Long spoke with a tone of righteous indignation. Exactly, those son of a bitch media always look at us through tinted glasses. Anthony empathized deeply. Right by that logic, why wasn't Yao Ming the Rookie of the Year last year? Why did those media then use leading a team to the playoffs as a criterion? Li Long cited Yao Ming as an example. Hearing this, Anthony perked up instantly, quickly ended the call, and went to look up last year's data. Watching Anthony hang up, Li Long had no idea he was about to stir up another storm. Thinking that Anthony had called, Li Long wondered if he should also congratulate LeBron James. Hey brother, congratulations on winning Rookie of the Year. I told you, didn't I? Acting on his impulse, Li Long dialed LeBron James' number. Hey my brother, you're the first player from our draft class to congratulate me. I'm truly grateful. I want to apologize for what I said about you before. You're really a good brother to me. I won't do it again ever. Hearing James' mix of gratitude and apology over the phone, Li Long thought that even with all his emotional intelligence, he was still just a young man. Little did he know James was troubled at that moment. Because Anthony had led his team to the playoffs, this Rookie of the Year award wasn't universally acknowledged. Unexpectedly, Li Long had reached out to offer him comfort at this time. In his heart, James had already come to regard Li Long as his best brother.